हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज मैं इसका नेक्स्ट पार्ट लेके आ चुका हूँ। तो बिना कुछ बकवास किए चलिए स्टार्ट करता हूँ।
Chapter 201, Challenging Qian Dalyu. Just as the main group with Qilin arrived at Spirit City, Yu Xiaogang and Tang Hao, father and son, arrived at Spirit City at almost the same time. Although they set off from Heaven Do City 8 or 9 days after the various academy teams, unlike the slow pace of the main group, the carriage the three of them took was extremely fast. This meant that while the main group took half a month to complete the journey, they only took 6 or 7 days, traveling twice as fast as the main group. After the three of them arrived in Spirit City, Yu Xiaogang looked at the familiar city before him, a look of nostalgia appearing in his eyes. Spirit City, I never thought that I, Yu Xiaogang, would have a day where I would return to this place of heartbreak. Stepping off the carriage and taking a deep breath, Yu Xiaogang gradually put away his nostalgic emotions. He looked at Tang San and said with deep affection, "Little San, don't worry. Even if I have to risk my old life, I will definitely help you find a solution to resolve the conflict between your twin spirits." He still remembered the blood-red look in his precious disciple's eyes when he learned that he had been bullied by those guards. Besides that, Little San had personally avenged him, killing those who had bullied him along with their families. Such an action truly made Yu Xiaogang feel relieved. And what surprised Yu Xiaogang the most was that, after a year, Little San's spirit power rank had actually reached rank 45. Such a fast speed to cultivate, he truly lived up to the name of having innate full spirit power. This made Yu Xiaogang even more confident in Tang San, believing that within 20 years, he would definitely be able to stand at the peak of the continent. However, what he didn't know was that Tang San had only just reached rank 42 months ago. Although Tang Hao knew, with his brain, he was easily brushed off by a random excuse Tang San made up. After all, the spirit power of those people in Heaven Do Academy could advance by leaps and bounds, so why couldn't Tang San's? As for the reason why Tang San's spirit power advanced so rapidly, naturally, it was because during the time he spent cultivating by the waterfall, he often went out alone to hunt evil spirit beasts in the Sunset Forest, then devoured the spirit power and flesh essence within their bodies, which allowed his spirit power rank to advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. To the side, Tang San looked at the deeply affectionate Yu Xiaogang, feeling equally moved, and looked at Yu Xiaogang sincerely. "Teacher, you are too good to this disciple. This disciple truly doesn't know how to repay you." A smile appeared on Yu Xiaogang's slightly stiff face. "We are teacher and student, why speak such distant words? Isn't it only right for me to help you? Little San, if you really want to repay your teacher, then strive to stand at the very peak of the continent. Teacher is looking forward to that day." Tang San said, moved beyond words, "Teacher." Having been watched over by Yu Xiaogang since he was a child, although Tang San knew that Yu Xiaogang could sometimes be unreliable, he still respected him immensely. In his view, although Yu Xiaogang was not his biological father, he cared for him much more than his biological father did. It was just that his strength was a bit weak. Many times he thought about how good it would be if Yu Xiaogang had the strength of his biological father, Tang Hao. Yu Xiaogang held Tang San's hand and said with a smile, "All right, Little San, now that we've arrived at Spirit City, I should take action. While I go to find Bibi Dong, you can go and stay at the Chengfeng Hotel in Spirit City first. Once I obtain the method to resolve the spirit conflict, I will come to find you." Hearing this, Tang San couldn't help but say, "Then teacher, you must also pay attention to your own safety. After all, it has been so long, Bibi Dong might not remember her feelings for you." Grandmaster smiled confidently, "Don't worry about that. Your teacher considers himself to still have some understanding of Bibi Dong." After speaking, he bid them farewell and hurried towards the center of Spirit City. On the other side, after the academy team arrived at Spirit City, Qilin's figure also quietly left the team and hurried towards the Spirit Hall in the center of Spirit City. His steps seemed slow, yet each step covered more than 10 yards, and the surrounding pedestrians seemed unable to perceive his existence. A few short minutes later, he had arrived at his destination. His third life god trial was to defeat or assist in defeating 5 titled Duluo above rank 95 within 3 months. Although the 3-month deadline was approaching, Qilin was not in a hurry. Because the several high priests of Spirit Hall happened to meet this requirement. Spirit Hall, Duluo Hall. Qilin walked up to the very top of the Spirit Hall's sacred mountain alone, looking at the magnificent palace before him, his gaze devoid of even the slightest ripple. And despite a person of his size venturing deep into the heart of Spirit Hall, no one noticed his arrival either. It wasn't until he walked into the main hall of Duluo Hall and looked at the huge statue standing in the hall that he was discovered by the tall figure standing devoutly beneath the statue. This person turned around, and the moment he saw Qilin, his eyes narrowed slightly. While a look of alertness flashed in his eyes, a trace of confusion also flickered across them. "Hello." Qilin looked at the handsome man in his 30s or 40s before him and greeted him with a smile. He recognized the identity of the person before him. Qian Runshui's grandfather, the high priest of Spirit Hall, a rank 99 titled Duluo, Qian Dalyu. "Who are you?" Qian Dalyu looked at Qilin in confusion. He didn't recognize his identity, only curious about how Qilin had arrived here without alerting anyone else. "You should have heard my name. I am called Qilin." "You are Qilin." Hearing Qilin's self-introduction, Qian Dalyu's pupils shrank suddenly. He naturally knew of Qilin, but he had never seen the immortal master in person. Seeing him now, he really was young. Most importantly, Qian Dalyu actually felt a trace of danger from Qilin. This feeling made Qian Dalyu feel incredibly absurd. To be able to make him feel threatened, one would at least have to reach rank 97 or above, right? Even if this youth before him had started to cultivate from his mother's womb, it would be impossible to reach that rank. "How did you get up here?" Qian Dalyu asked curiously. Qilin spread his hands and said, "I just walked up." Qian Dalyu's face darkened. "I am asking how you managed to come up without being discovered." Qilin smiled slightly and said, "As long as I don't want people to discover me, no one can discover me, and that includes you." This kid, Qian Dalyu raised an eyebrow. He saw no trace of lying in Qilin's expression or tone. "Then what are you here for?" "I want to challenge a few people, and it just so happens that Spirit Hall has candidates who meet the requirements." Qilin looked at Qian Dalyu with a smile, looking harmless to humans and animals. And Qian Dalyu was completely dumbfounded, looking at Qilin and saying, "Do you know what place this is?" "This is Duluo Hall. There is no one here for you to challenge." Hearing this, Qilin smiled and said, "How could there not be?" Qian Dalyu was stunned when he heard this, but looking at Qilin's gaze as he smiled at him, he immediately reacted. This kid, the person he wanted to challenge was actually himself. Chapter 202, I have a sword, please appreciate it. Qian Dalyu didn't know whether to call Qilin arrogant or ignorant at this moment, so he looked at him calmly and said, "Are you sure you want to challenge me? Do you know who I am?" Qilin looked at him in confusion and said, "If I didn't know who you were, why would I come to challenge you?" Qian Dalyu narrowed his eyes slightly upon hearing this. Then you must know my strength. Since that is the case, why challenge me? I came to challenge you naturally because I believe I can win against you. The two exchanged questions and answers. Although Qian Daliu still didn't believe that a 14-year-old boy like Qilin could defeat him, seeing such confidence in his eyes, he knew the latter had come prepared. Very well, since you truly want to challenge me, this old man will accompany you for a few bouts, Qian Daliu said calmly. During this period, he often received letters from his granddaughter, and from the lines between the words, he could tell how much she valued Qilin and the invisible affection she held for him. It was precisely because of this that, although this was the first time Qian Daliu had seen Qilin, he had long regarded him as his future grandson-in-law. Therefore, facing Qilin's request to challenge him, he agreed without much hesitation. Of course, in Qian Daliu's view, while Qilin might have some trump cards, it was still impossible for him to be his opponent, so he would need to control his strength when attacking. After all, his precious granddaughter had already arrived in Spirit City, and if he hurt her sweetheart, he feared she would blame his old bones for being ruthless. Seeing Qian Daliu agree to his challenge so easily, Qilin smiled slightly. It seemed he would need to be careful with his strength later. He shouldn't beat Qian Daliu to death, otherwise it would be hard to explain to Qian Runshui later. After all, she was his big brother Shui. Then let's begin. It's too narrow here, and it wouldn't be good to break anything. How about a battle in the sky? Qilin smiled. Qian Daliu raised an eyebrow upon hearing this, then shook his head and smiled. A battle in the sky. Even Tang Chen and Bo Saishi in their prime wouldn't dare claim they could defeat him in the sky. Very well, it would be a good opportunity to let this kid know the immensity of the world. Thus, Qian Daliu smiled calmly. Since you've said so, then as you wish. After speaking, Qian Daliu's figure flashed, and in the next second, he disappeared from where he stood and appeared above the Duluo Hall. Seeing this, the corners of Qilin's mouth curled up slightly, and his figure also appeared in front of Qian Daliu. This move of his left Qian Daliu shocked. Such fast speed. He didn't expect this kid to really have some tricks up his sleeve. Thinking of this, a hint of seriousness appeared in Qian Daliu's eyes. Of course, that was all. He beckoned to Qilin like a grandmaster, his expression calm and composed. Come, let me see what qualifications you have to dare to challenge this old man. No problem, just don't get scared. Qilin smiled slightly and immediately released his spirit. In an instant, a four-leaf clover spirit shrouded in brilliant golden radiance emerged from his palm, and a gorgeous spirit ring spiraled up from his feet. Platinum, brilliant gold, crimson, emerald green, blue gold, snow white, azure, yellowish brown. Qian Daliu looked at the colorful spirit rings on Qilin and widened his eyes. What kind of bizarre spirit ring colors were these? This was too strange. And wasn't it rumored initially that his spirit power was only at the Spirit King level? How did he suddenly become a Spirit Duluo? How could the intelligence be so different in just 1 year? What exactly happened to Qilin in this past year? Qian Daliu was completely baffled. Afterward, he looked at Qilin, a flash of emotion in his eyes. He had to admit, although they both possessed the potential to become gods, Qilin's talent was far superior to his precious granddaughter's. No wonder he dared to come and challenge him despite knowing his strength. Unfortunately, Qilin did not know the gap between a level 99 titled Duluo and an ordinary titled Duluo. If he wanted to, he could instantly kill an ordinary titled Duluo. More than a decade ago, Tang Hao had severely injured his son, and he had personally gone out to hunt Tang Hao down, yet he had escaped several times, helping Tang Hao establish a reputation that shocked the continent. Did he really think Tang Hao was so powerful that even he had failed? If it weren't for the sake of Tang Chen's face, and the fact that the person who ultimately killed Qian Zunji was Bibi Dong, Tang Hao would have died at his hands 1,000 or 800 times over. Qian Daliu wore a faint smile as his spirit possessed him. In an instant, brilliant golden light shone from his body, and behind him, 3 pairs of pure white wings unfolded. Streaks of golden radiance fell, and a huge phantom with an indiscernible face appeared behind him, filled with a sacred aura. The Seraphim Spirit. And at the very moment his spirit possessed him, several figures in various parts of Spirit Hall sensed his spirit power and shot up into the air, flashing towards the direction of the Duluo Hall. Inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Bibi Dong sensed this spirit power full of sacred aura, a flash of disgust crossing her eyes as she frowned slightly. Who is Qian Daliu fighting? This spirit power. It's that little guy, Qilin. How did he run to the Duluo Hall and end up facing Qian Daliu? Could it be that he wanted to find me and ended up in the wrong place? Bibi Dong secretly thought it was bad, and her figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. Outside the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo looked at each other and said, "What is going on? Who is the High Priest fighting? Even His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff has been alarmed. Let's go and take a look." ... Above the Duluo Hall, Qian Daliu exuded a powerful aura, then looked at Qilin with a smile. "Little guy, your future is limitless, but you are not yet a match for this old man. Make your move, and let this old man give you some pointers." Haha, then you had better be careful. In the next second, the first spirit ring on Qilin flickered. Gift of Fate Strength. Gift of Fate Speed. Gift of Fate Defense. Gift of Fate Spirit. It should be known that Qilin's body's endurance had now reached over 1,000,000 years, which caused these 4 buffs of his to reach 1000%. 10 times the strength, 10 times the speed, 10 times the defense, 10 times the spirit power. Qilin's spirit power intensity instantly soared from level 90 to a level on par with Qian Daliu, and the powerful aura emanating from his whole body made even Qian Daliu feel extreme pressure. Qian Daliu's pupils constricted sharply at this moment. Qilin really hadn't lied. He really had the strength to defeat him. At this moment, Qilin joined his right index and middle fingers into a sword shape and pointed towards the sky. In an instant, a golden sword light shot into the sky, the sword chi piercing the heavens. Qilin smiled and looked at Qian Daliu. "I have a sword, please appreciate it." Chapter 203, Instant Kill, defeating Qian Daliu with a sword. Qian Daliu looked at the sword light on Qilin's fingertip, which soared into the sky and was hundreds of zhong long, and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Even he, upon feeling the incomparably condensed sword intent within the sword light, as well as its terrifying aura, was already drenched in cold sweat. If he were to take this sword strike head-on, wouldn't he be reduced to ashes on the spot? Surely not, but just as he was stunned, Qilin reminded him, "I'm coming." Qian Daliu reacted instantly. While cold sweat streamed down his face, a layer of golden armor instantly covered his entire body. It was his spirit bone. Given Qian Daliu's strength and the fact that he had lived for 140 or 50 years, he had naturally long since collected a full set of spirit bones, and each piece was a spirit bone of over 50,000 years. Besides summoning the spirit bone armor, feeling that it wasn't safe enough, Qian Daliu's spirit rings flashed twice above his head to boost his entire body. Still feeling insecure, he unleashed his strongest defensive spirit ability. The Seraphim Spirit, as a divine rank spirit, could be said to be incredibly comprehensive, capable of both attack and defense. After unleashing his defensive spirit ability, a golden light barrier instantly enveloped Qian Dalyu. Qilin did not stop him, instead waiting for Qian Dalyu to prepare all his defenses before waving his hand down. Swish, the next second, the golden sword light slashed down from the sky, as if it could split heaven and earth in two. Everyone rushing over from all directions was dumbfounded at this sight. Boom, the sword light struck the light barrier, and with a thunderous sound, the barrier shattered upon impact. Inside the barrier, Qian Dalyu's figure flew backward like a cannonball for hundreds of jong before he could barely steady himself. The level 99 limit Duluo, Qian Dalyu, was defeated. Defeated at the hands of this 14-year-old youth, Qilin. Qilin had even held back at the last moment, otherwise, Qian Dalyu would not have just flown backward. The experts of Spirit Hall who had rushed over were even more horrified at this sight. Their most revered high priest had actually been defeated, and so thoroughly at that. Everyone was so stunned by what they saw that they couldn't recover their senses, except for Bibi Dong, who let out an exclamation while looking at Qilin standing suspended in the sky. When did this little guy, Qilin, acquire such strength? However, surprise aside, Bibi Dong did not immediately greet Qilin. Meanwhile, on the other side of Spirit City, Sword Duluo's eyes flashed as he looked in the direction of Spirit Hall. What terrifying sword intent! I didn't expect there to be such a master of the sword in this world. Sword Duluo muttered to himself, strong battle intent erupting in his eyes. Nearby, Ning Fengji also sensed the terrifying spirit power fluctuations coming from the direction of Duluo Hall, and his expression tightened. Which expert is it, actually causing such a scene at Spirit Hall? Uncle Sword, can you tell his origin? Sword Duluo shook his head and said, I cannot tell. I only know that the person who attacked should be a master of the sword, and his opponent is the high priest of Spirit Hall. What? Ning Fengji exclaimed, I didn't expect that in this day and age, apart from the long-missing Tang Chen, there's still an expert capable of fighting the high priest of Spirit Hall. Sword Duluo shook his head and smiled. Titled Duluo experts have long lifespans, there must be some reclusive old freaks on the continent. Perhaps this sword-wielding senior is one of them. Ning Fengji nodded upon hearing this. Then, he asked curiously, such an expert, I wonder who is stronger, him or the high priest of Spirit Hall. Sword Duluo pondered for a moment and then said, although I didn't watch the battle on the scene, the two clashed and separated instantly, clearly, that sword-wielding senior has the upper hand. Upon hearing this, a look of longing appeared on Ning Fengji's face. Sigh, if one day my 7 treasure glazed tile school could also produce such an expert, I would be content even if I were to die immediately. Sword Duluo smiled. Fengji, have you forgotten about the child, Rongrong? With her current talent, it is not impossible for her to reach the level of the high priest of Spirit Hall in this sword-wielding senior. Ning Fengji was slightly stunned, then smiled, that is true. I only thought about Rongrong evolving her pagoda to the 8 treasure glazed tile one day, but I didn't expect that just by running away from home once, she would have such changes. Sword Duluo was equally filled with emotion. Above Duluo Hall, the group of Spirit Hall elders and high priests who had rushed over were defeated by a youth, and thinking Qilin was an enemy, they immediately acted as if facing a great threat. The leading gold crocodile Duluo instantly manifested his spirit and looked at Qilin with a solemn expression. Who are you, your excellency? Why did you trespass into our Spirit Hall and fight with our high priest? Qilin's gaze swept over the group, pausing on Bibi Dong for an extra second, then he smiled faintly. I have no intention of being your enemy. I only came here today to challenge the experts of Spirit Hall. Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other experts breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. It was good that he wasn't an enemy of Spirit Hall. After all, even the strongest person in Spirit Hall, the high priest, was no match for this mysterious person, let alone them. At this moment, Qian Dalyu had also steadied himself and flew over from the distance. His appearance was quite disheveled, his aura was weak, his hair was messy, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, his eyes filled with shock. He looked at Qilin with suspicion and shock, not understanding how the latter, at such a young age, could have such terrifying strength. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration crossed his mind. Could it be, has Qilin already started the divine trial? A year ago, the clan chief of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, clan head Yu Yuanjun, was killed by a mysterious limit Duluo. At that time, he suspected that the expert was in existence like himself, a spokesperson for some deity, responsible for guiding the way for the deity. Now it seemed that his guess was likely correct. Moreover, if the divine trial for the god position that Qilin inherited had already begun, that would explain why his strength had advanced by leaps and bounds in just 1 year. This must be due to the rewards of the divine trial. Otherwise, it would be impossible for any spirit master in the world to jump from a spirit king to a spirit Duluo in 1 year, and even he, a limit Duluo, was no match for him. Your strength is truly beyond my expectations. If you hadn't held back just now, I fear I would already be dead. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was even more horrified. Such a thing actually happened. Qilin waved his hand and said, I only came to challenge you, not to kill. Saying this, he casually pointed at 4 people. You few, come and fight me as well. Gold Crocodile Duluo, Qingluan Duluo, Lion Duluo, and Huangling Duluo pointed at themselves. Fight you, us. Come on, buddy, you can defeat the high priest in 1 move, what are you going to fight us for? Qian Dalyu suddenly realized and thought to himself, it seems this is the content of Qilin's divine trial. He looked at the 4 and said, Second elder, you all listen to Qilin and spar with him. Don't worry, you won't die. Chapter 204, Defeating the 4 high priests again, 3rd divine trial completed. Gold Crocodile Duluo, Qingluan Duluo, and the other 2 heard this, their faces revealing stiff smiles, but they still replied, since young friend has this interest, we are naturally willing to accompany you. Qilin waved at the 4 of them and smiled slightly, then you should all attack together, otherwise you won't be my match. The 4 listened, exchanged glances, and then nodded without hesitation, then young friend, be careful. At this moment, they dared not show the slightest hesitation. After all, the youth before them was a terrifying expert capable of defeating the high priest with a single sword strike. The next second, the 4 of them released their spirits one after another. Spirit rings spiraled up from beneath their feet, except for Gold Crocodile Duluo, the other 3 possess the best spirit ring configurations currently on the continent. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black, and among Gold Crocodile Duluo's spirit rings, the 9th spirit ring had even reached 100,000 years. Furthermore, to show respect for Qilin, the 4 of them all activated their martial soul avatar. Gold Crocodile Duluo transformed into a giant golden crocodile, his form resembling a golden mountain. Qingluan Duluo transformed into a giant cyan bird with magnificent wings. There was also a majestic lion resembling a mountain, and a brilliant golden divine bow. After the 4 activated their martial soul avatar, a terrifying aura spread from their bodies, causing the entire spirit hall to tremble. Subsequently, the 4 simultaneously unleashed their strongest spirit abilities, attacking Qilin together. The giant crocodile with its maw wide open, the Qingluan crashing forward like a cyan meteor, a lion's paw that blotted out the sky, and a golden arrow streaking like a meteor chasing the moon. Every attack caused the titled Duluo of Spirit Hall, excluding Bibi Dong and Qian Dalyu, to feel an immense sense of oppression. Everyone's gaze was fixed intently on Qilin. Could he withstand such a terrifying offensive? Although Qilin had just defeated Qian Dalyu with a single sword strike, what if he wasn't skilled at defense? Just like Sword Duluo and Bone Duluo of the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School, the two were offense and defense respectively, each with their own strengths. However, within their sight, Qilin waved his hand casually, and a golden barrier immediately enveloped him. You must know that Qilin currently had not only a 10-fold spirit power buff stacked on him, but also a 10-fold defense buff. Besides that, even if this defense were broken, he still had the passive effect of his second spirit ability, Sacred Protection. But unfortunately, even though the four were all titled Duluo above level 95, and Gold Crocodile Duluo was even a level 98 titled Duluo, they still failed to break his defense, merely causing a few ripples like waves to appear on the golden shield around Qilin. Seeing this, the eyes of Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other three constricted sharply. Unexpectedly, their full-strength attacks couldn't even break Qilin's defense. Is this really still a human? Qilin looked at the four and smiled slightly. Since you are done attacking, it should be my turn. Rest assured, I am very measured in my attacks. Before the words faded, the expressions of Gold Crocodile Duluo and the others tightened, their figures instantly retreating 100 jong, their entire bodies falling into a defensive state. However, their speed was fast, but Qilin was faster. His figure was like a golden phantom. He took a step forward and instantly appeared behind Huangling Duluo, the weakest among the four, who was completely unaware of it. Among those present, only Bibi Dong and Qian Dalyu barely managed to see Qilin's figure. Both of their expressions turned stern. What terrifying speed! Then, they saw Qilin lightly push out a palm. Boom! Guangling Duluo instantly spat out a mist of blood, his body flying forward like a cannonball for several hundred jong, instantly falling out of his martial soul avatar state, and his aura plummeting. The first one, before Guangling Duluo could stabilize his figure, time seemed to freeze, and Qilin appeared again above the mountain like martial soul avatar of Lion Duluo. Qilin raised his hand, a ball of golden spirit power condensed in his palm, and then he struck downwards. A golden palm print immediately shot out from his palm, crashing onto the lion that resembled a small mountain. Boom! With an earth-shattering explosion echoing in midair, the lion's body immediately fell from the sky, kicking up a sky full of dust with a crash. The second one, Qingluan Duluo had already reacted, the expression on his face changing. The next one would be him. Although he excelled in speed, he knew clearly that his speed could not be faster than Qilin's. Qingluan Duluo gritted his teeth, his gaze fixed on the direction where Qilin currently was, and he charged at Qilin like a meteor. Even knowing he would lose, he could not sit and wait for death. Gold Crocodile Duluo held the same thought, also bursting forward, his massive body instantly blocking the light in front. Seeing this, Qilin nodded, first looking at Qingluan Duluo and pointing a finger casually. A giant golden finger shot out from Qilin's right index finger, colliding with Qingluan Duluo. Without any surprise, his martial soul avatar was broken by the giant finger, and his body flew backward. On the other side, seeing Gold Crocodile Duluo's attack about to land on Qilin, Qilin had already freed his hand and threw a punch toward Gold Crocodile Duluo. A roaring sound echoed in the air. At this moment, Gold Crocodile Duluo truly and tangibly felt the terrifying power of Qilin. Although he was a level 98 Super Duluo, and his spirit was a top-tier beast spirit with extremely strong defense, and he had already activated his martial soul avatar in Spirit Bone. But under this punch from Qilin, it was still not enough. It seemed he hadn't flown backward like the other three, but the surface of his body was covered in cracks like broken porcelain. Lost. Gold Crocodile's body paused in the sky for a moment before falling from midair. The whole scene was shocked. They knew Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other three were not Qilin's match, but they never expected them to lose so cleanly and decisively. And at the very moment Qilin defeated Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other three, Qilin felt something in his heart. Third Divine Trial, completed. Obtained 1 God-bestowed Spirit Ring, 5% life affinity. When Qilin wanted to absorb the God-bestowed Spirit Ring, he only needed to move his mind to summon and absorb it directly. Besides that, with the third Life God Trial completed, Qilin could continue to fleece the Goddess of Life. Although the Spirit Rings for the 4-leaf clover martial soul were already full, there was still the profound Ice Qilin martial soul. Just as Qilin completed the third trial, the gentle voice of the Goddess of Life suddenly resounded in his mind. Life God Trial 4th Trial. Reach level 95 titled Duluo before the age of 25. Completing the trial will grant 5% life affinity and 1 God-bestowed Spirit Ring. Obviously, with the strength of the Goddess of Life, she could sense that Qilin possessed 2 spirits, so the rewards for him were also the most suitable. After all, Qilin's body could already withstand a million-year Spirit Ring. Finding Spirit Beasts suitable to serve as his Spirit Rings was extremely rare. Chapter 205. Life God Trial, 4th Trial. Yu Shaogang meets Bibi Dong again. On the other side, seeing Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other three defeated, Qian Dalyu immediately told the other Spirit Hall experts who had arrived, quickly go and call a healing-type Spirit Master to treat the 4 consecrated. Although Qilin had shown mercy and Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other 3 had not died, their injuries were far more severe than Qian Dalyu's. Especially Gold Crocodile Duluo, who was in a wretched state, his body looked like porcelain covered in cracks, his aura was withered, and he appeared extremely miserable. A titled Duluo from Spirit Hall heard this and immediately said, I will go and bring Grandmaster Xian here. Grandmaster Xian was a healing-type Spirit Duluo of Spirit Hall. She had not appeared in the original story, but she was the support soul master with the highest spirit power rank under Qilin. However, before this titled Duluo from Spirit Hall could move, he was stopped by Qilin. No need for such trouble. Qilin waved his hand, and then the yellowish-brown spirit ring on his body suddenly flashed. 8th Spirit Ability, Shenong Immortality. Then, 5 streaks of yellowish-brown light shot out from Qilin and landed on Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other 3, as well as on Qian Dalyu. Just as everyone was confused, Gold Crocodile Duluo and the other 3 suddenly swept away the declining momentum they had been exuding, their faces filled with astonishment. The injuries on my body have actually healed. Gold Crocodile Duluo spread his hands in shock, carefully examining the changes in his body. You must know, although he recognized Qian Dalyu as his eldest brother, both in terms of seniority and age, he was actually older than Qian Dalyu. In his early years, because he often fought fiercely with others, he had left behind many hidden injuries on his body. These injuries did not show under his powerful spirit power, but they truly existed within his body, like maggots attached to bones, difficult to remove. But now, with a casual spirit ability from Qilin, the injuries on his body and those hidden injuries that were like maggots attached to bones, had actually all recovered. There was such a heaven-defying healing spirit ability in this world. I am afraid that even the current head of the 9-star Begonia family would not have this kind of healing ability, right? The other 4, including Qian Daoliu, had the same thoughts. Only then did they remember that Qilin's main profession was an auxiliary system spirit master. Bibi Dong watched Qilin display his divine might, a smile appearing on her face, while a sense of pride grew in her heart. Has this little guy already become this powerful? I still remember when I first saw him, he was just a little spirit master of rank 10 something. Now, in just a few short years, he has grown to a point where even I need to look up to him. Compared to this little guy, Yu Xiaogang is simply. At the mere thought of Yu Xiaogang, a flash of disgust could not help but cross Bibi Dong's eyes. How did I ever like him in the past? On the other side, Gold Crocodile Duluo flew in front of Qilin and bowed his hands. Gold Crocodile thanks the little friend. Qilin waved his hand and then said, it was just a small effort, and besides, if I hadn't challenged you all, you wouldn't have been injured. Gold Crocodile hurriedly said, it is not just the injuries received just now, that spirit ability of yours just now even healed the hidden injuries I had left behind many years ago. Great kindness cannot be repaid with words, I owe the little friend a favor. In the future, even if it is climbing a mountain of blades or descending into a sea of fire, I will not hesitate. The others were shocked to hear this, not expecting that Qilin's spirit ability also had the function of healing hidden injuries. Except for Gold Crocodile Duluo, Qingluan, Lion, and Light Feather Duluo all bowed their hands, expressing their feelings of inferiority to Qilin. At this time, Qian Daoliu looked at the ordinary spirit hall elders and waved his hand. Alright, you all disperse. When the others heard this, although they really wanted to befriend Qilin, they could only disperse. Bibi Dong took a deep look at Qilin and also turned to leave. Anyway, Qilin had already arrived in Spirit City, she could just go and find Qilin alone when there was no one else. Speaking of which, after not seeing him for a year, she felt that she missed this little guy, Qilin, more and more. After Bibi Dong left, Qian Daoliu also dispersed the other consecrated, then waved to Qilin and said, little friend, let's go somewhere else to talk. In Qian Daoliu's view, Qilin could be said to be his predetermined grandson-in-law, and now was a good opportunity to get to know him well. Seeing this, Qilin did not refuse and walked into Duluo Hall with him. On the other side, as soon as Bibi Dong returned to the Supreme Pontiff Palace, she heard a knight wearing armor walk in and report, Your Eminence the Supreme Pontiff, just now a person who claimed to be Yu Xiaogang, holding an elder token, wanted to see you. Yu Xiaogang, wasn't he imprisoned by the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan within the family? How was he let out, and what is he coming to Spirit Hall to find me for? Hearing this name again, Bibi Dong's beautiful eyebrows furrowed. Although she had long since lost any feelings for Yu Xiaogang, and could even be said to despise and loathe him. But on second thought, since he wanted to see her, she would give him this opportunity to see what kind of tricks he wanted to play. Bibi Dong's thoughts raced, and then her voice said softly, let him in. The knight heard this and bowed to show respect to the Supreme Pontiff, then turned and exited the Great Hall. Before long, the knight walked into another side hall, looked at the ordinary-looking, flat-headed, thick-lipped middle-aged man in front of him, and said indifferently, the Supreme Pontiff has granted your request for an audience, follow me. Yu Xiaogang heard this, and the corners of his mouth suddenly curved upward. Sure enough, just as he expected, Bibi Dong still remembered their relationship. It seems that as long as he plays the sob story card, it should not be difficult to get the method to resolve the conflict of his twin spirits. Thinking of this, Yu Xiaogang couldn't help but puff out his chest and lift his head, not forgetting to tidy his robes, one hand behind his back, trying his best to express a melancholy and wise expression on his face. He knew that Bibi Dong fell for this act of his. The knight looked at Yu Xiaogang, who suddenly seemed like a different person, a flash of astonishment in his eyes, but he still fulfilled his duty and brought Yu Xiaogang to the meeting hall of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Your Eminence the Supreme Pontiff, the person has been brought. After the knight brought Yu Xiaogang, he bowed to Bibi Dong again. Bibi Dong said gently, all right, you may go down first. Yes, Your Eminence the Supreme Pontiff. After the knight left, the great hall of the meeting chamber suddenly fell into an eerie silence. Yu Xiaogang maintained the expression he had deliberately put on, and Bibi Dong looked at him with a flat gaze, also seeing the deliberateness he was maintaining on his face, and could not help but sneer in her heart. This Yu Xiaogang, as expected, only knows how to use these crooked ways. I'm afraid he also used these means to attract my attention back then. I only hate that I was blind back then and did not see through his true face. Thinking of this, a flash of coldness appeared on Bibi Dong's face, and she said coldly, what are you doing here? Yu Xiaogang did not immediately pick up Bibi Dong's words, but instead said in a tone filled with emotion and bitterness, it has been several years since we last parted. How have you been all these years? Hearing Yu Xiaogang's hypocritical words, Bibi Dong's eyes became increasingly disgusted. What does it have to do with you? From the moment you stopped me from killing Tang San, I had already severed all ties with you. Yu Xiaogang's face stiffened when he heard this. That's not right, why is this different from the script he had expected? Chapter 206, Yu Xiaogang's miscalculation, imprisoned. Yu Xiaogang was stunned for only a moment before quickly adjusting his emotions. He kept in mind the purpose of his visit to Bibi Dong this time. Yu Xiaogang's gaze lingered on Bibi Dong for a second. The expression on her noble and elegant face was incomparably calm, making it impossible for him, who prided himself on possessing world-shaking wisdom, to guess her inner thoughts. However, it didn't matter. In Yu Xiaogang's view, this was merely Bibi Dong playing hard to get. Bibi Dong must still have him in her heart. Yu Xiaogang had always been confident. Back then, it was precisely this confidence and wisdom rooted in his bones that had captured the hearts of Bibi Dong and Luo Long. Although Luo Long had changed her heart towards him, Bibi Dong absolutely would not. Yu Xiaogang firmly believed in his judgment. He sighed, a flicker of deep affection flashing in his eyes. Although his feigned expression of deep affection, combined with his plain and unremarkable appearance, made people feel somewhat nauseated, he was completely oblivious to this. Bibi Dong, I know the bitterness in your heart all these years, and I know even better that you are still blaming me for taking Little San as my disciple. But setting aside the facts, in all fairness, are you completely without fault? You should know my ambition. Although my innate spirit power is only half a level, I have always believed that there are no trash spirits, only trash spirit masters. Therefore, I will definitely train a disciple who is #1 in the world to prove to everyone that I, Yu Xiaogang, am not trash. And Little San is precisely the best candidate. I took him as my disciple, and our relationship is like father and son. Yu Xiaogang murmured to himself, becoming more spirited as he continued. Especially when he spoke of training a disciple who was #1 in the world, his face was filled with high spirits. At this moment, he felt as if he had returned to his youth, filled with grand aspirations. In fact, it was precisely this trick that had successfully attracted Bibi Dong and Luo Long. If one ignored his strength and only listened to his words, it was indeed very infectious. He was good material for running a pyramid scheme. But unfortunately, the current BB Dong was not only no longer the naive young girl from back then, but her mind, which had been polluted by the Rakshasa god legacy, had also returned to normal. Therefore, looking at Yu Xiaogang through her current eyes, the latter was like a monkey struggling to perform, full of flaws, and his acting was incredibly clumsy. BB Dong interrupted Yu Xiaogang's impassioned speech and sneered, "Enough, state the purpose of your visit today." Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang's eyes immediately lit up. The opportunity had arrived. His heart stirred, and he maintained a look of deep affection on his face, continuing his performance. "BB Dong, you know that my disciple Tang San possesses twin spirits, however." A look of pain appeared on Yu Xiaogang's face, and he looked at BB Dong with a hint of pleading in his expression, sighing, "There is a conflict between twin spirits, and as far as I know, in the last 100 years, including Little San, only 3 twin spirits possessors have appeared on the continent. Except for Little San, the first twin spirits possessor was unable to handle the problem of spirit conflict, which led to them exploding and dying while absorbing a spirit ring, and the second twin spirits possessor is none other than you. BB Dong, you know that I, Yu Xiaogang, have no children in my life. To me, Little San is like my own son. I cannot just watch him follow the same old path as other spirit masters, nor can I watch him explode and die, so. BB Dong, I beg you to tell me, what exactly is the method to resolve the conflict between twin spirits?" At this moment, Yu Xiaogang showed his true colors, his gaze burning. BB Dong, upon hearing this, gave a cold sneer. So that was why Yu Xiaogang had come. Back when she went to Nine Academy, the reason she didn't kill Tang San, besides for the sake of Yu Xiaogang's face, was that she felt Tang San was very likely to explode and die due to spirit conflict. However, she did not expect that Yu Xiaogang would actually come to Spirit Hall in person to beg her for Tang San's sake. Not killing Tang San back then had already been a huge favor to him. Where did Yu Xiaogang get the nerve to think she would tell him such critical information? Thinking of this, the coldness in BB Dong's eyes turned bone-chilling. One must know, she was no longer that BB Dong from the past. She said coldly, "Yu Xiaogang, your shamelessness is truly shocking. Knowing clearly that Tang San is Tang Hao's son, and is an enemy of my Spirit Hall, you still want me to tell you the method to resolve the conflict between twin spirits. What, do you want me to aid the enemy, and then have him come back to seek revenge on me later?" Upon hearing this, the expression on Yu Xiaogang's face changed slightly. Oh no, BB Dong doesn't want to tell him the method to resolve the spirit conflict. How could this be? Yu Xiaogang's face darkened, and he said in a deep voice, "BB Dong, I have long since sworn an oath that I will never let Little San seek revenge on you in Spirit Hall. Why can't you believe me? Do you really have no regard for the affection of the past at all?" BB Dong glanced at him indifferently and sneered, "Affection? Does someone as selfish as you have any room for affection in your eyes?" Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang's expression changed, and a look of disbelief flashed in the depths of his eyes. Even if he were any more foolish, he could see the problem now. BB Dong seemed to really no longer be the BB Dong from before. The current she had absolutely no emotion for him in her eyes, only coldness. But in that case, how could he obtain the method to resolve the spirit conflict from her? Without the method to resolve the spirit conflict, how could Little San reach the peak of the continent? No, absolutely not. BB Dong, look into my eyes. I don't believe that the current you is truly so heartless and cold, not caring at all about our past friendship. Little San will never go against Spirit Hall, why won't you believe me this once? Yu Xiaogang was determined to obtain the method to resolve the spirit conflict from BB Dong, and at the same time, he did not believe that BB Dong had no feelings left for him in her heart. So he stood up and reached for BB Dong's shoulder, attempting to awaken the feelings she had for him in her heart. However, before his hand could touch BB Dong's shoulder, a cold glint flashed in her eyes. The next second, a powerful burst of spirit power landed on Yu Xiaogang like a heavy hammer, and with a bang, he was smashed away like a kite with a broken string, blood spraying in midair. BB Dong's cold and indifferent voice then echoed through the great hall. "Presumptuous, what kind of thing are you, daring to attempt disrespect towards me? Someone, come here." Upon her order, 2 rows of armored knights immediately rushed in from outside the great hall. BB Dong's phoenix eyes were filled with malice. She glanced at the half-dead Yu Xiaogang and said indifferently, "Take down this madman who is impersonating an elder and colluding with a Spirit Hall fugitive, and throw him into the Spirit Hall Black Prison." Yes, 2 rows of knights responded in unison. Before they dragged the half-dead Yu Xiaogang away, BB Dong suddenly spoke. "Right, he has one more crime. Attempting to show disrespect to the Supreme Pontiff, a crime that cannot be pardoned." Upon hearing this, the knights glared angrily at Yu Xiaogang. This person actually dared to show disrespect to the Supreme Pontiff, he truly deserved to die. They must let those wicked people in the Black Prison take good care of him. Chapter 207, Unlocking the Imprisoned, Anal Xiaogang, form. BB Dong witnessed Yu Xiaogang being taken away, and after a moment of contemplation, she called another person in. Yu Xiaogang had originally been imprisoned in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, but now he had not only suddenly escaped but had also come to her seeking a solution for spirit conflict. This was likely related to Tang Hao and his son, and perhaps the father-son duo had even infiltrated Spirit City. Therefore, BB Dong gave instructions to another person, ordering him to extract the whereabouts of Tang Hao and his son from Yu Xiaogang. Not long after, Yu Xiaogang, having just entered the Black Prison, was subjected to 18 kinds of torture. At first, he was tough, but unfortunately, after experiencing only 3 tortures, he immediately spilled the location of Tang Hao and his son like popping beans. After learning the whereabouts of Tang Hao and his son from Yu Xiaogang, the torturer immediately notified BB Dong with the fastest speed. Upon receiving the information, BB Dong did not immediately send people to capture Tang Hao. After all, Spirit City was densely populated. If they were to take action within the city and corner Tang Hao, his desperate retaliation would surely be a catastrophe for Spirit City, causing countless people to die. Therefore, BB Dong did not rush to act, but instead ordered people to secretly monitor the area where Tang Hao was located. As for Yu Xiaogang, after suffering the torture, he was thrown back into the Black Prison. The Black Prison of Spirit Hall held a group of heinous criminals who were locked in dark, sunless cells and subjected to constant torment. If they could build a good relationship with the prison guards, their prison life could be much more comfortable. The knight who had just delivered Yu Xiaogang specifically greeted the Black Prison guards, and upon hearing that Yu Xiaogang had dared to show disrespect to the Supreme Pontiff, the guards immediately patted their chests and guaranteed they would take good care of Yu Xiaogang. For these Black Prison guards, if they wanted to target any prisoner, they only needed to open their mouths, and countless inmates would do it for them just to curry favor. Thus, Yu Xiaogang, who had managed to escape the torture by selling out his teammates, was about to suffer a new round of torment as soon as he was brought back to the Black Prison. How miserable it was. In the Black Prison, Yu Xiaogang was driven back to the Black Prison, limping. The moment he thought about how the location of Tang Hao and his son had been exposed, his heart was filled with regret. He really did not want to expose the location of Tang Hao and Little San, but those animals in Spirit Hall were just too good at torturing people. If it were a clean and swift death, Yu Xiaogang felt he could have endured it, but when those whips soaked in chilly water lashed against his body, he could not die even if he wanted to, and every time he was about to die, he would be saved by a healing-type spirit master nearby. This continuous pain eventually destroyed Yu Xiaogang's psychological defenses, leaving him no choice but to sell out Tang Hao. After selling out his teammates and finding himself safe, Yu Xiaogang finally regretted his previous actions, his feelings appearing extremely complicated. It did not matter if Tang Hao died, but what if Little San also died? It had to be said that cultivating Tang San into the #1 in the continent to prove that he was not trash had become Yu Xiaogang's obsession. But as things stood, he could only pray that Tang Hao and Tang San could escape alive. Before Yu Xiaogang finished his prayer, he was pushed into the black prison cell by the guard behind him, his figure staggering. Yu Xiaogang frowned and cursed, but when he steadied himself and looked forward, he saw malicious gazes cast from all directions in the cell, and some people even started rubbing their hands together. Gulp. Upon seeing this, Yu Xiaogang could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. What did they want to do? Yu Xiaogang's heart tightened, and at this moment, he suddenly heard chaotic discussions coming from the front. Is he the Yu Xiaogang that the big shots ordered us to take good care of? I did not expect that. Although he is ugly, his skin is actually quite fair. Brothers, what do you think? Does that even need asking? Of course, we should take good care of him, tilde. Come to think of it, since being locked in this damn place, I have not touched a woman for 10 years. This guy looks tender and delicate, he should be able to take it well. You brats, all of you get in line for me, I want to go first. A dark-skinned, bald giant, over 2 meters tall and massive, walked out from the crowd like an iron tower, and with every step he took, the ground seemed to tremble. Although everyone who entered the black prison would have their Dandian spirit power crippled, the physique of a powerful spirit master remained strong. Even if their spirit power was crippled, their physique remained robust. The bald giant in front of him had a violent bear spirit, which had made his physique tall and strong since he was young. He walked up to Yu Xiaogang, looked down at his thin and weak body, and grinned. Seeing himself enveloped in a shadow, Yu Xiaogang felt a strong sense of unease rise in his heart. You, what do you want to do? I warn you, don't mess around. I am the son of the former clan chief of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, and also an honorary elder of Spirit Hall. If you dare to touch a hair on my head, I will never let you off after I get out. The bald giant could not help but burst into laughter upon hearing Yu Xiaogang's warning. Even the other prisoners were the same, laughing until they were out of breath. Ha ha ha, it is one thing to say your father was the previous clan chief of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, but you actually claim to be an honorary elder of Spirit Hall. Which elder of Spirit Hall would look like a pathetic wimp like you? Haha, exactly, if you are an honorary elder of Spirit Hall, then I am a consecrated elder of Spirit Hall. Amidst the wanton laughter, Yu Xiaogang's face was extremely ugly, while the bald giant looked at him playfully and grinned, saying, it seems no one believes your words. How about it, do you have anything else to say? If not, I am going to take action. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang looked at the powerful oppressive force radiating from the bald giant, his face pale and his voice trembling. I warn you, don't mess around. My disciple's father is the legendary Hoshin. Before he could finish, Yu Xiaogang was picked up by the bald giant like a little chick and carried onto his shoulder, laughing loudly. I do not care who your disciple's father is, no one can save your chrysanthemum today. After speaking, the bald giant slapped his buttocks with his palm leaf-sized hand and walked into the depths of the prison amidst the jeers of the surrounding prisoners. No matter how Yu Xiaogang resisted, it was to no avail. After a while, Yu Xiaogang's shrill screams emanated from the prison. That sound was truly heartbreaking to hear and tear-inducing to listen to. Chrysanthemum ruined, wounds all over the ground. Outside the prison, the black prison guards listened to this sound, clicked their tongues and shook their heads, thinking, why did you have to be disrespectful to the Supreme Pontiff? Now you're enjoying it, aren't you? Thinking of Yu Xiaogang's encounter in the prison, even the black prison guards could not help but get goosebumps all over their bodies. Chapter 208, Tang Hao's Calculation, 2 Polarity Static Domain. Spirit City, Chungfeng Hotel. Tang Hao sat in one of the rooms, waiting for the return of Yu Xiaogang. Tang San, on the other hand, was at the Tianqi Hotel, 1 kilometer away from Chungfeng Hotel. As for the reason, it was naturally because of the idiom, a wily rabbit has 3 burrows. After all, Spirit City was the base camp of Spirit Hall. If an accident occurred, Tang San would very likely become a burden to Tang Hao. After all, even now, Tang Hao was still a major wanted criminal of Spirit Hall. Once any anomaly was detected, attracting a capture operation from Spirit Hall, he would be able to escape more easily alone. Tang San was very clear that the relationship between himself and his father was rarely known by others, so separating from his father was actually the safest option. If he stayed with his father, he would instead become a burden at a critical moment. After all, there were many experts in Spirit City, and there was no lack of titled Duluo level experts. Of course, Tang San did not think his father's identity would definitely be exposed, nor did he think his teacher would betray him, he was only being this cautious just in case. But as time passed, both Tang San here and Tang Hao inside Chungfeng Hotel faintly began to feel that something was wrong. Especially Tang Hao, although his rank of spirit power had fallen to the 80s, his titled Duluo level mental force had not fallen. Therefore, when titled Duluo of Spirit Hall appeared around the hotel, he had already sensed their presence. If not for the latter having some misgivings, they would likely have already made a move to capture him. At this moment, the expression on his face was incredibly gloomy because he could feel that there was more than one titled Duluo of Spirit Hall locking onto him from all around. Among them were even 2 of his old acquaintances. A chrysanthemum, a little ghost. They really think highly of me. Thinking of this, Tang Hao's eyes became extremely gloomy. He now had only one thought in his mind, that he and Little San had been sold out by that bastard Yu Xiaogang. As for the reason why Yu Xiaogang betrayed the 2 of them, whether by coercion or inducement, Tang Hao did not care. Right now, he just wanted to hammer that bastard Yu Xiaogang to death. Of course, the most important thing right now was to first find a way to escape from here. At this moment, Tang Hao couldn't help but feel fortunate. Fortunately, Little San was not by his side, otherwise, the 2 of them would absolutely not be able to escape from here today. If it were only him alone, he might still be able to gamble one more time. As long as those elders of Spirit Hall did not make a move, and Bibi Gong did not make a move, he might still have a glimmer of survival. Most importantly, this was Spirit City, and the people of Spirit Hall dared not make a move here, so this gave him a lot of room to maneuver. The only strategy now was to make a huge scene, only then would it be possible to obtain a glimmer of survival. Thinking of this, a flash of ruthlessness crossed Tang Hao's eyes, and the aura on his body climbed step by step. In an instant, he had already devised a rough strategy in his mind. To deal with him, Spirit Hall had dispatched a total of 5 titled Duluo, including Chrysanthemum and Ghost, those 2 ranked 95 titled Duluo. If he clashed head-on, given his current state, he feared he would be blasted into scum within 3 rounds. Therefore, once he made a move, he could only attack where they must defend, feint to the east while attacking in the west, and then escape amidst the chaos. Thinking of this, a sharp glint flashed in Tang Hao's eyes, and 8 spirit rings spiraled up from beneath his feet. Due to his severed arm, his first spirit ring had also dissipated. Although this had a huge impact on his strength, with his power, it was still enough to rival an ordinary titled Duluo. Outside Chungfeng Hotel, the 5 titled Duluo, including Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo, felt Tang Hao's rapidly soaring aura, and the expressions on their faces changed slightly. As expected of Tang Hao, we had only just approached, and he had already discovered our presence. However, looking at his posture, could it be that he intends to make a move here in Spirit City? It is also possible that Tang Hao is certain we dare not start a major fight in Spirit City, so he wants to escape amidst the chaos. However, with this, he who is bringing someone along cannot escape from our grasp. After all, I heard from His Excellency the Supreme Pontiff that his son is also by his side, he surely cannot disregard his own son's safety, right? That makes sense. While the several titled Duluo of Spirit Hall were discussing, they saw a tall and burly figure with a severed arm shoot up into the sky from Chungfeng Hotel, holding a clear sky hammer the size of a small hill, his entire body emitting an extremely violent aura. 7th Spirit Ability, Clear Sky Avatar. Seeing this, the pupils of the 5 from Spirit Hall instantly constricted. This is Tang Hao. How did he fall into such a state now? He is blind in one eye and has a severed arm. This is far too miserable. Who could have imagined that the once clear sky Duluo would be so desolate today? But immediately after, there was more wild joy in everyone's hearts. Given Tang Hao's current state, wouldn't it be an easy task for them to take him down? Spirit Hall, do you really think that by sending a few pieces of trash, you can keep me, Tang Hao? Ha 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 ha. The arrogant laughter, like the tolling of a great bell, spread across the sky above Spirit City. At this moment, in the streets and alleys of Spirit City, countless people gathered their gazes here, their expressions full of shock. 1 kilometer away, Tang San walked out of the Tianqi Hotel, staring blankly at Tang Hao, who was holding the mountain-like heavy hammer high in the sky. This was the first time he had seen the clear sky hammer in such a form, and he only felt that it seemed to contain an incomparably tyrannical power. In the sky, Tang Hao's gaze was like lightning. Today, he would make the gazes of everyone in Spirit City gather here, he would let everyone know just how terrifying the final profound truth of the clear sky sect was. Before the 5 titled Duluo of Spirit Hall could make a move, the Tang Hao who had shot into the sky performed a scene that shocked everyone. He saw the 100,000-year blue-silver Emperor spirit ring on Tang Hao's body, which was flickering with blood-red light, suddenly shatter into pieces. Great Sumeru Hammer final profound truth, ring explosion. And Tang Hao had directly chosen to detonate a 100,000-year spirit ring. On the Spirit Hall side, Chrysanthemum and Ghost Duluo, along with the other 3 white-haired elders, all unleashed their spirits and stood ready, with only one thought remaining in their minds. Was Tang Hao crazy? He actually dared to make a move in such a densely populated bustling city. Even the mission for Chrysanthemum and Ghost Duluo and the others was only to watch Tang Hao here, and only make a move against him after he left the city. Because when titled Duluo fought, the mere aftermath was enough to cause countless ordinary people to be shaken to death. After a brief moment of shock, Chrysanthemum Duluo instantly regained his senses, knowing that at this moment, only he and Ghost Duluo could stop Tang Hao, so he immediately bellowed. Old Ghost. Subsequently, a cluster of brilliant golden flames suddenly rose from his body. And amidst Chrysanthemum Duluo's roar, Ghost Duluo's reaction was not slow at all, a cluster of silver flames rose from within his body. Almost at the same time, the two stood facing each other, 4 hands clasped together, and their bodies suddenly fused together. And on their bodies, 18 spirit rings also fused together, finally transforming into a massive gold-and-silver ring of light. This was precisely the foundation upon which the two were able to establish themselves in Spirit Hall. Martial Soul Fusion Skill, 2 Polarity Static Domain. Chapter 209, Qian Dalyu takes action, Tang Hao finally goes offline. Although Tang Hao's combat power exploded after using Ring Explosion, he was, at the end of the day, just a Spirit Duluo. Although Chrysanthemum Duluo, Ghost Duluo, and the other 3 white-haired Duluo did not know who had injured Tang Hao to this extent, they had no choice but to first use the 2 Polarity Static Domain to restrain Tang Hao and then kill him if they wanted to avoid collateral damage to the ordinary people in Spirit City. However, although Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo had performed their Martial Soul Fusion skill at the first opportunity, it was a reactive move, and naturally, they were a step slower than Tang Hao. The other 3 white-haired elders reacted just as quickly, releasing their spirit ability at the first moment in an attempt to block Tang Hao's offensive. As long as they could block him for a moment, Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo would be able to use the 2 Polarity Static Domain to freeze Tang Hao. With Tang Hao's current strength, he would absolutely be unable to break the 2 Polarity Static Domain. It was just that in doing so, who knew how many ordinary spirit masters would die unjustly due to that moment of collision. However, just at this critical juncture, a handsome and upright figure suddenly flashed from afar and appeared beneath Tang Hao's giant hammer. The person who arrived was none other than Qian Dalyu. The moment Qian Dalyu appeared, Tang Hao's pupils constricted sharply, and only one thought remained in his mind. How did this old immortal get alarmed too? This is bad. Although he had escaped Qian Dalyu's pursuit several times, he had now fallen to the level of a spirit Duluo. How could he possibly escape from Qian Dalyu's hands again? Just as Tang Hao's thoughts raced, a brilliant golden radiance erupted from the top of Qian Dalyu's head, and as the light spilled down, it set him off as if he were a god. Qian Dalyu appeared to raise his hand slowly, but the surroundings seemed as if they had frozen. Even the clear sky hammer, which was like a mountain above his head, did not descend because of his slow hand movement. Qian Dalyu's palm faced upward, and the moment the golden light in his palm touched the clear sky hammer, the pressure, power, and spirit power on the clear sky hammer began to dissolve in a bizarre fashion. This was the dissolving power of the Seraphim spirit. Seeing this scene, Tang Hao could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Such terrifying pressure. Looking at Qian Dalyu in front of him, a layer of cold sweat had already broken out on his back. Back then, after he killed Qian Zunji, Qian Dalyu had hunted him down several times, but each time, he had only managed to beat him into a serious injury. The pressure Qian Dalyu had given him back then was nowhere near as terrifying as it was now. Could it be that his strength had advanced further over these years? But wasn't he already at level 99? Why could his strength still advance further? Watching Qian Dalyu block the strike from his detonated 100,000-year spirit ring without any effort, a monstrous wave had already risen in Tang Hao's heart. He knew that he was doomed today. Qian Dalyu blocked Tang Hao's great Sumeru hammer with one hand, making it look as if it were fixed in midair, unable to move even a fraction. As for the expression on Qian Dalyu's face, it was calm, showing neither joy nor anger. As for Chrysanthemum Duluo, Ghost Duluo, and the other 3 white-haired Duluo, they were pleasantly surprised. Great, the High Priest has actually taken action himself. It should be known that these priests in the Duluo Hall basically hadn't taken action in recent years because they didn't get along with the Supreme Pontiff. Just as they were rejoicing, Qian Daliu looked at Tang Hao and suddenly said, Tang Chen pushed the Clear Sky Hammer to a position that did not belong to it, such that the Clear Sky sect has birthed too many fools like you over the years, who actually arrogantly think that the Clear Sky Hammer can rival my Spirit Hall Seraphim Spirit. For the sake of Tang Chen's face, I have spared your life several times, but today you actually want to take action in Spirit City, how can I tolerate you? Qian Daliu and Tang Chen could be said to be both enemies and friends, cherishing each other. It was precisely because of this reason that even though Jian Zunji was indirectly killed by Tang Hao, he had still spared Tang Hao's life back then. But today, he would definitely kill Tang Hao. In Qian Daliu's eyes, even if Tang Hao had attacked the Duluo Hall, he would have at most severely injured him and driven him away. Because Qian Daliu knew that Tang Hao could not destroy the Duluo Hall right under his nose, and for the sake of an old friend, making some concessions was fine. But Tang Hao taking action in such a densely populated Spirit City clearly showed he did not care about the lives of the thousands of ordinary people here. What kind of evil spirit master behavior was this? However, Tang Hao's first reaction upon hearing Qian Daliu's words was, HMPH, nonsense. Grandfather once said that you were merely his defeated opponent on land. What qualifications do you have to say that my Clear Sky Hammer is inferior to your Seraphim Spirit? Qian Daliu sneered upon hearing this, not taking Tang Hao's words to heart. He was nothing more than an ignorant, arrogant clown. He only knew that he was not Tang Chen's match on land, but in the air, was Tang Chen his match. And if it weren't for his own lifelong pride, insisting on stubbornly receiving Tang Chen's Clear Sky Hammer head-on, even on land, Tang Chen might not necessarily have been his match. Thinking of that long-vanished old friend, Qian Daliu sighed softly, and then the killing intent in his eyes gradually intensified. Today, I shall, for Tang Chen, clean up the sect. Every word was pronounced clearly, and as the words fell, a blazing light suddenly bloomed from Qian Daliu's body, and his figure also disappeared from where he stood. When he appeared again, he was already standing behind Tang Hao. Although he was already 140 or 50 years old, his stature was actually taller and more upright than Tang Hao's. He slapped out with one palm, which landed fiercely on the top of Tang Hao's head. In an instant, golden light bloomed, and Tang Hao's pupils suddenly lost their final color. He died extremely peacefully. At this moment, Qian Daliu truly displayed the real strength of his level 99 limit Duluo. Perhaps at the last moment when Tang Hao lost consciousness, he finally realized. So, all this time, Qian Daliu had been holding back against him. Telling a joke, Qian Daliu could fight to a draw with Tang Chen, who also possessed the Clear Sky Hammer and also mastered the ring explosion technique, yet he couldn't kill Tang Hao, who had just broken through to level 90. Most importantly, Tang Hao actually believed it, truly thinking that Qian Daliu couldn't kill him because of his own powerful strength. On the other side, witnessing this scene, Tang San was struck by lightning. His father died. In an instant, Tang San's eyes were about to split, his eyes blood red, his breathing heavy like a bull, his face looking like an Asura demon filled with killing intent. If there was anyone he cared about most in this world, it was definitely his father. Although Tang Hao, this father, had been irresponsible to him since he was young, Tang San had lacked fatherly love in his previous life, so naturally, he revered him greatly. Spirit Hall. Tang San gritted his teeth as he muttered the 3 words Spirit Hall, his gaze venomous. You forced my mother to death, and now you have killed my father, you are destined for destruction. A flash of red light flickered in Tang San's eyes. For an evil organization like Spirit Hall, even if he used the spirit masters inside to cultivate, that would be considered eliminating harm for the people. Thinking of this, a flash of malice crossed Tang San's face, and then he carefully hid himself in the crowd. Chapter 210, First Meeting with Uliana, Bibi Dong's Differential Treatment. The commotion caused by Qian Daliu naturally attracted the attention of many powerful experts, especially after seeing the once unrivaled Clear Sky Duluo being killed so effortlessly by him, which left them in utter shock. Above a manor several miles away from the Chungfeng Hotel, Sword Duluo sighed incessantly. I never expected that the once famed Clear Sky Duluo would end in such a manner. Although separated by several miles, Sword Duluo still felt an intense sense of oppression from Qian Daliu. This made him even more curious about which senior of the Sword Path had been able to defeat Qian Daliu not long ago. If he could receive guidance from that senior, wouldn't his cultivation in the Sword Path be able to advance by leaps and bounds? Spirit Hall. On the way to the Supreme Pontiff Palace, although Qilin was not at the scene, he still perceived the scene of Tang Hao being easily killed by Qian Daliu as if he were watching a live broadcast. To be honest, he also didn't expect that Tang Hao would go offline just like that. How miserable, but this had nothing to do with him. Walking along, Qilin stroked his chin, thinking about his previous conversation with Qian Daliu. This guy asked about everything, just like conducting a survey. However, Qilin had guessed his intentions. Qian Daliu wanted him to be his granddaughter's husband. However, Qian Runshui hadn't revealed her identity to him yet, she just came to Heaven Do Academy with increasing frequency. Because as the Crown Prince of Heaven Do, she needed to represent the Heaven Do Empire royal family to win over him and this group of geniuses from the Heaven Do team. While lost in thought, Qilin had already arrived at the gate of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Since he had come to Spirit Hall, he naturally had to see Bibi Dong, but the 2 rows of guardian knights at the gate stopped him. Qilin immediately took out the Supreme Pontiff token that Bibi Dong had once given him and said, "Go report to the Supreme Pontiff and say that Qilin requests an audience." The moment the lead knight saw the token, his expression changed drastically, and he immediately bowed to Qilin. To see the Supreme Pontiff token is to see the Supreme Pontiff in person. Subsequently, the lead knight prepared to enter the palace to report. But before he could act, a voice suddenly sounded not far behind Qilin. You are Qilin. The one from Heaven Do Academy. The voice carried a hint of allure, and the moment the guardian knights saw the person, they immediately bowed again. Greetings, Holy Maiden, Your Highness. Hearing this title, Qilin turned around and immediately saw a tall figure. Juliana was wearing the Spirit Hall Spirit Master uniform dominated by gold and white. Her figure was graceful and curvaceous, and her appearance was equally beautiful, with a pair of fox eyes, her temperament alluring yet not vulgar. Qilin carefully sized up the person in front of him. Among the 3 lovesick fools of Spirit Hall, this was the first time he had seen Juliana. As for how Juliana knew him, Qilin was not curious, he guessed she had learned of him from Bibi Dong. That's right, Qilin nodded while looking at Juliana. When Qilin turned around, Juliana was stunned for a moment after seeing the immortal Master Qilin. People are visual creatures. Originally, Juliana had always heard her most respected teacher praise Qilin to the heavens, and she had long developed a rebellious psychology, feeling that while Qilin's talent was stronger than hers, how could it be so exaggerated? But now that she saw Qilin, the immortal master, in the flesh, Juliana suddenly felt that perhaps what her teacher said was not entirely unreasonable. No one knew that Juliana actually had a bit of a fixation on appearance in her heart. After just a moment, she quickly collected herself, a faint smile appearing on her face. I have heard teacher mention you. Now that I see you, you truly live up to your reputation. Qilin sensed the change in Juliana's tone before and after seeing him, and raised an eyebrow. This contrast was too great. One second it was a questioning tone, and the next second it turned into genuine recognition. However, Qilin still smiled and politely replied, you are also very good, one of the golden generation of Spirit Hall. Upon hearing this, a flash of joy crossed Juliana's eyes. You know me too. Qilin smiled and nodded. Of course, the Spirit Hall team is the greatest enemy of our Heaven Dome team. As the lead teacher, I naturally have to understand them in advance. This was a lie. In front of the Heaven Dome team, the Spirit Hall team was far from enough to be considered a threat. Not to mention the Heaven Dome team, they might not even be able to beat the Tianshui team. However, seeing that Qilin valued their Spirit Hall team so much, a look of joy appeared on Juliana's fair face, and then she happily said, we also treat Heaven Dome Academy as our greatest opponent. The two chatted and laughed for a few sentences, and then Juliana said, by the way, Your Excellency Qilin, I heard you are here to find teacher. Do you know her? Qilin smiled, that is natural. I knew the Supreme Pontiff when I first had my spirit awakening. At that time, she even invited me to join Spirit Hall and become her disciple, but I didn't want to be too far from home, so I refused. Juliana was enlightened, so that was it. A trace of regret rose in her heart, and she thought, it's a pity that Qilin didn't take teacher as his master back then, otherwise he would be my junior brother. While thinking, Juliana then said, Your Excellency Qilin, since that is the case, you should just come in with me. I also happen to be looking for teacher. Of course, Qilin smiled. Seeing this, the Guardian Knights immediately cleared the way for the two. After entering the main hall, Qilin and Juliana immediately saw Bibi Dong sitting on the throne. Bibi Dong was currently wearing a brilliant golden dress, holding a gem scepter, and wearing a 9-curved purple gold crown, her temperament dignified and noble. The moment she saw Qilin appear, a flash of joy crossed her eyes, but when she saw Juliana beside Qilin, this flash of joy immediately disappeared, and she frowned imperceptibly. Why is Nana here at this time instead of cultivating properly to cope with the upcoming competition? It seems the training tasks she assigned her were still too light. Bibi Dong thought to herself. Sister Supreme Pontiff. Teacher. Qilin and Juliana stepped forward and said simultaneously. Little guy, we meet again. Bibi Dong first spoke to Qilin in a kind and pleasant manner, then looked at Juliana. Nana, why are you here too? Hearing this, Juliana looked at her teacher with confusion. Why did it feel like teacher didn't seem very happy to see her today? Did she offend teacher somewhere? However, Juliana still truthfully said, Teacher, I encountered a small problem in my cultivation, so I came to find you. Bibi Dong heard this, waved her hand and said, Nana, since it is a small problem, then you should go back and think about it for a while. If you can find the source of the problem, that is naturally the best. If you can't find it, then come find teacher again. If you want to become a true expert, you must learn to summarize and think for yourself. Go, teacher believes in you. When Juliana left the Supreme Pontiff Palace, her head was still buzzing, not understanding how she had ended up being sent out. And after Juliana left the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Bibi Dong's fair, flawless face then revealed a gentle and bright smile, and she shifted her hips to the side, clearing a space and smiling as she looked at Qilin. Little guy, come up quickly, and sit right next to me. Chapter 211, the finals begin, battling the Star Luo Royal team. Qilin sat beside Bibi Dong. The two sat on the same throne, very close to each other, so close that Qilin could smell a faint, delicate fragrance from her. A year later, Bibi Dong looked significantly changed, radiating a gentle aura from the inside out. In the past, due to the influence of the Rakshasa god legacy, although Bibi Dong still appeared graceful and sacred, her heart was full of coldness and sharpness. Clearly, this was all thanks to Qilin's first spirit ability, which allowed Bibi Dong to recover her true personality. The two chatted a lot, often with Bibi Dong pulling Qilin to talk about daily life and his routine at Heaven Dome Academy. As she listened, she would take out fruits and feed them to Qilin. This kind of treatment was likely something only Qilin enjoyed in the entire continent. Qilin himself felt quite pampered, though he felt a bit awkward whenever he thought of Qian Runshui. In the end, he stayed in Spirit Hall for half a day before returning to the Heaven Dome Academy residence. Before he left, Bibi Dong didn't forget to tell him to come to Spirit Hall more often. The day after returning to the Heaven Dome Academy residence, the students arrived early at the venue of the Soul Master competition under the guidance of a dedicated person. Qilin, along with the team leaders of other academies, was arranged to draw lots. Excluding the Spirit Hall team, the Heaven Dome team main team, and the Star Luo Royal team, which were given byes, there were 30 other teams participating in the draw. After drawing lots, Heaven Dome Academy's opponent was the Plant Academy. This academy had decent strength, it was one of the strongest academies in the other divisions, not at all weaker than the Five Elements academies. However, facing Heaven Dome Academy, it could only be considered their bad luck. The team leader of the Plant Academy, having drawn Heaven Dome Academy, looked green in the face. After all, with their strength, the Plant Academy had a real chance to compete for a spot in the top 8. But they happened to run into the most terrifying dark horse of this competition right from the start. The result was predictable. When they stood on the competition stage, the 7 members of the Plant Academy were practically crying, they were knocked off the stage with almost no resistance. Not choosing to surrender was their final bit of stubbornness. In the Heaven Dome team's lounge, everyone looked very happy. Now they understood how correct the saying, opportunity is greater than hard work, was. It had been nearly 3 months from the qualifiers to participating in the finals. This time had been incredibly beneficial for everyone in the Heaven Dome Academy team. There was only one reason, Qilin's first spirit ability had reached major achievement. The terrifying effect of a million-year spirit ring, when applied to a group of spirit masters at rank 40 or 50, was simply too effective. Among them, Xiaowu rose from rank 54 to rank 57, and Du Guiyan rose from rank 52 to rank 55. As for Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing, each rose from rank 48 to rank 53. Yi Lingling was originally rank 46, but later, because Qilin also gave her a creation heaven mending pill, her spirit power rank soared to rank 54, and her spirit also evolved. Besides them, the Shimo brothers, Yu Feng, and also increased by 3 to 4 ranks each. Among everyone, the lowest spirit power reached rank 45. In 3 months, increasing by 3 or even 4 ranks was basically impossible for ordinary spirit masters. You have to know, even the golden generation of Spirit Hall broke through to Spirit Ancestor at 15, 16, and 16 years old, but what about now? This was mentioned in the original work. Even the youngest, Juliana, only managed to break through to Spirit King at 19. After the match with the Plant Academy, the second round of competition saw the Tiando Academy sub-team receive a bye as they were first in the promotion tournament, easily advancing to the top 10. The Tiando Academy's third round opponent was the Star Luo Royal Team. Although Zhu Zuqing already knew of her sister's well-intentioned efforts back then, she would still give her all in this match to let Dai Wuxi know that from now on, she was only Zhu Zuqing, not Dai Mubai's fiancé. Besides that, the Heaven Do team main team ran into the Spirit Hall team. When Yufeng and Oslo heard this news, they felt as if the sky had collapsed. No reason other than that they had long learned from Qilin that this year's Spirit Hall team had 3 Spirit Kings. How could they play against that? The last round was their first appearance since the start of the Soul Master competition, and they had barely managed to lead a group of rookies to victory over their opponents. As a result, they immediately encountered the Spirit Hall team in the second round. This was really putting them in a difficult spot. Even the Shimo brothers couldn't help but laugh uncharitably upon hearing the news. Soon, the match between the Tiando Academy sub-team and the Star Luo Royal team was about to begin. The two teams slowly walked onto the stage from opposite sides. On the Star Luo Royal team side, Dai Wuxi's appearance was 70% similar to Dai Mubai's, but when facing the Tiando Academy sub-team, his face was full of solemnity. Clearly, he already knew the reputation of the Tiando Academy sub-team. This was a very tricky team. Even if he and Zhu Zuyun used their martial soul fusion skill, the winning chance was probably only 10% to 20%. Well, Dai Wuxi still felt that his Star Luo Royal team had hope of defeating the Tiando Academy sub-team. This hope stemmed from his confidence in his family's martial soul fusion skill. Although the Tiando Academy sub-team was rumored to be godlike, as long as he hadn't fought them personally, he wouldn't easily admit defeat. Beside Dai Wuxi was Zhu Zuqing's sister, Zhu Zuyun. Zhu Zuyun had a tall figure, no less than Dai Wuxi's, and was extremely voluptuous, with skin like mutton fat jade. Although they were sisters, Zhu Zuyun did not possess the coldness of Zhu Zuqing, but rather radiated a gentle temperament. She looked at Zhu Zuqing, who was standing in the crowd of the Tiando Academy sub-team, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. My good sister, I didn't expect that you would grow to this extent in less than 2 years since running away from home. Sister, thank you. Upon seeing Zhu Zuyun, a faint smile appeared on Zhu Zuqing's cold face. Because if it weren't for Qilin's words back then, she wouldn't have known her sister's good intentions. Precisely because of this, she held no resentment in her heart toward her sister. Zhu Zuyun was slightly stunned, then smiled lightly. I originally thought that with your personality, you would find Dai Mubai and then fight against me and we see together. Hearing her sister mention Dai Mubai, a look of disgust and disdain flashed across Zhu Zuqing's face, and she then said, I did look for Dai Mubai, of course, but he is just a coward who only knows how to indulge in pleasure. If I followed him, I would eventually meet the same end. As she spoke, the smile on her face became more pronounced, and she continued, fortunately, I met teacher Qilin. With his help, I grew rapidly and gained the qualifications to fight against you. Even if I am just by myself. Hearing this, a look of gratification flashed in Zhu Zuyun's eyes, while the expression on Dai Wuxi's face beside her was extremely ugly, filled with wariness. At the same time, he also felt a trace of resentment towards Zhu Zuyun in his heart. If Zhu Zuyun had assassinated Zhu Zuqing when she ran away from home, Zhu Zuqing would never have reached this point today. Fortunately, she and Dai Mubai were not on good terms. That was good news. Chapter 212, Sisters who have cleared up misunderstandings, Zhu Zuyun remains. The match begins. As the referee's voice rang out, the spectators around the arena erupted into thunderous cheers. The earth-shaking roar of the crowd was like igniting gunpowder. The battle on the arena floor was about to explode at any moment. In an instant, brilliant spirit rings rose from the field. Being able to make the Heaven Do Academy reveal their spirit rings was clearly giving the Star Luo Royal team plenty of face. One must know, when they fought against the Plant Academy, the Heaven Do Academy members only had the two brothers, Shimo and Shimo, symbolically reveal their spirit rings. However, once the Heaven Do members actually revealed all their spirit rings, the Star Luo Royal team was instantly thrown into an uproar. One team, 5 Spirit Kings. Is this the rhythm of being heaven-defying? Zhu Zuyun stared in shock and astonishment at the 5 dazzling spirit rings on Zhu Zuqing, simply unable to believe her eyes. She had already been shocked enough when she heard that her younger sister had reached the level of a spirit ancestor in her 40s. But how long had it been since the Soul Master competition began? How could her sister have already reached the Spirit King level? Could it be that they had used some kind of cultivation method of a fallen spirit master? Thinking of this, a flash of worry crossed Zhu Zuyun's eyes. But with the great battle imminent, there was no time for her to be distracted by such thoughts. Quick, use the martial soul fusion skill. Dai Wuxi roared from the side, releasing his white tiger spirit. Zhu Zuyun did not hesitate at all and immediately entered the state. In the blink of an eye, the two spirits fused, instantly transforming into a massive hell white tiger. The white tiger roared, and the entire arena trembled because of it. When two spirit ancestors at level 47 or 48 use a martial soul fusion skill, they could even pose a certain threat to a spirit emperor. However, after being buffed by Qilin, which Spirit King of the Heaven Do secondary team could not fight a Spirit Emperor above their level. As the captain, Xiao Wu shouted in a sweet voice, leave this big white cat to Zuqing, no one is to fight her for it, we will not the others out. Hearing this, Zhu Zuqing looked at Xiao Wu with a hint of gratitude, then refocused her attention on the Hell White Tiger. Although she was only level 53, having consumed the Creation Heaven Mending Pill and received the continuous buff stacked by Qilin, her raw stats were likely already on par with an ordinary Spirit Emperor. If one added the advantages of the Wind Spirit Moon Shadow Step and her control over Spirit Power, she could even defeat an ordinary Spirit Emperor, let alone the Hell White Tiger, which could only rival a Spirit Emperor. The others on the Heaven Do secondary team heard Xiao Wu's words and responded with chuckles, each turning their gaze toward the other members of the Star Luo Royal team. First come, first served. Meanwhile, facing the charge of the Hell White Tiger, Zhu Zuqing was not panicked in the slightest. With her spirit manifested, sharp claws bloomed on Zhu Zuqing's hands, radiating a chilling light and emitting a terrifying cold aura. Stepping with the Wind Spirit Moon Shadow Step, Zhu Zuqing's speed was even more exaggerated at this moment, leaving behind afterimages like a phantom on the arena floor. Under her speed, the Hell White Tiger couldn't even touch the corner of Zhu Zuqing's clothes. And Zhu Zuqing's sharp claws could easily land on its massive body. Wherever her claws slashed, it made people feel a sense of bone-chilling dread. Such attacks landing on the Hell White Tiger directly tore open gruesome wounds. In just 3 minutes, the Hell White Tiger's massive body violently exploded under Zhu Zuqing's fierce offensive. The two figures of Zhu Zuyun and Dai Wuxi flew backward in opposite directions like kites with broken strings. It looked like both had suffered heavy injuries of varying degrees. Although they were not unconscious, they had already lost their combat effectiveness. Zhu Zuqing intercepted Zhu Zuyun at high speed while she was flying backward, then landed steadily. Zhu Zuyun's tall figure now had many wounds caused by the sharp claws, and blood was overflowing from the corners of her mouth, but a look of relief appeared in her eyes. Little sister, congratulations. You won. At this moment, Zhu Zuqing shook her head with a smile and said, Elder sister, you can rest assured. Even though I have defeated you, I will not help Dai Mubai deal with you and Dai Wuxi. Hearing this, Zhu Zuyun looked at Zhu Zuqing with a complex expression. With Zhu Zuqing's current strength, if she helped Dai Mubai seize the throne, Dai Wuxi would absolutely not be able to compete with Dai Mubai. And given the cruelty of the Star Luo royal family, once Dai Mubai ascended the throne, she and Dai Wuxi would likely not escape death. Yet Zhu Zuqing was actually willing to voluntarily give up the position of Empress of the Star Luo Empire. Little sister, you must think this through, Zhu Zuyun asked again. Zhu Zuqing smiled. I have already thought it through, and I have also already found true happiness here. As she spoke, a moving smile appeared on Zhu Zuqing's cold, aloof face. Seeing this, Zhu Zuyun was stunned, and suddenly a bit of curiosity arose in her. She really wanted to see what exactly that so-called true happiness of her sister was like. This match ended with the victory of the Heavendo secondary team without any controversy. After the match ended, since the subsequent matches had nothing to do with the Star Luo Royal Academy, Dai Wuxi immediately prepared to return to the Star Luo Empire. As for Zhu Zuyun, she was originally going to return to the Star Luo Empire with Dai Wuxi, but Dai Wuxi later developed some small ulterior motives. He was very clear about the situation. Now, Zhu Zuqing alone could contend with his and Zhu Zuyun's combined strength. If she wanted to help Dai Mubai, then he definitely would not be able to keep the throne. Although Zhu Zuqing said she would not help Dai Mubai, just because she wouldn't now, who could guarantee she wouldn't in the future? After all, once Dai Mubai became the emperor of the Star Luo Empire, Zhu Zuqing would be the empress. Beneath one person, above 10,000. No, with Zhu Zuqing's current strength, if she became the empress, I fear that even the emperor could not compare to her status. Therefore, after pondering, Dai Wuxi finally decided to leave Zhu Zuyun behind. Hadn't Zhu Zuyun and Zhu Zuqing cleared up their misunderstandings? That was perfect. He could have Zhu Zuyun stay by her side and bind her with sisterly affection, so he wouldn't have to worry about her changing her mind and helping Dai Mubai. Dai Wuxi was smug about this and felt very satisfied with his scheme. And Zhu Zuyun was also satisfied. She hadn't seen her sister for nearly 2 years, so it was a good opportunity to spend more time with her. She could also take the opportunity to see the happiness her sister spoke of. And just as Zhu Zuqing was introducing her sister to the members of the Heavendo secondary team, the match between the Heavendo main team and the Spirit Hall team was about to begin. When the members of both teams walked onto the arena, the Heavendo main team all had long, mournful faces, while the members of the Spirit Hall were all looking solemn. Of course, the reason they felt solemn was not because of the Heavendo main team, but because they had seen the tip of the iceberg of the Heavendo secondary team's strength in the previous match. How long had it been, and how did the Heavendo team suddenly pop out with 5 Spirit Kings? Moreover, the Star Luo Royal Academy's Hell White Tiger, even for the 3 Spirit Kings of their Spirit Hall team, would absolutely have no chance of winning in a one-on-one situation. Yet, just any random Spirit King from the Heavendo secondary team could easily defeat the Hell White Tiger. Juliana stood at the front of the Spirit Hall team, her eyes carrying a hint of resentment. She felt that she had been deceived by Qilin. With the Heavendo secondary team being so strong, would he really study the Spirit Hall team as his greatest enemy? He must have been playing with her at the time. He was truly too wicked. Chapter 213, 9th Spirit Ability, Seat of the World, Blessed Land. The battle between the Heavendo Academy main team and the Spirit Hall team was imminent. Although they had Yufeng and Oslo, the gap between them and the Spirit Hall team remained difficult to bridge. Even after pulling out all the stops, they were still defeated by the Spirit Hall team with overwhelming force. It was precisely because BB Dong's personality had recovered over the past 6 months or so and was no longer so extreme that, with followers imitating their leader, the personalities of the 7 members of the Spirit Hall team were much better than in the original work. Otherwise, even if the members of the Heavendo Academy main team didn't die, they would have suffered grievous injuries. However, on the competition field, blades have no eyes, and Yufeng and the others were still beaten to the point of severe injury. But with Qilin there, these injuries were all trivial. He released an 8th spirit ability for each of them, and they were instantly resurrected to full health. Zhu Zuyun stood in the lounge belonging to Heavendo Academy. When she saw this terrifying healing ability of Qilin, she couldn't help but gasp. She had long heard of Qilin's great name. She hadn't expected that he was actually a support soul master. And looking at the gaze and expression her sister directed toward Qilin, how could Zhu Zuyun not know that the happiness her sister spoke of was Qilin? Thinking of this, a hint of curiosity suddenly appeared in the gaze Zhu Zuyun directed at Qilin. What kind of charm did he possess to be able to attract so many outstanding women? Zhu Zuyun was not blind. Whether it was Xiao Wu, Du Guyan, or Yi Lingling, the gazes they directed at Qilin were clearly abnormal. After healing the 7 members of the main team, Qilin comforted them a few words. Except for Yufeng and Oslo, Qilin was not familiar with the other 5, so after healing them, he casually comforted them a few words and dismissed them. After doing this, Qilin returned to the crowd and also greeted Zhu Zuyun. Zhu Zuyun and Zhu Zuqing, the 2 sisters, actually looked quite different, not only in temperament, but the differences in their appearance were also great, especially their physique. Zhu Zuyun was extremely tall, not much shorter than Qilin currently was. Seeing Qilin greet her, Zhu Zuyun subconsciously bowed to him and said respectfully, "For these 2 years, Zuqing has troubled you to take care of her." Qilin waved his hand casually and said with a smile, "No need to be so nervous. I take care of Zuqing not only because I am her teacher, but also because Zuqing herself is likable." Hearing this, Zhu Zuyun relaxed a lot, but her gaze toward Qilin still carried a bit of exploration and curiosity. Not long after, Tianshui Academy also finished their battle. Their opponent was Blazing Academy. With the strength of Tianshui Academy, Blazing Academy naturally had no room to fight back, and ultimately did not make it into the top 10. After a while, the 3rd round of the competition ended, and the top 10 of the Soul Master competition were released. Qilin represented Heavendo Academy and drew lots once again. In the end, their next opponent was determined to be Divine Wind Academy. After drawing lots, Qilin took the people from Heavendo Academy and Tianshui Academy back to the temporary residence. And after returning to the residence, Qilin immediately began to absorb the god-bestowed spirit ring rewarded by the third trial of the life god trial. It was still a million-year spirit ring, but the final color of the spirit ring presented a vibrant purple. In the Duluo continent, this color was naturally not worth mentioning, just a symbol of a 1,000-year spirit ring. But in other worlds, it symbolized nobility and divinity. And after absorbing this spirit ring, Qilin also learned his ninth spirit ability. His ninth spirit ability did not need to be released like other spirit abilities, because this spirit ability directly manifested a towering giant tree in his dantian. As the saying goes, a mustard seed contains Mount Sumeru, and this towering giant tree growing in Qilin's dantian was the same. The giant tree branched out into countless limbs, and at the very top, it bore a light source that looked like a fruit. If one went deep into the light source, one could discover that this was actually a vibrant small world, filled with spiritual chi, blue skies and white clouds, resembling a blessed land. And the name this towering giant tree gave back to Qilin was called Seed of the World. Although the ancient tree appeared towering and lush, it was still just a seed. And the blessed land at the top of the Seed of the World had another function. It could contain any living creature, and even when traveling to another world, it would not be affected. This was a surprise for Qilin. This way he could directly take Xiao Wu and the others to the Dupo world, and without consuming the origin energy of the Gate of Heavens. Even the Gate of Heavens itself was stunned by this effect, exclaiming that it was exaggerated. After all, the Duluo continent itself was only a relatively low-level world. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have produced such a spirit ability. It and the Seed of the World were both attached to Qilin's dantian, so it could feel the extraordinariness of the Seed of the World. Although the value of this seed currently couldn't compare to its own function, once it grew up, it would eventually become a divine object of the heavens and earth that even it could hardly rival. After absorbing this spirit ring, Qilin's spirit power rank also reached rank 93. Besides that, Qilin also brought Xiao Wu and the others into the blessed land above the giant tree. Regarding this miraculous spirit ability of Qilin, everyone felt it was incredibly magical. This world didn't look very big at the moment, with an area of only a few dozen square kilometers, but it had small hills, streams, shady trees, and swirling clouds, looking just like a paradise. Xiao Wu and the others liked the environment in the blessed land very much and began to build their own small houses. They planned to live here permanently because they discovered that the energy inside was more dense and pure than the outside world, and cultivating here could achieve twice the result with half the effort. To tell both sides of the story, the Soul Master competition was still continuing. Heavendo Academy facing Divine Wind Academy naturally won easily. The strongest of Divine Wind Academy, Feng Xiaodian, was only rank 44. Although he could fight above his rank by relying on a set of self-created soul skill, the Storm Devil Wolf 36 consecutive slashes. But for him, this was undoubtedly a waste of his talent. After all, before the age of 30 was the age range where a Spirit Master's cultivation speed was the fastest. He was innate full spirit power, yet he wasted the best cultivation time on self-created soul skill. At 24, he was only rank 44. Wasn't this just a complete idiot? If you want to create a self-created soul skill, can't you wait until you are a titled Duluo? After defeating Divine Wind Academy, there were still 5 teams left in the arena. Heavendo Academy got a bye again and successfully advanced to the top 3. The other 2 teams were the Tianshui team and the Spirit Hall team. In addition, the top 3 needed to conduct an individual elimination tournament. Each team sent out 7 people, and the last remaining team would gain the advantage and could directly enter the final championship contention. As a result, Xiao Wu from Heavendo Academy single-handedly swept the entire arena. Everyone from the Tianshui team and the Spirit Hall team took turns, but not a single person could withstand one move from Xiao Wu. One word: miserable. Heavendo directly advanced to the final round, and the Tianshui team would compete for the final spot against the Spirit Hall team on the second day. Chapter 214, Champion. The Tianshui team versus the Spirit Hall team was a match that, for many spectators, was supposed to be without any suspense. No one believed that Tianshui Academy could defeat Spirit Hall Academy, even with the Tianshui Academy possessing a martial soul fusion skill. Because in most people's eyes, no matter how strong the martial soul fusion skill was, those wielding it were merely 2 spirit ancestors. Whereas the 3 members of the Spirit Hall Golden Generation were all powerhouse-level spirit kings, enough to easily handle this martial soul fusion skill. However, when the great battle broke out, the final result was beyond everyone's expectations. The Spirit Hall team had actually lost, losing to the Tianshui team. Because when facing the Spirit Hall team, the Tianshui team had almost immediately set up their formation and fused into the Ice Crystal Phoenix. One must know that after this period of amplification, the spirit power rank of everyone in the Tianshui team had also advanced by leaps and bounds. Shui Binger, with the highest spirit power, had reached rank 49, while the previously weakest, Shui Yuer, had also reached rank 43. On this basis, they once again unleashed their unique Tianshui formation, its might approaching that of a spirit emperor. Under such circumstances, when Shui Binger and Shui Wu performed their martial soul fusion, they could even rival an ordinary spirit saint. Although the Spirit Hall team had used their trump card, with the siblings Huliana and Xie Yu also performing a martial soul fusion skill, one was rank 53 and the other rank 51, how could the martial soul fusion skill performed by these 2 compare to one that approached the spirit emperor? In the end, they were defeated by the Ice Crystal Phoenix fused by Shui Binger and Shui Wu with overwhelming force. After Huliana and Xie Yu's martial soul fusion skill failed, Yan alone could not turn the tide. From then on, only Tianshui Academy and the Tiando Academy sub-team remained in the final. The 2 teams would officially fight their decisive battle on the second day. The defeat of the Spirit Hall team could simply be described as a shocking upset. No one expected that in this Soul Master competition, the Spirit Hall lineup of 3 Spirit Kings would only rank 3rd. One could only say that this Soul Master competition was truly a battle of gods. For this reason, many spectators who had not seen the great battle between Tianshui Academy and Heavendo Academy held extremely high expectations for the final on the second day. Although Xiao Wu had eliminated all members of the Spirit Hall team and the Tianshui team single-handedly in the previous individual elimination rounds, this was, after all, a team battle. The Tianshui team's team battle strength made many spectators feel that the Tianshui team had a chance to defeat the Tiando Academy sub-team. Only those truly in the know understood the gap that existed between the 2 teams. The second day, inside the arena, the crowd was roaring, reaching its peak since the finals began. On the VIP platform, Bibi Dong, Ning Fengji, and Sword Duluo had all taken their seats, their expressions calm and indifferent. Although the Spirit Hall team had lost the match, there was not the slightest abnormality on Bibi Dong's face. And not far from the 3, a red tray was placed. The 3 spirit bones, as a reward for the final winner, shimmered with a misty radiance within the tray. Looking at these 3 spirit bones, even the other titled Duluos sitting on the VIP platform couldn't help but feel moved. At the same time, the 2 teams slowly ascended to the arena, standing opposite each other. Shui Yuer stood beside Shui Binger, blinked at Xiao Wu, then crossed her hands together and pleaded softly to Xiao Wu, Sister Xiao Wu, please give me some face later and go easy on us, okay? Xiao Wu felt quite pleased with Shui Yuer's plea, slightly lifted her snow-white chin, and snorted softly, seeing as you are so sincere, Sister Xiao Wu will go a little easier on you later. Upon hearing this, Shui Yuer immediately chuckled. Smiles also appeared on the faces of the others in the Tianshui team, not a single person looked nervous. After all, the two teams had known each other for so long and had sparred countless times, everyone was long used to it. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament Finals officially begin. The referee's voice rang out, and the 14 members of the Tiando Academy sub-team and Tianshui team exchanged glances, each releasing their own spirit. In an instant, a powerful aura swept across the entire arena, and brilliant spirit rings spiraled up from beneath their feet. This sight immediately drew thunderous cheers from the entire audience. A great battle was also on the verge of breaking out. The Tianshui team did not hesitate to deploy their formation, with each member's combat power approaching that of a spirit emperor. At the same time, Shui Binger and Shui Wu performed their martial soul fusion skill, once again condensing the Ice Crystal Phoenix. Even Xiao Wu had to treat the Ice Crystal Phoenix, which possessed the combat power of a spirit saint, seriously. However, the Ice Crystal Phoenix consumed spirit power extremely quickly. If they still had to support the battle for the other 5, they had to end the fight quickly. They only had 30 seconds. If the battle did not end in 30 seconds, their spirit power would be completely exhausted. So no one paused at all. The Ice Crystal Phoenix went straight for Xiao Wu, while the others each sought out their own opponents. Shui Yuer gave a hee-hee laugh and took the initiative to find Ning Rongrong. Little Rongrong, watch how I deal with you. Upon seeing this, Ning Rongrong pouted her pretty face, then used her spirit power to condense a long sword as brilliant as glazed glass. Alright, little Yuer, are you treating me like a soft persimmon? Come, let's see what you've really got. After saying this, Ning Rongrong stepped on her wind spirit moon shadow step, holding her sword as she attacked Shui Yuer. Although her combat power could not compare to Zhu Zuqing at the same level, after applying several buffs to herself in succession, her combat power soared, and she was definitely not someone an ordinary spirit master of the same level could contend with. But unfortunately, at this moment, Shui Yuer's spirit power was enough to rival a spirit emperor, and she had also learned spirit power control, only her mastery was not as good as Ning Rongrong's. So, upon clashing, Ning Rongrong immediately fell into a disadvantage, but it was clear that Shui Yuer could not do anything to her in the short term. Once 30 seconds passed and Shui Yuer's spirit power was exhausted, she was destined to be in big trouble. The others in the Heaven Do team were also facing a bitter battle. The two brothers, Shimo and Shimo, joined forces to fight one person, but because their spirit power was too low, they were beaten back steadily, only managing to barely hold on by relying on their Black Tortoise spirit. But the defeat of the two brothers was only a matter of time, they couldn't even hold out for 30 seconds. Zhu Zuqing was able to entangle with Ji Qingbo of the Tianshui team by relying on her speed advantage, easily dragging it out until her spirit power was exhausted. As for Du Guyan, she was able to fight Yu Hero to a standstill by relying on her strength. Everyone was sisters, so she did not use her poison techniques. Of course, there was another reason why she didn't use her poison techniques. The arena was only so big. Once she used her poison techniques, it would inevitably be a situation where she couldn't distinguish friend from foe. Not to mention anything else, the two brothers Shimo and Shimo wouldn't need to struggle at all. Once poisoned by her, they would just collapse on the spot and fall asleep. 30 seconds later, everyone in the Tianshui team collapsed to the ground due to the exhaustion of their spirit power. And for the Heaven Do team, only the two brothers Shimo and Shimo had been knocked off the arena. Who won and who lost was clear at a glance. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament, the final winner. The Tiando Academy Sub-Team. Chapter 215, Xiao Wu's mother, Aru, and past grievances. Ning Rongrong crouched in front of Shui Yuer, pinched her cheeks, and gave a sinister smile. Little Yuer, it must have felt great chasing me around and beating me just now, right? The corners of Shui Yuer's mouth twitched slightly. She didn't dare call her, Little Rongrong, anymore and flattered her in a low voice. Hee, Sister Rongrong, I was just playing around with you earlier. You are a magnanimous person, so you surely wouldn't hold this against me, right? Ning Rongrong giggled, then deliberately straightened her pretty face. How bold, to actually dare call me an old person. Let's see how I punish you. After speaking, Ning Rongrong reached out both hands and began frantically kneading Shui Yuer's cheeks. Seeing this, the others couldn't help but laugh. One couldn't tell at all that they had just finished a match. As the referee's voice rang out, Bibi Dong and the group of titled Duluo stood up one after another. Bibi Dong looked at everyone on the arena, smiled slightly, and began to applaud. Clap, clap, clap. That was truly a wonderful battle. You are all genius young spirit masters. I would like to congratulate you here for shining brilliantly in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament. Geniuses of the Tiando Academy sub-team, the glory belongs to you. Bibi Dong's gentle voice spread out, giving people a feeling like a spring breeze bringing rain. Ning Fengji, Sword Duluo, and the others were all extremely surprised to see Bibi Dong in this state. They had seen Bibi Dong before. Back then, besides being noble and holy, she also gave people a sense of ambition, far from the gentleness she displayed now. What on earth could have caused such a huge change in this Supreme Pontiff? While Bibi Dong was speaking, countless gazes were gathered upon her. When Xiao Wu looked at Bibi Dong, a glimmer of hatred flashed faintly in her eyes. She had personally witnessed her mother being severely injured by this woman. If it hadn't been for her mother holding this woman back at the last moment, she feared she would have died at her hands as well. This murderer not only killed her mother but also absorbed her mother's spirit ring and spirit bone. Facing Xiao Wu's naked gaze, Bibi Dong was extremely sensitive and had noticed her immediately. However, when she saw Xiao Wu and looked at that glimmer of hatred in the depths of her eyes, a look of confusion flashed in Bibi Dong's eyes. Why did the girl in front of her feel so familiar? Moreover, her soft bones rabbit spirit couldn't help but make Bibi Dong recall a past event. Back then, after her spirit power reached the rank of titled Duluo, she went deep into the Stardo Great Forest alone, wanting to attach a few spirit rings to her second spirit. However, after searching in the core area of the Stardo Great Forest for several days, she had absorbed many 10,000-year spirit beasts, but she hadn't encountered a single 100,000-year spirit beast. But just at this moment, she stumbled upon a shape-shifting spirit beast that was severely injured and on the verge of death. At that time, she actually hadn't noticed her identity because her spirit power had already exceeded rank 70, she had entered the mature period, and the spirit beast aura on her body had already disappeared. But just as Bibi Dong was preparing to lend a hand and save the severely injured woman, she saw another shape-shifting spirit beast. This little girl, a spirit beast that had shapeshifted, was clearly just transformed. Judging by her age, she was only 3 or 4 years old, so she had sensed the spirit beast aura on her body. Bibi Dong was very pleasantly surprised at the time, because this was a 100,000-year shapeshifting spirit beast. As long as she killed her, she would not only obtain a 100,000-year spirit ring but also have a 100% chance of dropping a 100,000-year spirit bone. But just at this moment, the woman who was severely injured and dying stopped Bibi Dong. It turned out she had also sensed Xiao Wu's presence. Subsequently, she told Bibi Dong that her name was Aru, that Xiao Wu was her daughter, and that she was also a 100,000-year shapeshifting spirit beast. Now, she was severely injured and at death's door. She had been struggling to hold on just to go home and see her daughter, so she was willing to take her daughter's place and become Bibi Dong's spirit ring, only hoping that Bibi Dong could spare her daughter's life. At that time, although Daming and Erming were nearby, in this situation, both she and Xiao Wu would have died at Bibi Dong's hands before Daming and Erming could arrive. Therefore, Aru told this information to Bibi Dong. If Bibi Dong agreed to spare Xiao Wu, she would voluntarily become Bibi Dong's spirit ring. Conversely, she would risk her life to cause a commotion and attract Daming and Erming over. Even if she and Xiao Wu could not escape death, Bibi Dong, who had only just reached the title Duluo rank, would definitely not be a match for Daming and Erming alone. In the end, after weighing the pros and cons, Bibi Dong agreed to Aru's request. And after Aru let Xiao Wu leave, she took her far away from the Stardo Great Forest and accepted her sacrifice outside the Stardo Great Forest. Now it seemed that Xiao Wu was that little girl from back then. It was just that Bibi Dong didn't understand why there was no spirit beast aura on her body. Clearly, her spirit power rank had not yet entered the mature period. However, thinking of the relationship between Xiao Wu and Qilin, intuition told Bibi Dong that this might have something to do with Qilin. Looking at the hatred in Xiao Wu's eyes, a look of difficulty couldn't help but flash across Bibi Dong's face. If Xiao Wu had no relationship with that little guy Qilin, she could completely take her down. Although the soft bones rabbit did not match her spirit attributes, it was a 100,000-year spirit ring, after all. One had to know that her second spirit rings were not yet full. But Xiao Wu and Qilin were close, so naturally, she could not make a move. After thinking about it, Bibi Dong finally decided to wait until today was over to go find that little guy Qilin and push the problem to him to solve. She could choose not to kill Xiao Wu, but if Xiao Wu insisted on seeking revenge, she would not just sit there and take the beating. After figuring it out, Bibi Dong immediately adjusted her emotions, took a calm look at Xiao Wu and the others from the Tiando Academy sub-team, and then motioned toward the cardinal who was acting as the referee. Seeing this, the Spirit Hall Cardinal immediately announced loudly, "We invite the champion team, the representative of the Heavendo Imperial Academy team, to come on stage to receive the award." Although the Tiando Academy sub-team had won the championship, at this time, one certainly couldn't just read out the 4 words, Tiando Academy sub-team, it just didn't sound prestigious at all. Hearing this, the members of the Tiando Academy sub-team all looked at Xiao Wu. Meanwhile, Bibi Dong calmly took the tray containing the 3 spirit bones from the hands of a Spirit Hall member. Seeing this, Xiao Wu also withdrew her gaze from Bibi Dong and, under the eyes of everyone, walked step by step toward Bibi Dong. When she saw Xiao Wu standing in front of her, Bibi Dong smiled indifferently and handed the tray over. "Congratulations on achieving the final victory, and these 3 spirit bones will become the badge that highlights your victory." Xiao Wu snorted coldly, took the tray from Bibi Dong's hands, and without giving her any face at all, turned around and walked down the steps. The titled Duluo from Spirit Hall on the side frowned one after another upon seeing this. Did this little girl eat gunpowder or something? She actually dared to be disrespectful to the Supreme Pontiff. Several of them wanted to reprimand her, but were stopped by a look from Bibi Dong. Chapter 216, Bibi Dong, mishearing the gossip, ears are no longer clean. After Xiao Wu stepped down from the stage and returned to the Heavendo team, looking at the 3 spirit bones on the tray, everyone's eyes showed a hint of burning desire. The value of spirit bones is self-evident. However, the brothers Shimo and Shimo knew very well that they had only made it this far by riding the coattails, so they were the first to speak. "Sister Xiao Wu, you all split these 3 spirit bones. We brothers won't participate. We've already gained a huge advantage just by making it this far." Subsequently, Yi Lingling also calmly said, "I don't need these 3 spirit bones either." Du Guyan smiled and said, "We are all sisters here, so there's no need to be polite. Just hand these 3 spirit bones to little brother Qilin and let him distribute them. If that doesn't work, let him refine them into other treasures so everyone gets a share." Ning Rongrong's eyes lit up, and she said, "That's a good idea." Xiao Wu wasn't in a good mood, but she forced a smile. "Let's do as Du Guyan suggested." After speaking, the group returned to the Heavendo Academy lounge, where Qilin had been waiting for a long time. Seeing them approach, Qilin smiled and greeted them, "Congratulations to everyone for winning the championship. It seems the training during this period was not in vain." Soon, the lounge was filled with laughter. Qilin noticed that Xiao Wu was in low spirits and immediately guessed that she might have seen Bibi Dong, which reminded her of her mother. However, in the Duluo continent, resurrecting the dead is not a very difficult task. Especially since Xiao Wu's mother was a 100,000-year spirit beast who had transformed. Although she was absorbed by Bibi Dong, her soul origin might still have a remnant within the spirit ring. As long as he became a god, he could easily resurrect her. Thinking of this, Qilin walked up, took Xiao Wu into his arms, and comforted her softly. "Xiao Wu, I can feel your heart. Don't be sad, because one day, your brother Qilin will definitely be able to let you see the person you have always missed again." Xiao Wu was stunned. "Brother Qilin, you know what I'm thinking." Qilin smiled gently and said, "Just assume I can read minds." "But, mother has been dead for many years." Xiao Wu hesitated. "Alright, when has brother Qilin ever lied to you?" Saying this, Qilin raised his hand and flicked Xiao Wu's smooth forehead. Upon hearing this, a look of surprise immediately appeared on Xiao Wu's pretty face. If brother Qilin said it was possible, then it must be possible. She could see her mother again. Xiao Wu trusted Qilin unconditionally. Subsequently, the now lively Xiao Wu handed the 3 spirit bones one as the championship prize to Qilin and relayed Du Guyan's suggestion. Qilin looked at the 3 spirit bones in his hand and accepted them with a smile. These 3 spirit bones were all over 30,000 years old. Although they hadn't reached 50,000 years, they were still decent quality materials. In front of everyone, Qilin directly released the Luding Divine Fire and threw all 3 spirit bones into it at once. Not only that, but Qilin also added some rare metals into the mix himself. Before long, he had refined 7 treasures. 2 of them were shields that looked like door panels. After injecting spirit power to activate them, they were enough to block attacks at the title Duluo level and even had a certain rebounding effect, which could bounce back energy-based attacks and cause damage to the enemy. These 2 shields were naturally for the brothers Shimo and Shimo. After learning about the shields, effects from Qilin, the brothers really wanted to kowtow to Qilin on the spot. These two shields were true heirlooms. Besides the two brothers, the item Qilin refined for Zhu Jing was a pair of spirit boots, which could greatly enhance Zhu Jing's speed, making her speed comparable to a titled Duluo. Of course, such a burst of speed also consumed a massive amount of spirit power. And the item Qilin refined for Ning Rongrong was a pair of earrings, which could amplify her mental force and meditation speed. It counted as an auxiliary type treasure. Yi Lingling's treasure was a bracelet, which had the effect of enhancing her spirit power's effectiveness and also served as an auxiliary function for cultivate. Xiao Wu and Du Guyan also received corresponding treasures. Although they lacked some growth potential compared to previous treasures, for their current stage, they were comparable to divine sharp weapons. As for the Tianshui team and the others from the Heaven Do team who arrived later, Qilin also used some remaining scraps to craft some small gifts for them. Everyone gets a share, it's a celebration for all. After satisfying everyone, Qian Runshui, Ning Fengji, and Sword Duluo walked in from outside the lounge door. As soon as the three entered, they began to offer congratulations. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Ning Fengji and Sword Duluo pulled Ning Rongrong aside to chat. They were mainly asking about her future plans, whether she would continue to stay at Heaven Do Academy or return to the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School. After all, the Soul Master competition was over, and the championship had been won. Of course, what Ning Fengji hoped for most was that Ning Rongrong could stay by Qilin's side. There was no other way, since he could lure Qilin to the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School, the best method was to let Ning Rongrong continue to follow Qilin. Regarding this, Ning Rongrong was, of course, eager to stay by Qilin's side all the time. In fact, her mischievous ideas had already begun to take effect, wanting to find a time to eat this delicious cake that was brother Qilin. However, although Ning Rongrong had full marks in theoretical knowledge, she was a total coward when it came to practice. Several times she wanted to sneakily sleep with her brother Qilin, hoping to be the first. But every time it came to the moment, she would get cold feet. Eventually, she decided to find herself a partner. When the time came, they would all be together, cheering each other on, and then they could team up to sleep with Qilin. And the person Ning Rongrong chose for this was Shui Yuer, who was like-minded with her. Two little naughty girls. On the other side, Qilin was chatting happily with Qian Runshui. In their conversation, Qian Runshui even jokingly said she wanted to introduce a sworn sister of hers to him. But Qilin knew very well that Shui Qing didn't have any sworn sister. Could it be that she wanted to use her true form to meet him? Regarding this, Qilin thought. Things were getting interesting. After Ning Fengji, Sword Duluo, and Qian Runshui left, the people from Heaven Do Academy and Tianshui Academy returned to their lodging. That night, a figure appeared silently in the Heaven Do lodging. The spirit hall attendant arranged to receive Qilin was someone she had personally assigned, so she naturally knew exactly where Qilin was staying. However, the moment she sneaked into the detached building where Qilin was staying without any effort and approached Qilin's bedroom, she was instantly stunned. The moans coming from the bedroom instantly made her blush. This brat, at such a young age, how could he be so unlearned? Listening to the soul-stirring sounds in the bedroom, Bibi Dong cursed in a low voice. No, this little guy Qilin would definitely not be this dissolute. He must have been bewitched by some vixen. After all, he is still young, so it's normal for him to be led astray by a vixen for a moment. But gradually, she realized something was wrong. Why was there another different sound mixed in with the moans coming from the bedroom? Chapter 217. What kind of decorum is this? A verbal warning. Inside the bedroom, although Qilin did not deliberately use his mental force to probe the surroundings, his current strength gave him extremely sharp senses. Although Bibi Dong did not make the slightest sound when she arrived, when he heard movement outside the bedroom, he still couldn't help but let his qi leak, and his heartbeat accelerated. It was precisely this moment that made Qilin in the bedroom notice Bibi Dong outside the door. With a sweep of his mental force, the corners of his mouth twitched immediately. Why is Supreme Pontiff Sister here? Du Guyan's charming voice rang out. Little brother Qilin, why did you stop? Qilin whispered, there's someone outside. Upon hearing this, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling instantly became a bit more sober. The latter showed a look of unease on her face, while Du Guyan, after a brief moment of daze, tentatively said, how about, we call the sister outside in? If someone could make Qilin pause, it certainly wouldn't be Ji Yuina, because she would have directly joined in instead of standing outside the door. It's just. Who could the sister outside be? Could it be Rongrong or Shui Yuer, those two little girls? Ning Rongrong and Shui Yuer are both as clever as ghosts. They probably have long suspected the relationship between him and Yi Lingling, just never dared to be sure. Qilin shook his head, then whispered, this person is a bit different. You two rest first, I'm going out for a moment. In the next second, he was already fully dressed. And in Du Guyan's heart and body, it suddenly felt as if a piece had gone empty, and the look she directed at Qilin held a bit more resentment. But she still said, your matters are important. Yi Lingling also nodded gently and quietly. Seeing this, Qilin immediately stepped forward to open the bedroom door and walked out. Sure enough, as soon as he stepped out, he saw Bibi Dong standing by the wall with an expressionless face. Qilin gave a sheepish smile, closed the bedroom door again, and then whispered, Supreme Pontiff Sister, why did you come here so suddenly? A strange look flashed across Bibi Dong's fair and flawless face, then her expression returned to softness, but she gave Qilin a charming roll of her eyes. Why, is it that sister cannot come to your place? Of course you can, Supreme Pontiff Sister can come whenever she wants, Qilin replied, quickening his speech. Looking at Qilin's appearance, Bibi Dong smiled faintly, alright, this isn't the place to talk either, let's go outside and speak. That works, Qilin laughed, and then he and Bibi Dong appeared outside the house as if they were ghosts. The two came to a quiet forest, the bright moonlight poured down through the treetops, dappling the ground and also hitting the two of them. Qilin asked curiously, Supreme Pontiff Sister, you came tonight. Before Qilin could finish, Bibi Dong said lightly, Sister came this time for that girl named Xiao Wu. Qilin immediately understood Bibi Dong's intention. It seems that Bibi Dong had also recognized Xiao Wu's identity. Bibi Dong continued, little guy, do you know her identity? Qilin said, of course I do. I was the one who helped her conceal the aura of a spirit beast. As expected, upon hearing this, Bibi Dong did not show much surprise on her face, but simply recounted the process of how she had obtained her spirit ring, explaining the grudge between herself and Xiao Wu. Bibi Dong had long known about Xiao Wu, so she knew about the intimate relationship between her and Qilin. Therefore, she couldn't help but look at Qilin at this moment, wanting to know what choice Qilin would make after learning of the grudge between her and Xiao Wu. Would he kill her to avenge Xiao Wu's mother, or would he remain neutral? Bibi Dong knew well that the enmity between her and Xiao Wu was a matter of killing a mother, so naturally, she didn't expect Xiao Wu to let go of the grudge. If Xiao Wu came to take revenge, she would naturally fight back, but if Qilin wanted to avenge Xiao Wu's mother, she wouldn't be able to resist, nor would she. Perhaps she should have died long ago. If she could die at Qilin's hands, it would be a perfect ending for her. For this young man who had pulled her up from the edge of the abyss, dying at his hands was something Bibi Dong was willing to do. Of course, perhaps deep in Bibi Dong's heart, she also hoped that Qilin would remain neutral, because that would mean Qilin was also unwilling to take action against her, his supreme pontiff sister. However, after listening to Bibi Dong recount the grudge with Xiao Wu, the expression on Qilin's face remained very calm. He smiled slightly and said, "Supreme pontiff sister, you didn't do anything wrong in that situation back then. For humans to hunt spirit beasts for spirit rings is a matter of course in the Duluo world. Any titled Duluo level spirit master would feel tempted when facing a 100,000-year transformed spirit beast." But when Bibi Dong saw that the expression on Qilin's face still hadn't changed at all, a flash of joy crossed the bottom of her eyes. She had already received the answer she wanted, the most satisfactory one. At this moment, she heard Qilin say again, "Supreme pontiff sister, since Xiao Wu's mother sacrificed herself, she should have turned into an ordinary rabbit after the sacrifice, right? Did you release that rabbit?" Bibi Dong was stunned. Although she didn't know why Qilin asked this, she still answered truthfully, "No, I ate it." Ate it. Hearing this, the corners of Qilin's mouth twitched slightly. Fine, if it was eaten, it was eaten. As long as the soul origin was still in the spirit ring, he could resurrect Xiao Wu's mother. So Qilin comforted her, "Supreme pontiff sister, it's fine. I will handle Xiao Wu's matter. Her mother can still be saved." He then told Bibi Dong the news that Xiao Wu's mother could still be resurrected. Becoming a god is extremely difficult for others, but for Qilin and Bibi Dong, it was an easy task. Speaking of this, Qilin hadn't forgotten that the Rakshasa god still had a strand of consciousness being kept in his sea of consciousness, keeping Bingdi company. Qilin would occasionally enter his sea of consciousness to visit Tian Meng and Bingdi. But Tian Meng, that guy, slept all day long. It was either sleeping or on the way to sleeping. In the original work, its sense of presence was strong because it couldn't be sure that Huo Yuhao could definitely become a god, so Huo Yuhao needed its help. But now, it was hugging Qilin's thigh, had no pressure, and naturally returned to its true nature. As for Bingdi, she couldn't stay idle. She would sleep, but most of the time she hoped to find something to do. In the end, Qilin created a method to cultivate mental force, allowing Bingdi, who only had her mental origin left, to cultivate in his sea of consciousness as well. Thus, Bingdi went on the path of cultivation and more cultivation, never to return. Even the consciousness of the Rakshasa god found Qilin's method miraculous. She wanted to cultivate too, but she was just a strand of consciousness, so she couldn't. Outside, having obtained the satisfactory answer, Bibi Dong prepared to leave. Before leaving, she stopped and said with a touch of tenderness in her voice, "Little guy, you are still young now. You must keep your eyes open and don't let some bad women ruin your body. Don't do this again next time." A verbal warning. Chapter 218, Tang San's Fall, and the official meeting with Qian Runshui. After Bibi Dong finished speaking, she turned and left, her figure quickly disappearing from Qilin's line of sight. While reflecting on the Supreme Pontiff's words, Qilin walked towards his bedroom. But when he returned to his bedroom, in the end, Qilin still could not resist the temptation and failed to live up to the Supreme Pontiff's earnest advice. As Qilin immersed himself in it, the image of Bibi Dong advising him appeared in his mind. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament concluded, with the championship and runner-up both falling to Heaven Do, while the original favorite to win, the Spirit Hall team, only managed to secure third place. Within just a few days, this news spread wildly, with Spirit City as the center. And just 400 miles away from Spirit City, a black-robed man sat in a tea house. When he heard the customers nearby loudly describing the final results of the Soul Master competition, the black-robed man's body trembled slightly. The Heaven Do reserve team really became the champions of the Soul Master competition. However, how did Ning Rongrong, Zhu Qing, and Yi Lingling also become Spirit Kings? This cultivate speed is not right. There is definitely something fishy. You must know, ever since he escaped from Spirit City, he had frequently killed evil spirit masters of the Spirit Hall in secret and used spirit bones to devour their spirit power. But even though he had devoured 30 or 40 evil spirit masters, he was only at level 48 now. He had thought that this cultivate speed was already heaven-defying. Yet he did not expect that he still could not keep up with Ning Rongrong and Zhu Qing. The black-robed man thought bitterly, and a twisted look of jealousy flashed across his slightly gloomy face beneath the black robe. This black-robed man was none other than Tang San. That day, after witnessing his father die at the hands of Qian Daoliu, he disguised himself and fled Spirit City. Tang San was very clear-headed. He knew very well that the reason Changfeng Hotel was exposed must be because his teacher's plan had failed, and then someone had forced them to reveal their location. There was even another possibility, but Tang San dared not think about it, nor was he willing to believe it. That was that his teacher had backstabbed him and his father. After all, he was Bibi Dong's old lover, and 8 years ago, he had once saved his life from her hands. With Bibi Dong there, who could force a confession out of him? Tang San's mind was racing, and a look of pain appeared on his face. His father's death was a huge blow to him. Although he often said, a teacher for a day is a father for life, in reality, he knew very well that his father was much more important to him than his teacher. Although since he was born, his father had not fulfilled his responsibilities as a father, Tang San, who had not experienced fatherly love in his previous life, valued his bloodline relatives very much. Especially since his father was the renowned Clear Sky Duluo on the continent, who could not only teach him knowledge that many teachers could not, but was also his most important backing. Now that his father was dead, his backing had also collapsed. Thinking of this, a look of violence flashed in Tang San's eyes, and he clenched his fists tightly. No matter what role his teacher played in this, the fact that the Spirit Hall forced his mother to her death and killed his father was real. If he did not avenge this grudge, he swore he would not be a man. Tang San secretly made up his mind, while deciding to increase the frequency of hunting down the evil spirit masters of the Spirit Hall. Anyway, he was doing this to eliminate harm for the people. But due to his frequent actions over the past period, he had already attracted the attention of the Spirit Hall. So, for the next period of time, he had to be careful when hunting down the evil spirit masters of the Spirit Hall. Besides this, Tang San also needed to find a fixed foothold for himself, as well as an absolutely loyal guardian. After all, with his current behavior, it was no exaggeration to say he was walking a tightrope. If others found out about his actions, it was very likely that they would mistake him for a fallen spirit master. Therefore, Tang San naturally thought of the Strength Clan and Titan. Titan and the entire Strength Clan had already acknowledged his father as their master, and Titan himself could even be said to be loyal and devoted. With his personality, he was afraid that if Tang Hao directly told him to commit suicide, he would do so without hesitation. Therefore, Tang San could completely trust him. Tai Tan was a level 86 spirit Duluo. With him as his guardian, not only would his safety be guaranteed, but with his loyalty, he could also invite him to join him in hunting down the evil spirit masters of the Spirit Hall. By then, with Tai Tan's help, his spirit power would definitely be able to advance by leaps and bounds. Moreover, given Tai Tan's personality, he would definitely not refuse Tang San's invitation. After making his plans in his heart, Tang San immediately walked out of the tea house and rushed towards the residence of the Strength Clan. On the other side, Qilin once again received an invitation from Qian Runshui and arrived at an elegant and quiet pavilion. Just as he entered the room, a man and a woman immediately came into view. The man was none other than the Shui Qing that Qilin was familiar with, while the woman had long golden hair, snow-white skin, a straight nose bridge, slender phoenix eyes, and a stunningly beautiful face. Seeing Qilin walk through the door, Shui Qing immediately laughed loudly. "Brother Qilin, you've come." Qilin smiled slightly at him and then said, "Since Big Brother Shui invited me, I naturally had to come." With his mental force, he could see at a glance that the Shui Qing before him was disguised by someone else, and compared to Qian Runshui's disguise, this person's disguise could be said to be full of holes. However, Qilin also enjoyed this role-playing and did not expose it directly. Instead, he looked at Qian Runshui beside Shui Qing and asked deliberately, "Big Brother Shui, who is this?" Shui Qing used the rehearsed script and introduced her with a smile. "Brother Qilin, have you forgotten that I, your brother, said I would introduce my sworn sister to you? Here, this is my sworn sister, Qian Runshui. Because I have mentioned you to her many times, she has long wanted to meet you." After Shui Qing finished the introduction, Qian Runshui, who was sitting beside him, smiled and said, "A long time ago, I heard my sworn brother mention teacher Qilin. Today, I have finally seen the immortal master in person, and he truly lives up to his reputation." Hearing this, Qilin smiled slightly. "Miss Qian, you flatter me. I am just a lucky person with a little bit more luck." Actually, Qilin was being sincere when he said this. Hearing his reply, the expression on Qian Runshui's face did not change in the slightest, as if she had expected him to say this. Because Qian Runshui had long known Qilin under the identity of Shui Qing and considered herself to understand his personality, she was very clear about the other party's modesty. She did not know, however, that Qilin was truly speaking the truth. Chapter 219, Feng Xiaodian's Transformation, the Simp becomes a werewolf. Qilin exchanged a few more pleasantries with Qian Runshui. Although Qian Runshui was conversing with Qilin using her true appearance, there was not the slightest sense of estrangement between them. Shui Qing, on the side, however, looked like an outsider. He was quite perceptive. Seeing that his goal was achieved, he stood up immediately and teased Qilin. "Brother Qilin, it seems you and my sworn sister get along very well. Since that's the case, I won't stay here to spoil the fun today." After speaking, he looked at Qian Runshui and smiled. "Xiao Shui, I'll leave my brother in your care today." Qian Runshui smiled and replied, "Sworn brother, leave teacher Qilin to me, I will definitely not neglect him. Then I can rest easy." After saying this, Shui Qing took his leave. After all, he was a fake among fakes, so he naturally didn't dare to chat with Qilin for too long, fearing he would slip up. Qilin played along, exchanging a symbolic greeting with him before watching him leave. After Shui Qing left, Qian Runshui immediately began to chat freely with Qilin. Although it was only their first meeting, they chatted like old friends who hadn't seen each other in years, talking about everything. Even Qian Runshui felt it was strange, and even felt a hint of secret joy in her heart. Qilin was clearly seeing her true appearance for the first time, yet they could get along so well. Could this be fate? The two chatted from the afternoon until the evening, and only then did Qian Runshui bid farewell to Qilin with a satisfied smile. During the conversation, she had subtly inquired about Qilin's views on the Heaven Do Empire, the Star Luo Empire, and Spirit Hall. After learning Qilin's attitude again, Qian Runshui felt even more relaxed. Qilin was not loyal to Heaven Do, so even if he discovered her true identity one day, he might still support her. Qian Runshui was inexplicably very confident in her judgment. On the other side, after parting with Qian Runshui, Qilin returned to the academy's residence. After all, it was rare to come to Spirit City, and since the Soul Master competition had completely ended, everyone did not intend to return to Heaven Do immediately, but planned to take advantage of these few days to relax in the city. Ning Rongrong waved her hand and declared, "All expenses for these few days will be covered by me, Ning Rongrong. Whoever tries to save money for me is not giving me face." Upon hearing this, everyone shouted that Sister Rongrong was generous. Besides this, a funny thing happened in the last 2 days. At the Blazing Academy residence, Feng Xiaodian squatted for a whole day before finally waiting for Huo Wu, who was returning from the Heaven Do Academy residence. This guy, Feng Xiaodian, not only combed his hair into a flashy style and wore gorgeous clothes, but upon seeing Huo Wu, he immediately ran up to her with flowers in his hands and knelt on one knee, confessing his love with deep affection. Huo Wu was caught completely off guard by Feng Xiaodian at that moment. But at this moment, having long been influenced by Xiao Wu's casual and subtle Ji Yu, she had already developed admiration and worship for Qilin, so facing Feng Xiaodian's sudden confession, she chose to reject him directly. She told Feng Xiaodian that she already had someone she liked. When Feng Xiaodian heard this, he was stunned. No, it had only been a few days, how could his sister Huo Wu suddenly have someone she liked? Feng Xiaodian was not a stupid person, he just briefly analyzed Huo Wu's strange behavior of running to the Heaven Do Academy from time to time recently, plus he had heard that the Heaven Do Academy teacher Qilin had once saved Huo Wu from Xinyan. In an instant, Feng Xiaodian understood everything. His face turned ashen, and he immediately asked if that person was Qilin. When Huo Wu shyly admitted it, Feng Xiaodian felt completely dejected. If it were anyone else, he would still compete. But if the competitor was Qilin, then no matter how confident Feng Xiaodian was, he had no certainty of defeating him. Most importantly, after this Soul Master competition, Feng Xiaodian had completely recognized himself. As a spirit master with innate full spirit power, at his age, he shouldn't have been researching some self-created soul skill. He often wondered if he hadn't spent these years researching self-created soul skills, would his spirit power rank be higher than those spirit kings from Heaven Do Academy and Spirit Hall Academy? And if that were really the case, surely Sister Huo Wu would have looked at him differently. Thinking of this, Feng Xiaodian sighed. Unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in this world. After being rejected by Huo Wu, Feng Xiaodian hesitated slightly, but still couldn't help but say to her, "Teacher Qilin is so outstanding, I don't know how many excellent girls surround him. Although you are outstanding enough, Sister Huo Wu, compared to those girls at Heaven Do Academy, I fear you are still lacking quite a bit." Huowu was not angry about this, but smiled and said to Feng Xiaodian, I'm not worried about this, I have my own methods. The method Huowu mentioned was naturally the best friend route. Xiaowu had already told her that as long as she became the main wife, there would definitely be a place for her by teacher Qilin's side. It can only be said that Huowu's brain wasn't working very well either. With Xiaowu's coaxing and painting a big picture, plus the added bonus of Qilin saving her, she completely fell in less than 3 months. Feng Xiaodian watched the shyness on Huowu's face that he had never seen before and sighed immediately. Sure enough, a simp is a simp, if you simp to the end, you end up with nothing. He finally understood. Thus, Feng Xiaodian chose to leave in low spirits. From that day on, a simp fell, but a werewolf awakened. According to gossips, after leaving the Blazing Academy residence, Feng Xiaodian went to the most famous tavern in Spirit City to drink his sorrows away, and ended up taking 10 girls to the most famous hotel in Spirit City to open a room that night. Rumor has it that the next day he almost crawled out the door. And from then on, the road of the werewolf was unstoppable. A week passed in a flash, and Qilin finally led the people from Heaven-Do Academy and Tianshui Academy to leave Spirit City. The people from Tianshui Academy also proposed to bid farewell after following Qilin for a while. After all, they had been away from Tianshui Academy for a year, so they definitely had to go back and take a look. However, they all agreed that they would go to Heaven-Do City again after a while. After all, at their age, after the Soul Master competition, they had all reached graduation age. If looking at the past, most excellent students like them would stay in the academy to teach. But Qilin was just too attractive. This past year had already made the girls of the Tianshui girl group completely unable to leave Qilin. And after the Tianshui girl group left, Qilin soon took Xiaowu and the others back to Heaven-Do Academy. Emperor Shui heard that the Heaven-Do team had returned, and immediately received them in the palace hall. He promoted Qilin's title to duke. Although there was no duchy as a fief, he divided 9 cities centered on Nuoding City as his fief and awarded them to him. And besides Qilin, everyone in the Heaven-Do team was granted the title of count and awarded an additional 100,000 gold coins. Chapter 220, The Transformation of Heaven-Do Academy, the Crown Prince supervises the state. After the award ceremony, Qilin and the group returned to Heaven-Do Academy. The 3 deans, led by Chief Education Commissioner Meng Shenji, warmly welcomed their return, and a massive banner was even hung over the academy gate. Countless dignitaries entered the academy, wanting to use this opportunity to get to know Qilin, hoping to become familiar with him so they could send their children to learn from him. After all, Qilin's teaching ability was evident to all. Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, Yu Feng, Oslo, and the brothers Shimo and Shimo, these nobles knew somewhat what they were like before. Although they had some talent, it definitely wouldn't have reached this level otherwise. However, facing the intentions of these empire nobles, Qilin ignored every single one of them. Only when the relatives of the Heaven-Do team members came to thank him did he appear to receive them. A few days after Qilin and the group returned to the academy, the brothers Shimo and Shimo, as well as Oslo and Yu Feng, chose to graduate one after another. After all, at their current age, they had already reached the age of graduation, and Shimo had even won the championship of the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy competition. It could be said that they had already reached the peak on the path of students. Although continuing to stay at the academy and following Qilin would maximize their improvement, none of them wanted to leave a bad impression of being clingy on Qilin. Regarding their actions, many nobles secretly cursed them as stupid upon hearing the news, while simultaneously wanting to send their children to learn from Qilin through the 3 deans. The 3 deans did mention this matter to Qilin, but without exception, he rejected them all. Even Qilin himself developed the idea of leaving Heaven-Do Academy. He had originally come to Heaven-Do to give Xiaowu, Rongrong, and Zuqing a platform to participate in the Soul Master competition. Now that the Soul Master competition was over, there was no need for him to continue staying in the academy. Moreover, Heaven-Do Academy only recruited noble students. It wasn't to say that all students here were bad, but for a decaying empire, the vast majority of noble children were indeed mostly playboys and good-for-nothings. When Qilin proposed to leave Heaven-Do Academy, it caused a huge uproar within the academy. The 3 deans came to Qilin's dormitory together, begging him to stay. Even Tian Runshui, disguised as Shui Qing, was alarmed and rushed over to persuade him. After learning the reason for Qilin's departure, Tian Runshui said in a deep voice, Brother Qilin, if you dislike the improper atmosphere of Heaven-Do Academy, then I shall order a cleanup of the academy's ethos, driving away all the scum and gilded good-for-nothings in the academy. Furthermore, in this Heaven-Do Academy, I guarantee that no one will disturb you again in the future. You can teach students if you want, and you don't have to if you don't want to. Qilin rubbed his chin after hearing this, and Tian Runshui, seeing this, continued to strike while the iron was hot. Besides this, Heaven-Do Academy will never restrict your freedom, Brother Qilin. You only need to keep a name here. With these words from Tian Runshui, it didn't really matter whether Qilin left or not. He laughed. Since Big Brother Shui has said so, if I were to still withdraw from Heaven-Do Academy, it would be not giving you face. Hearing Qilin say this, Shui Qing laughed loudly and then said, then I thank Brother Qilin for giving me face. After this incident, Heaven-Do Academy immediately began drastic reforms. Nearly 2/3 of the noble disciples were expelled from the academy, causing quite a stir in Heaven-Do City. These nobles united to complain to Emperor Shui about Shui Qing and the 3 deans of the academy. As for Qilin, no one dared to complain about him. After all, everyone knew that the beautiful woman beside Qilin was a powerhouse with unfathomable strength, and even the sect master of the Elephant Armored Academy, Huyan Zhen, had been crushed to death by her with one hand. However, the joint complaints of these nobles didn't even stir up a small ripple. The reason was simple. Emperor Shui's health was getting worse day by day. The death of Shui Bang a year ago had been a huge blow to him, and the Heaven-Do team winning the championship at the Soul Master competition had surprised him greatly. At his age, great joy and great sorrow were extremely damaging to the body. Coupled with the fact that the Crown Prince had gained a wave of reputation in Spirit City, Emperor Shui was gradually transitioning the power in his hands to the Crown Prince. It was no exaggeration to say that the Crown Prince was supervising the state in the Heaven-Do Empire now. As for Prince Shui Qing, although his confinement had ended, he dared not show his face at this time. Therefore, the complaints of the nobles against Tian Runshui and the 3 deans were completely like, who is that below the hall, daring to accuse this official? Tian Runshui took this opportunity to investigate these nobles, and the result was predictable, not a single one was clean. So she waved her hand, and these nobles and ministers were either beheaded or sent to the army. Subsequently, Tian Runshui naturally took the opportunity to plant her own people in the court, pulling the rug from under them. In a blink of half a month, Yu Feng got married. His wife was the legitimate daughter of a small family, and their relationship was a marriage of convenience. On the wedding day, they invited Qilin and the members of the Heaven-Do team. Qilin specially refined 2 heart-connecting knots to give to the couple. This heart-connecting knot was a defensive treasure. As long as the heart-connecting knot was activated, it could release a protective shield. This protective shield was enough to withstand attacks from a titled Duluo level. Yu Feng was so excited he almost knelt down to acknowledge Qilin as his foster father. Besides Qilin, Xiao Wu and the others also gave their own gifts. Among them, Du Guyan and Ning Rongrong were the most generous. Du Guyan had an entire herb garden at home, so she specifically asked Qilin to select a few herbs to refine 2 medicinal pills for the newlywed couple. The treasure Ning Rongrong gave was relatively tacky. The 7 treasure glazed tile school had the most money, endless money. So her wedding gift was 500,000 gold coins, as well as pearls, coral, gems, and other such gaudy things. 3 days after Yu Feng's wedding, Qilin took the group back to Nuoding City. Having left home for 2 years, although they kept in touch by phone, they had to go home eventually. This time going home, Qilin planned to ask his parents for their thoughts. If they were willing, he would bring them directly into the blessed land within his body. Soon, Qilin brought the women to arrive at Luobo village in a low-key manner. Not seen for 2 years, Luobo village could be said to have undergone earth-shaking changes. Looking from afar, every house had a new building, and the roads were clean and tidy. Xiao Wu said in surprise, "Brother Qilin, in the 2 years we were away, the village has changed so much." Qilin smiled slightly and then said, "I heard my parents mention this a few days ago. The changes here must be the work of Uncle Ning and that, big brother Shui, of mine." Chapter 221, Returning Home in Glory, back to Luobo village. Just as Qilin was speaking, several middle-aged men dressed as farmers in the distance suddenly noticed their group. One of them carefully sized up Qilin from afar, then looked at the others beside him and asked, "Do you think 2 of those young masters and young misses over there look like Qilin and Xiao Wu?" It really seems like it's them, they're back." The others took a closer look and immediately nodded in affirmation. "It's only been 2 years since those 2 children left, I didn't expect them to have grown so tall. How about we go over and say hello?" one of them said with a hint of hesitation. "Better not, look at those girls beside him, each one prettier than the last, their backgrounds probably aren't simple. Let's not go over and annoy them." "That's true, still, that child Qilin is really successful, to bring so many girls home. Won't that couple at Qitian's house be overjoyed when they see this? Qilin has been popular with girls since he was little, I didn't expect him to be even more so now that he's grown up." Just as they were whispering, Qilin noticed them. He immediately waved at them and called out loudly, "Uncle Wang, Uncle Li, long time no see." After saying this, Qilin, accompanied by Xiao Wu and the others, walked over quickly. Upon seeing these middle-aged men, Xiao Wu also greeted them with a grin, "Uncle Wang, Uncle Li, long time no see. Why didn't you say hello when you saw us earlier? Have you forgotten about me and brother Shaolin after only 2 years?" Seeing them walk over, the middle-aged men felt a touch of gratification, while at the same time, expressions of awkwardness appeared on their faces. Qilin comforted them with a few words, then introduced Ji Yuina, Du Guyan, and the others beside him. The women also politely greeted them one by one. After recovering under Qilin's reassurance, the men chatted with them with smiles and gave Qilin a thumbs up. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with the men, Qilin led the group toward his home. Soon, a magnificent-looking building appeared in everyone's sight. Although the building before them had undergone earth-shaking changes compared to 2 years ago, the location was definitely correct. This was his home. Before they even got close, Qilin had already spotted his mother, Shu Qian, watering flowers in the garden in front of the building. "Mom, I'm back." Shu Qian hadn't noticed Qilin at first, not until he called out. Shu Qian's watering motion stopped abruptly, and she subconsciously looked in the direction of Qilin. After seeing Qilin, she paused for a moment, then called out toward the house. "Qitian, hurry up and come out, our son is back." Thump, thump, thump. As soon as her voice fell, a flurry of hurried footsteps immediately came from inside the house. Qitian was seen walking quickly out of the house, then he shouted loudly, "Son." But the next second, he saw the group of beautiful women following beside Qilin. Good heavens, Qitian's mouth hung open, his figure froze in place, his face full of shock. Could they all be his daughters-in-law? How did this brat bring back so many daughters-in-law after only being away for 2 years? Shu Qian, having already reacted, was equally surprised, but she didn't lose her composure like Qitian, keeping a gentle smile on her face throughout. Walking up to Qilin, Shu Qian said warmly, "You must all be Shaolin's friends. Now that you're here, just treat this place as your own home." She then looked at Xiao Wu, patted her head, and said with a smile, "Xiao Wu, it's only been 2 years, you've grown even more beautiful." Xiao Wu acted coquettishly in front of Shu Qian, "And Shu, it's been so long, have you missed Xiao Wu?" During those few years at Qilin's house, she had long since regarded Shu Qian as her own mother. Shu Qian laughed, "Of course I did." After saying this, she smiled at the others, "All right, let's all go inside and chat." Saying this, she ushered everyone into the house. Qilin walked at the very back, and seeing this, Qitian immediately ran over and pulled him to the side. "Son, what is your relationship with all these girls?" Qilin pondered slightly, then grinned and said, "It's probably the relationship you're thinking of." Tilda, hearing Qilin admit it himself, Qitian couldn't help but gasp, then gave him a thumbs up. But then he said anxiously, "Son, do these girls all accept the others? Looking at their appearance and temperament, they don't seem like they come from ordinary families." Qilin thought for a moment, then said, "Anyway, there haven't been any problems so far, and it's highly likely there won't be any in the future." Seeing his son so confident, Qitian didn't say anything more. After entering the house, he reported the information he had learned to Shu Qian. Upon learning that these girls were actually her future daughters-in-law, Shu Qian was overjoyed, praising her son in her heart for being so capable. And when she faced the women again, she was naturally even more enthusiastic. The women, in turn, were as well behaved as could be when facing Shu Qian, vying to show their best selves. Not having seen each other for 2 years, Shu Qian and Qitian were in excellent spirits, especially after consuming the creation heaven-mending pill that Qilin had sent back. Their spirits had directly evolved into top-tier spirits, undergoing an earth-shattering transformation. Now, both of their spirit power ranks had reached over rank 30. Whenever they needed to hunt for a spirit ring, they would call Qilin, and Qilin would contact Ning Fengji to have someone take his parents to hunt for the spirit ring. Afterward, Qilin explained his intentions to his parents and brought them into the blessed land inside his body, asking if they wanted to live there and eventually leave with him to Heaven-Do City. The two naturally refused. They had long been accustomed to life in Luobo village and might feel uncomfortable if they moved elsewhere. Qilin didn't force them, but instead took out many other medicinal pills and gave them to them. Many of these pills were for increasing cultivation, and once fully digested, they would be enough for them to break through to title Duluo. Besides that, Qilin also prepared many treasures for them, offensive, defensive, and auxiliary types, and taught them how to use them. For the next half-month, Qilin stayed at home, occasionally visiting neighbors in the village. During this period, Qilin and Xiaowu saw Qiyu again. After 2 years, Qiyu's spirit power had reached rank 16. In 2 years, breaking through from rank 13 to rank 16 was considered quite fast for his innate spirit power. Moreover, hearing him talk about his experiences, he had joined an intermediate spirit master academy over these 2 years, and was now back home while on break. Regarding this old childhood friend, Qilin knew that although his talent was lacking, his character was resilient, so he taught him a spirit power cultivation method and refined a medicinal pill for him to cleanse his meridians and marrow. Although its effect was far from that of the creation heaven mending pill, it still helped his spirit evolve once again. Perhaps it couldn't compare to a top-tier spirit, but it was no worse in quality than a high-tier spirit. Chapter 222, Profound Ice Qilin Second Ring, Qilin Step, Qilin Fist. Finally, Qilin did not forget Brother Dao and Sister Cici, and specifically found a time to visit them with Xiaowu. Over these 2 years, due to the retirement of Master Ma Xunuo from the Spirit Hall Nuoding City branch, Master Su Yuntao took over his position. He is now riding high, and his spirit power rank has reached rank 37. Sister Cici's spirit power is on par with Master Su Yuntao's. When the two saw Qilin and Xiaowu visiting, they were very pleasantly surprised and enthusiastically led them into their home. In these 2 years, the couple had a child, just over a year old, who looked sturdy and cute. The family of 3 lived a happy and fulfilling life. Qilin and Xiaowu were also genuinely happy for them. Before leaving, Qilin also gifted them precious medicines to help their spirits undergo a second evolution. Qilin also prepared a portion of precious medicine for their child, which could help the little one lay a perfect foundation from a young age, ensuring that once the child awakens their spirit, it will surely be a top-tier spirit with innate full spirit power. In addition to this, Qilin also taught them methods to cultivate spirit power and gave them top-tier defensive treasures, one for offense, one for defense, and one for support, enough for the 2 to pass down as family heirlooms. Finally, Qilin told them that if one day their collection of treasures attracted the covetous eyes of outsiders, they should just state his name, and it might have a miraculous effect. After doing all this, Qilin and Xiaowu had dinner at Master Su Yuntao and Sister Cici's home before leaving. Watching their retreating figures, Master Su Yuntao was full of emotion. I always felt that this kid, Shaolin, was a hidden dragon, but I didn't expect him to soar into the sky so quickly. Thinking of the things Qilin had sent, Master Su Yuntao couldn't help but swallow hard. Even if he lacked discernment, he knew that what Qilin had given them were heaven-defying treasures. Not to mention the treasures that could pose a threat to a title Duluo or withstand a title Duluo's attacks. Just the pills Qilin had him and Sister Cici consume not only caused their spirits to evolve but even raised their ranks by several levels. Now, both he and Sister Cici had reached rank 40. Such pills were absolutely priceless. Sister Cici also sighed. Indeed, Shaolin's changes are truly too great. Even though it has only been 2 years, it gives me a sense of shock as if I haven't seen him for 20 years. Master Su Yuntao held Sister Cici and nodded, deeply agreeing. After leaving Master Su Yuntao and Sister Cici's home, Qilin stayed at home for another half-month. During this half-month, Qilin's spirit power rank naturally broke through to rank 95, completing the 4th life god trial. Qilin also added another million-year spirit ring to his Profound Ice Qilin spirit. Qilin's Profound Ice Qilin spirit also had 2 second spirit abilities. They were Qilin Step and Qilin Fist. These 2 spirit abilities, Qilin Step involves space. Not only is it unparalleled in speed, but it also possesses killing power and is incredibly domineering. And Qilin Fist possesses absolute strength, and it has a very strong suppressive effect on all evil spirits. Qilin's exaggerated speed of cultivation even alarmed the goddess of life in the god realm, who informed Destruction of this news. After Destruction found out, he was also very happy. Such a genius, if he could join the god realm, would absolutely greatly enhance the god realm's foundation. Subsequently, the goddess of life issued the 5th life god trial for Qilin. Subdue or defeat any spirit beast over 500,000 years old. Completing the trial would grant a god-bestowed spirit ring and 10% life affinity. This task was still not difficult for Qilin. After all, those vicious beasts in the Stardow Great Forest, DTN, Baiji, and the 10,000 Demon King, were all vicious beasts over 500,000 years old. Relying on the relationship between Qilin and Ji Yuina, as long as the latter spoke a word, she could make the 3 of them submit voluntarily. However, Ice Empress contacted Qilin on her own initiative at this time. It turned out that she hoped Qilin would go to the far north to subdue Snow Empress. After all, Snow Empress was also a spirit beast over 500,000 years old. The most important thing was that Snow Empress was also only 1 or 2,000 years away from her next heavenly tribulation. Given her strength, wanting to survive the next heavenly tribulation would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. Ice Empress and Snow Empress were like sisters, so naturally, she did not want to see Snow Empress die under the heavenly tribulation in the future. Therefore, she took the initiative to contact Qilin, wanting Snow Empress to also rely on Qilin. If it were in the past, Ice Empress might have let Qilin absorb Snow Empress's spirit ring, allowing Snow Empress to be like her, with her soul residing in Qilin's sea of consciousness. But now, every god-bestowed spirit ring Qilin obtained had an age reaching 1,000,000 years. Why would he still need Snow Empress's spirit ring? Qilin naturally would not refuse such a small matter. After leaving home, he took everyone on a leisurely journey, and it took nearly a month to arrive at the far north. Meanwhile, just when Qilin and the women were traveling and enjoying their leisure time, Heavendo City, south of the city. A figure wearing a tattered black robe arrived, slightly stumbling, before the main gate of the Strength clan. As soon as he approached, he was immediately stopped by the 2 tall men guarding the gate. The black-robed man's voice was hoarse and low, saying, "I am a good friend of your young clan leader Tai Long, please report this." The men guarding the gate saw this, exchanged glances, and then said in a muffled voice, "Then wait here, I will go report to the young clan leader." After saying this, they ran inside with a thudding sound. Before long, Tai Long walked over from a distance. When he saw the face beneath the black-robed man's black robe, gloomy, eyes bloodshot, and unshaven, he was immediately shocked. Young. Just as he was about to speak, Tang San immediately stepped forward to stop him, whispering, "Let's go inside and talk." "All right, let's go in first." After Tai Long finished speaking, he immediately led Tang San into the Strength clan's assembly hall. Before long, a tall, white-haired, and white-bearded old man walked in from outside with long strides. Upon seeing Tang San, who was dressed in a black robe and looked extremely weathered, he immediately knelt on one knee, cupped his hands, and said, "Tai Tan greets the young lord." After Tang San saw Titan, the gloomy look on his face instantly faded a bit, revealing a slightly forced smile. Senior Titan, please get up. Yes, Titan replied respectfully, then stood up and looked at Tang San with a look of concern. Young lord, why do you look so disheveled? Weren't you picked up by master? Did something happen during this time? Hearing this, Tang San smiled bitterly and immediately recounted what had happened during this period. What? Master, he actually died. Hearing the news of Tang Hao's death, Titan's tall body suddenly went limp, he staggered backward, his face full of disbelief. Master's strength was extraordinary, just after breaking through to title Duluo, he could fight 3 opponents alone. Even the previous Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff died at his hands. Who else in this world could kill him? Tang San gritted his teeth and said, it should be the High Priest of the Spirit Hall. Qian, Dao, Lu. Chapter 223, The Strength Clan, meeting the Snow Empress for the first time. Upon hearing the name Qian Dao Liu, Titan's heart skipped a beat, and he blurted out, to think it was that old thing. Afterwards, a look of reminiscence flashed in Titan's eyes, and he continued to himself, over a decade ago, after Master killed the previous Supreme Pontiff of the Spirit Hall, he forced Qian Dao Liu out, and Qian Dao Liu chased Master repeatedly. However, Master's strength was formidable, and Qian Dao Liu, that old thing, failed to succeed several times in a row. Now, over a decade later, Master's strength would only be even greater. How could he possibly die at the hands of Qian Dao Liu? Tang San heard this, fell silent for a moment, and then said, when I was 6 years old, father was blinded by poison from Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong, and not long ago, he was ambushed by Du Gubo, losing an arm, which greatly damaged his strength. When Tang Hao had his arm severed by Du Gubo, he felt it was shameful, so he only told Tang San that it was caused by an ambush from Du Gubo. Titan was shocked. There is such a thing. Afterwards, he frowned and continued, that Du Gubo is known as the weakest title Duluo, even if Master were blind, he shouldn't be a match for Master, right? Tang San shook his head, a look of hatred flashing in his eyes. Everyone has been deceived by Du Gubo, his spirit power rank is not 91 at all. According to father, his spirit power rank is at least 94 or higher, and his combat ability is extremely formidable. What? This old poison master, his scheming is actually so deep. Titan's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief. Tang San sighed upon hearing this, then grabbed Titan's hands, his expression sincere. Senior Titan, right now, the only person I can rely on is you. Seeing that Tang San trusted him so much, Titan, who was already fiercely loyal to Tang Hao, immediately felt a strong sense of responsibility, as if he had been entrusted with a critical mission and a feeling of being willing to die for one who appreciates him. Bang! In the next second, Titan heavily knelt on one knee again, his expression solemn, and he said solemnly, Young lord, thank you for not abandoning me. Titan is willing to lead the entire clan to follow you to the death, and will never regret it until death. Good. Tang San saw this, said, good, 3 times in a row, and then excitedly helped Titan up. Senior Titan, with your words, Tang San will never let you down. Titan was also full of excitement, then said to his son and grandson beside him, why aren't you hurrying to greet Master? After hearing this, Tai Nuo and Tai Long immediately imitated Titan's posture from just now, knelt on one knee, cupped their hands, and said, Greetings, Master. Tang San saw this, and a flash of joy passed through his eyes. With the full support of the Strength Clan, he would definitely be able to rise quickly. Moreover, there was one most important point. Every member of the Strength Clan was a blacksmith, which gave him a unique advantage in establishing the Tang sect. Thinking of this, a look of high spirits appeared on Tang San's face once again. The far north. Above the frozen wasteland, wind and snow filled the sky. The ladies followed by Qilin's side, chatting and laughing along the way. According to the Ice Empress's guidance, everyone quickly ventured deep into the ice and snow wasteland and arrived in front of an ice crystal palace. The temperature around the ice crystal palace was extremely low, and even the ladies felt a biting chill. However, it was not impossible to resist by circulating their spirit power. The ladies were all very eager to see the legendary dominator of the far north. Especially after hearing Qilin introduce the Snow Empress and learning that the Snow Empress was actually a powerful spirit beast of nearly 700,000 years, they felt even more incredulous. In their impression, a 100,000-year spirit beast was already the most top-tier existence among spirit beasts. Reaching this level, if it did not transform into human form, it would die after living at most a few thousand more years. It wasn't until Qilin educated them that they realized that as long as a 100,000-year spirit beast survived the heavenly tribulation, it could continue to live. And every 100,000 years thereafter, the spirit beast would undergo a heavenly tribulation. Just as everyone arrived at the Ice Crystal Palace, on a profound ice bed in the deepest part of the palace, a cold and stunning figure silently opened her eyes, and a pair of cold, clear eyes suddenly looked outside the palace. Humans. There was a hint of confusion in the Snow Empress's voice. One must know that for the outside world, this place was the forbidden land of forbidden lands. To think that humans were bold enough to venture deep into this place. Are they not afraid of death? Coming in a group to throw their lives away. Thinking of this, a flash of snowy white color flickered in the Snow Empress's eyes, and then a terrifying pressure erupted from her body, emitting an icy aura, causing the temperature in this area to plummet once again. Forbidden land of the far north, those who dare to approach again, die. The cold, clear voice echoed between heaven and earth, reaching the ears of Qilin and the others. Accompanying it was the Snow Empress's extremely terrifying pressure. However, Qilin waved his hand, and a touch of brilliant golden radiance flashed from his palm like a fleeting shadow, instantly enveloping everyone. After touching the brilliant golden radiance, the Snow Empress's pressure instantly melted away like snow under the sun. Subsequently, Qilin communicated with the Ice Empress, allowing the Ice Empress's soul origin to connect with the outside world. The Ice Empress said, Snow Empress, it is me. Inside the Ice Crystal Palace, the Snow Empress heard this familiar voice in the soul origin, and her expression was slightly stunned. Binger, why is she here too? The Snow Empress frowned slightly, because just now she had not sensed the Ice Empress's aura, but now the Ice Empress's aura had suddenly appeared. What was going on? The Snow Empress's brows slightly tightened, then she gracefully rose from the profound ice bed, and her figure suddenly disappeared from where she was. In the next second, she appeared in front of Qilin and the ladies. Everyone looked at the suddenly appearing Snow Empress, slightly stunned. Such a beautiful woman. The Snow Empress's appearance was that of a human, looking like a young woman of 17 or 18, with long, soft hair as white as snow, and eyes that were sky blue, looking extremely ethereal. Besides that, her skin was snow white, her appearance was stunning and flawless, and standing barefoot in this ice and snow, she looked just like an ice and snow elf. Although Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, Zhu Zuqing, and others were all beauties, compared to the Snow Empress, they were still slightly inferior. Among everyone, only Ji Yuina's appearance and temperament could rival hers, or even be slightly better. She is the Snow Empress. I heard Brother Qilin say that the Snow Empress's true form is the Ice Snow Maiden. Her appearance is no different from a human, and she is an elf born in this far north. She is indeed beautiful. There was a hint of envy in the lady's tone. The Snow Empress ignored the lady's discussion and looked at Qilin. She could feel that the Ice Empress's aura and soul origin were emanating from the body of the human youth in front of her. The Snow Empress frowned and said, "Human, how could the Ice Empress's soul origin appear inside your body?" Qilin saw this and smiled. "Let the Ice Empress explain it to you." After speaking, Qilin raised his hand and summoned. A bright green light shot out from the center of his forehead, and then transformed into a small, exquisite bright green scorpion. The moment she saw the Ice Empress, the Snow Empress's pupils slightly constricted. Binger. Chapter 224, Snow Empress follows, 6 spirit abilities, self-condensing god position. Shuai, the Ice Empress looked at the Snow Empress, her voice slightly excited. The relationship between her and the Snow Empress was very special. Although they were not of the same race, and even of the same gender, they cherished each other. Bringing Qilin here this time was to let the Snow Empress also latch onto Qilin's success, so that everyone could become gods together in the future and live forever. Compared to the Ice Empress's excitement, a hint of gravity appeared in the Snow Empress's ice blue eyes as she asked, "Binger, why are you inside this human's body?" It's a long story. Seeing this, the Ice Empress immediately introduced Qilin to the Snow Empress and told her about her experiences. After listening, the Snow Empress frowned slightly. "Binger, you mean, you want me to be like you, sacrifice myself to this human, and survive in his sea of consciousness in the form of my soul origin, waiting for him to become a god and take us with him?" The Snow Empress looked at the Ice Empress. She wasn't worried that the Ice Empress would trick her, but rather that the Ice Empress had been deceived by Qilin. What if Qilin went back on his word after becoming a god and didn't take them with him? Currently, the Snow Empress had not yet reached the desperate situation from the original story, so naturally, she would not easily sacrifice herself to become Qilin's spirit ring. The Ice Empress heard this and said awkwardly, "Shuai, you misunderstood. I'm not asking you to sacrifice yourself like I did, just simply wanting you to stay by Qilin's side." Ah, the Snow Empress was stunned. If she wasn't being asked to sacrifice, then why come to find her? The Ice Empress continued, "Shuai, Qilin is currently undergoing the life god trial from one of the 5 god kings of the god realm. Every time he completes an assessment, the god-bestowed spirit ring he obtains is a million-year one, so, your spirit ring age might not be enough." Upon hearing this, the Snow Empress's face, which looked like that of a nice spirit, visibly showed a trace of embarrassment. But suddenly, she reacted and looked at Qilin in disbelief. "Binger, you mean his god-bestowed spirit ring age has reached a million years?" "Yes. Qilin has twin spirits, and starting from the 7th spirit ring of his first spirit, they have all been million-year spirit rings." As she spoke, the Ice Empress's tone suddenly became dejected. "Shuai, I might become the spirit ring with the lowest age in Qilin's 2nd spirit." To think that she, the Ice Empress, was a spirit beast of nearly 400,000 years, yet she unexpectedly became the spirit ring with the lowest age in someone's spirit. In the past, who would believe this if it were said out loud? This. Even as cold and detached as the Snow Empress, the expression on her face suddenly became incredibly rich. The women on the side were equally shocked and immediately began chatting noisily. They were also learning for the first time that Qilin had actually been chosen by a god king. At this moment, the Ice Empress continued, "Shuai, I came to find you this time because I hope you can stay by Qilin's side. Believe me, as long as you stay by Qilin's side, you will definitely have a chance to become a god." She knew that Qilin was very extraordinary, even the Silver Dragon King stayed by his side, and even the consciousness of gods had stumbled on him. Look at the others around him, which one of them didn't start soaring only after following Qilin? After listening, a look of being moved flashed across the Snow Empress's cheeks. Seeing this, the Ice Empress continued, "Shuai, what are you still hesitating for? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." All right then, the Snow Empress finally agreed. She knew her situation very well. With her strength, it was highly likely she wouldn't survive the 700,000-year heavenly tribulation. Rather than waiting for death in the far north, it was better to follow Qilin. She trusted the Ice Empress. Since the Ice Empress said that following Qilin could lead to becoming a god, it meant there must be other special aspects to Qilin. However, the Snow Empress looked at the group of beauties following Qilin and couldn't help but have a thought. This male human has so many partners, but since I am a spirit beast, he shouldn't have any other thoughts about me, right? Even if he did, it would be useless. Although he looks very handsome, the only one I like is Binger. After agreeing to stay by Qilin's side, the Snow Empress, at Qilin's signal, verbally expressed her submission to Qilin. In an instant, the 5th test of the life god trial was completed. Qilin once again obtained a god-bestowed spirit ring, as well as 10% life affinity. So far, his life affinity had already reached 30%. And the 6th test of the life god trial was triggered accordingly. Assessment content: learn the divine ability, Eternal Grief, within 3 years. After completing the assessment, one could obtain 2 god-bestowed spirit rings and 10% life affinity. Eternal Grief was one of the unique skills created by the goddess of life after countless years. However, this task was like child's play for Qilin. Activating his 6th spirit ability, Qilin immediately entered a state of epiphany, directly experiencing it on the spot. Not long after, the 6th test of the life god trial was easily completed. Such terrifying speed made even the goddess of life in the god realm exclaim that he was a freak. How could a human possess such terrifying talent? You must know, this was a unique skill she had created after countless years. Even for fellow gods, it would be impossible to learn it so easily. However, this was also a good thing for the god realm. The stronger Qilin became, the deeper the god realm's future foundation would be. Thus, the goddess of life immediately issued the content of the 7th test of the life god trial to Qilin. Within 3 years, assist any spirit master to obtain the recognition of a god. After completing the assessment, one could still obtain 2 god-bestowed spirit rings and 10% life affinity. As for this assessment, it still wasn't a difficult task for Qilin. Not to mention anything else, just the group of beauties around him all had the potential to become gods under his assistance. It would just take a little time. Afterward, Qilin absorbed the 3 accumulated god-bestowed spirit rings one after another. He obtained 6 more spirit abilities: Qilin Roar, Qilin Shield, Qilin Heavenly Eye, Qilin Divine Light, Sun and Moon Divine Wheel, and Heaven and Earth Auspiciousness. The effect of each spirit ability was no less than the previously obtained Qilin Step and Qilin Fist. Especially Heaven and Earth Auspiciousness, which was an auxiliary divine ability that could only be used once a month. If used on a region, it could ensure favorable weather and a good harvest for 50 years in that area. If used on the same area for a long time, it could nourish all things. Not only could it change the energy of heaven and earth in that area, but it could also cause many heaven and earth treasures, and even rare items of heaven and earth, to be born within the region. After absorbing the 3 god-bestowed spirit rings, Qilin's spirit power rank also instantly soared to rank 98. For the Duluo continent, he had almost reached the limit. Qilin even guessed that if he didn't complete all the assessments of the goddess of life quickly, it might not be long before he would automatically condense a god position and become a god. By then, what kind of god should he be called? Qilin pondered. God of luck. God of Qilin. God of auspiciousness. Everyone think of one. Chapter 225, Qian Runshui can no longer sit still, visiting the Xiao family. After the Snow Empress decided to leave the far north with Qilin, she did not depart immediately but instead released her order to locate the Ice Bear King. The Ice Bear King, Xiaobai, was her adopted son, a little bear cub she had taken in shortly after she first claimed the title of Empress in the far north, and now, it was a vicious beast of over 200,000 years. After finding Xiaobai, the Snow Empress informed him of her plan to leave. The far north still needed someone to guard it. Although Xiaobai was reluctant to part, this concerned the continuation of the Snow Empress's life, so he could only watch as the Snow Empress and Qilin's group departed. After leaving with Qilin and the other women, the Snow Empress finally understood why the Ice Empress had said that staying by Qilin's side would guarantee becoming a god. Every day, Qilin would cast his first spirit ability on her and the others. With Qilin's current strength, when the amplification landed on her, even the Snow Empress could easily perceive the changes in her body. Qilin's first spirit ability actually possessed a permanent amplification effect. Beyond spirit power, her strength, speed, and defense were all increasing in every aspect. If even the Snow Empress was like this, then the growth in Xiao Wu and the other strength was naturally even more pronounced. Basically, they could achieve a breakthrough every 10 days or so. When they returned to Heavendo City, even Ning Rongrong, Zhu Zuqing, and Yi Lingling had successfully reached rank 60. Then there was Shui Ling. The little maid's spirit power rank was also soaring rapidly, and because her spirit power rank was low, her growth speed was even more astonishing, reaching rank 40. Afterwards, the group went together to the Sunset Forest to obtain spirit rings. Just after absorbing the spirit rings, Du Guyan's spirit power rank directly reached rank 64, Yi Lingling's reached rank 62, and Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong reached rank 61. As for Xiao Wu, she had long since condensed a spirit ring for herself. With Qilin present, she didn't shy away from anything and condensed her 6th spirit ring right in front of the other women. She had now reached rank 66, remaining the leading rabbit among the women. As for the little maid Shui Ling, following Xiao Wu, she also absorbed a 10,000-year level 4th spirit ring. Moreover, it was not an ordinary 10,000-year spirit ring, its age reached 23,000 years, and her spirit power rank soared to rank 45. This was naturally due to the long-term consumption of medicinal pills. It wasn't just her. Apart from not having a 10,000-year 4th spirit ring, the other women's spirit ring ages also far exceeded those of spirit masters at the same level, mainly because they had suffered from not consuming enough medicinal pills early on. After all, back then, the women didn't eat the medicinal pills refined by Qilin like candy as they did now. However, at this rate, it was still very likely that they would be able to withstand a 100,000-year spirit ring by their 7th spirit ring. After returning to Heavendo Academy, Qian Runshui immediately arrived upon hearing the news. Upon learning that Xiao Wu and the other spirit power ranks had already reached over rank 60, she was completely stunned. Ever since she met Qilin, she had put more effort into cultivating, but even so, she had only just barely managed to break through to rank 70. Compared to Xiao Wu and the others' cultivation speed, there was simply no comparison. At this moment, she even doubted who exactly had the innate rank 20 spirit power. In the end, Qian Runshui couldn't hold back and asked about the secret behind the fast cultivation speed of Xiao Wu and the others. This wasn't really a secret, even Yu Feng, Oslo, and the others knew about it, they just hadn't leaked it. When she learned that Qilin's 1st spirit ability and 6th spirit ability could actually assist in cultivation, Qian Runshui was immediately astounded, and she finally understood why those who had a good relationship with Qilin cultivated so quickly. And after Qilin also cast his 1st spirit ability on her, from that day on, Qian Runshui came to Heavendo Academy almost every day to see Qilin. Moreover, most of the time, she met Qilin in her true form. There was no other way. The Crown Prince had to deal with a pile of government affairs every day, so how could she have time to meet Qilin daily? Besides that, the reason Qian Runshui went to see Qilin every day was, on one hand, to increase her spirit power rank faster, and on the other hand, it was due to the sense of urgency that had arisen in her heart. She had originally thought that since she had the potential to become a god and Qilin also had the potential to become a god, the two of them were a perfect match. Although Qilin now had ambiguous relationships with many women, she was the only one who could truly accompany him to the end. Therefore, Qian Runshui had never been in a rush. But now it was different. With Qilin's help, she feared that others might also have a chance to become gods, so if she didn't take the initiative, she was afraid she wouldn't even get a taste of the soup when the time came. Therefore, Qian Runshui decisively decided to take the initiative. If there was no opportunity, she would create one. As time passed, the Tianu girl group and Huo Wu successfully arrived in Heavendo City. Lu Along would also occasionally come to visit Heavendo Academy at Xiao Wu's invitation. For a time, Heavendo Academy was filled with stunning beauties, all vying for attention. Dupo World, Jama Empire, Wudin City. On the streets of the Xiao family market, the sounds of hawking and selling were endless. A young boy and girl, looking like a golden boy and jade girl, walked side by side on the street. Wherever they passed, pedestrians would subconsciously cast a glance in their direction. The young man was dressed in white, with a tall and straight figure and handsome features. The lines of his face carried a touch of softness, and his whole body exuded a gentle and lazy aura, like an elegant young master, as gentle as jade. The young girl was wearing a long purple dress, with a stunningly beautiful face and an elegant temperament, like a lotus in the mundane world. Although she had not yet fully matured, she already possessed a beauty that could topple cities and kingdoms. This pair, looking like a golden boy and jade girl, was none other than Qilin and Xiao Shuaner. Only, unlike in the past, this time Qilin did not just chat briefly with Xiao Shuaner before returning to Duluo continent, instead, he had temporarily stayed at the Xiao family as a guest. This was also because of Xiao Shuaner's request. She wanted Qilin to stay and accompany her for a few more days. Qilin naturally agreed, which was why they were out shopping today. He had changed out of the Duluo continent style clothes he was originally wearing and put on the white clothes Xiao Shuaner had specially prepared for him. At first glance, he looked no different from a local aristocratic young master. Brother Qilin, you look so handsome wearing this, the people passing by are all looking at you. Zuner held Qilin's arm, saying with a giggle, a bright smile on her fair little face. They aren't looking at me, they are looking at both of us. Qilin smiled gently, then brought Xiao Shuener to a jewelry stall and personally helped her pick out a bracelet inlaid with a bright green gemstone. The green gemstone inlaid on this bracelet was actually a rank 1 magic core. If worn for a long time, this bracelet could use the weak wood attribute energy within the magic core to nourish the body. Of course, the effect was weak, and the craftsmanship was not considered very exquisite in Qilin's eyes, but it was already the most precious item at the small stall. If Qilin used the same materials, he could create a more exquisite bracelet with better functions. However, when out shopping, how could one not spend money? Not only did one have to spend, but one had to spend lavishly. Chapter 226, Meeting Xiao Yan on the road, Yao Lao's praise, innate alchemy holy body. After buying the bracelet, Qilin personally put it on Xiao Shuener. Her wrist was milky white and slender, and touching it gave a soft sensation. Looking at Qilin's gentle movements, a flush rose on Xiao Shuener's cheeks, and a trace of shyness flashed in her eyes. Next, Qilin and Xiao Shuener took another stroll through the market, buying things all along the way. Looking at this golden couple, the surrounding merchants smiled incredibly brightly. Whenever the two of them stopped in front of a stall, the merchants would pour out flattering words as if they cost nothing. In the eyes of these merchants, these two were their gods of wealth. If they could make them happy, they might buy a few more things from their stalls. As expected, listening to the beautiful words of these merchants, especially when she heard things like a talented man and beautiful woman, a match made in heaven, a golden couple, and looking like husband and wife, the smile brimming on Xiao Shuener's fair little face was completely undisguised. One had to know that Xiao Shuener was an absolute little rich girl. When she was happy, she would wave her hand and take whatever she fancied, never bargaining. Qilin, on the other hand, followed beside Xiao Shuener, only speaking occasionally. This was because some merchants, seeing this, tried to play clever tricks. They would first flatter Xiao Shuener and Qilin, while secretly jacking up the prices. Facing such unscrupulous merchants, Qilin was not so easygoing. It so happened that he had created a little technique called the Qilin luck devouring method, which could devour others' luck. Facing such unscrupulous merchants, Qilin directly devoured a portion of their luck. Although it wouldn't kill them, they would be plagued by bad luck, making them suffer the consequences of their own actions. Instead of gaining wealth, they faced the risk of losing it. After walking around the market, just as the two of them were about to return to the Xiao family, a slightly thin figure suddenly caught their eyes. Xiao Yan. Qilin looked at the thin youth not far away and recognized his identity. Xiao Yan was wearing black martial attire. His face was handsome, and while not top tier, he could be considered quite good-looking. Seemingly sensing Qilin's gaze, Xiao Yan turned his head and immediately spotted Xiao Shuener standing together with him like a golden couple. In the original novel, Xiao Yan had snuck into Xiao Shuener's room in the middle of the night to warm and nourish her meridians, which had left a deep impression on her. This was also why, during the years when Xiao Yan was reduced to a useless person, Xiao Shuener had always stayed by his side and never abandoned him. But now, due to Qilin's intrusion, as soon as Xiao Yan snuck into Xiao Shuener's room, he was knocked unconscious by Qilin falling out of nowhere. With Xiao Shuener's cold and aloof personality, without this experience, she naturally wouldn't view Xiao Yan in a different light. After all, with the talent Xiao Yan had displayed, it might be decent in the northwest continent, but it was far from top tier in the central plains. Xiao Yan's true talent was in alchemy. Seeing Qilin and Xiao Shuener, Xiao Yan was slightly taken aback. After a brief thought, he still waved and greeted them. Cousin Zuner, and this. Xiao Yan wanted to greet Qilin, but didn't know how to address him. Qilin's previous appearances had all been in Xiao Shuener's private chamber, so Xiao Yan had no impression of him. As for what happened over 10 years ago, Xiao Yan had been knocked unconscious before he could even see Qilin's face clearly, so it was naturally even more impossible for him to remember Qilin. Qilin looked at Xiao Yan and greeted him with a smile. Hello, my name is Qilin. Qilin, hearing Qilin's introduction, an unusual look flashed in Xiao Yan's eyes. Having transmigrated to the Fighting Qi continent for over 10 years, he had never heard of Qilin's existing in this world as well. Hearing Qilin's name now, his thoughts instantly drifted away. However, after 3 years of settling down, Xiao Yan's personality had long become steady, and he quickly snapped out of it. It should just be a homophone. After recovering, Xiao Yan also cupped his fists to Qilin and said, I am Xiao Yan, nice to meet you. Cousin Xiao Yan, are you purchasing medicinal herbs? Xiao Shuener looked at Xiao Yan curiously. Ever since Xiao Yan's marriage agreement was dissolved by Nolan Yanran, he had been keeping a low profile for the past few months. However, Xiao Shuener had still seen him a few times and knew that his talent had returned. Especially looking at him today, she discovered that his strength had actually recovered to the 6th stage of Doji Qi. If this continued, in another 2 months, when the Xiao family's coming-of-age ceremony prediction took place, his strength might reach the 7th stage of Doji Qi. In just a few short months, Xiao Yan had actually made a breakthrough from the 3rd stage of Doji Qi to the current 6th stage of Doji Qi. It seemed he had also had some other fortuitous encounter. Moreover, this fortuitous encounter should be related to Xiao Yan coming to the market to purchase medicinal herbs. There was just one thing that puzzled Xiao Shuener. Even if there was a mysterious alchemist standing behind Xiao Yan, during the Doji Qi stage, one's meridians were weak and fragile, unable to withstand the effects of even the lowest tier 1 medicinal pill. Even if Xiao Yan bought the herbs, what use would they be? Qilin, however, knew the reason. Xiao Yan was buying these herbs probably to have Yao Lao refine the foundation establishment elixir for him. Xiao Yan's gaze lingered on Xiao Shuener and Qilin for a moment. His teacher had said before that this girl Zuner's background was not simple, and the temperament Qilin exuded was equally extraordinary. With their knowledge, it was only normal for them to make some guesses upon seeing him purchase medicinal herbs. Thus, Xiao Yan smiled calmly and nodded without saying anything. Seeing this, Xiao Shuener did not ask further. Who didn't have a few secrets? She then smiled faintly and said, then cousin Xiao Yan, please carry on with your business. Brother Qilin and I will head back first. Seeing that Xiao Shuener did not press further, Xiao Yan smiled faintly with a calm expression. Cousin Zuner, Brother Qi, take care. Qilin nodded slightly, and with Xiao Shuener holding his arm, he walked past Xiao Yan. Watching them walk away, Xiao Yan instantly breathed a sigh of relief. Their lack of prying made him feel quite favorable toward them. Right at this moment, Yao Lao's slightly aged voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Little Yan, the young man beside that young girl just now is not simple. If he possesses the wood-infused fire attribute of an alchemist, he would definitely be a natural talent for alchemy. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was slightly taken aback. This was the first time he had seen his teacher give someone such a high evaluation. Afterward, Xiao Yan quickly bought the herbs he needed from the stall. On the way back, he asked curiously, Teacher, is there something special about that Brother Qi? To be honest, Qilin gave Xiao Yan a very good first impression. Because during the 3 years when Xiao Yan's strength regressed, his hard nature had been well-tempered, and the cold mockery and ridicule from others had given him his own unique way of reading people. On Qilin, Xiao Yan could not see any aura associated with darkness. It was as if he were truly a noble young master of a chaotic world stepping out of a painting. If he were to describe him with a phrase from his past life, it would be: a gentleman is like jade on the road, a young master peerless in the world. Chapter 227, Xiao Yan's feeling of inferiority. Honestly speaking, Qilin being handsome is one thing, and having a good temperament is another, but Xiao Yan didn't expect him to be so outstanding as well. You have to know, his teacher was once a top-tier alchemist who shook the continent. He didn't even hold Pilking Jiuhe in high regard, and his standards were incredibly high. Yet even his teacher held Qilin in such high regard. Even Xiao Yan felt a sense of inferiority in his heart when facing such a Qilin. Damn it, why does it feel like this brother Qi is somewhat like a novel protagonist? Xiao Yan muttered secretly in his heart. At this moment, the voice of the medicine elder continued to ring out. Little Yanzi, that little fellow named Qilin earlier is not simple. Judging by the aura overflowing from him, I fear his strength has already reached the Doking level, and what is most terrifying is his mental force. To be honest, even I cannot perceive the specific realm of his mental force. I only know it is definitely not weak, far exceeding yours. If he can practice alchemy, his future achievements will be absolutely immeasurable. After listening, Xiao Yan couldn't help but mutter to himself, Brother Qi is truly enviable. The medicine elder laughed. Haha, little Yanzi, you don't need to belittle yourself. Although your talent might not compare to that young man, don't you still have me? Rest assured, with me here, your future achievements will definitely not be any worse than his. Hearing his teacher's comfort, a spark of spirit immediately returned to Xiao Yan's eyes, and he laughed heartily. Teacher is right, and I believe in teacher. Ha ha ha, alright, let's go back first. I will refine the foundation establishment elixir for you, ensuring you reach the 7th stage of Doji Chi before the adult ceremony prediction. Thinking of the approaching adult ceremony prediction, a flash of anticipation crossed Xiao Yan's eyes. This time, he would use reality to tell everyone that he, Xiao Yan, had returned. After Xiao Shuiner and Qilin returned to the Xiao family, that evening, the Xiao family clan chief, Xiao Zan, personally visited Qilin. As the clan chief of the Xiao family, Xiao Zan was very clear that Xiao Shuiner's background was not simple. Although he didn't know why her father had entrusted her to the Xiao family, her background was likely even more powerful than the 3 great families of the Jama Empire. Over these years, although Xiao Shuiner seemed polite to everyone, she always maintained a faint distance from others. And Qilin was the first man in so many years to be so highly regarded by Xiao Shuiner. Given her discernment, Qilin's identity was likely not simple either. Therefore, upon learning that Qilin would be staying at the Xiao family for a few days, Xiao Zan immediately decided to visit in person to meet Qilin. Sure enough, after seeing Qilin, with just a single glance, Xiao Zan confirmed his suspicions. Qilin's identity and background were definitely not simple. This temperament alone was not something that a common small family could cultivate. Of course, there was another reason. With his status as a dignified 6-star Great Dough Master, he actually couldn't see through this young man's realm. Uncle Xiao, Xiao Shuiner greeted Xiao Zan first upon seeing him. Qilin also followed by cupping his hands and smiling. You must be Clan Chief Xiao, it is a pleasure to meet you. I am troubling the Xiao family by staying here for these few days. Xiao Zan smiled in return and cupped his hands. Young friend, you are too polite. It is the honor of our Xiao family that you have come to visit. You may stay as long as you like, our Xiao family welcomes you at any time. The two exchanged pleasantries for a while, and naturally, both host and guests were pleased. As the clan chief of the Xiao family, Xiao Zan considered himself to have some discernment. Now that he had encountered a young prodigy like Qilin whom he couldn't see through, he naturally wanted to befriend him. Even if they didn't forge a deep friendship, establishing a good connection would be beneficial. After all, a good connection is something that can sometimes save one's life. Afterwards, Xiao Zan personally arranged an exquisite courtyard for Qilin adjacent to Xiao Shuiner's, and ordered people to replace all the furniture with new ones. After arranging everything, Xiao Zan left with peace of mind. The news of Qilin staying as a guest in the Xiao family quickly spread throughout the Xiao family. In fact, when Qilin and Xiao Shuiner went shopping in the Xiao family market today, many members of the Xiao family saw them. Especially Xiao Shuiner's closeness to Qilin, which caused a great sensation among the younger generation of the Xiao family. After all, Xiao Shuiner could be considered a goddess figure in the Xiao family. Countless members of the younger generation of the Xiao family were infatuated with her, and the Grand Elder's grandson, Xiao Ning, was especially devoted to her. However, Xiao Shuiner had never been close to anyone before. Yet now, she was actually so close to a man. Seeing this scene, or hearing this news, many members of the Xiao family were heartbroken. At the same time, they naturally developed a strong curiosity about Qilin, the culprit behind this. Just who was this person that could receive the closeness of Cousin Zuner? What was so special about him? In a courtyard, Xiao Ning heard this news from his underling, his expression stunned, and then he suddenly let out a sound. No. How could this be? How could Cousin Zuner suddenly be so close to a strange man? Xiao Ning looked miserable. Looking at his underling Xiao Li who had come to pass on the message, he grabbed his hand tightly and said in a deep voice, Cousin Xiao Li, since you saw that man, do you know his identity? Xiao Li heard this and hesitated. Cousin Xiao Ning, I don't know that person either, but judging by his appearance, he shouldn't be from Wudin City, and... Xiao Li glanced at Xiao Ning and finally continued hesitantly. Cousin Xiao Ning, the person Cousin Zuner is close to looks like his identity is not simple. That temperament, to put it bluntly, we really can't compare to him. I fear he is a disciple from those great families or great powers. After listening, the expression on Xiao Ning's face stiffened, and he asked disbelievingly, Cousin Xiao Li, isn't that too exaggerated? How can you judge just by appearance and temperament? What if he's just a pretty boy? Hearing this, the corner of Xiao Li's mouth twitched. He naturally knew that Xiao Ning liked Xiao Shuiner. The reason he said this now was mainly because he was unwilling to accept the reality that Xiao Shuiner liked someone else. Therefore, Xiao Li said speechlessly, whether he is a pretty boy or not, Cousin Xiao Ning will know once you see him. On the way when Qilin and Xiao Shuiner went to the market, Xiao Li had actually seen Qilin clearly from a distance, which was why he had reached that conclusion earlier. One could only say that Qilin's recognizability was truly too strong. One could feel the extraordinary nature about him at a single glance. After listening, the expression on Xiao Ning's face shifted. Looking at Xiao Li's serious expression, in his heart, he had actually already accepted what Xiao Li said. However, he still held a sliver of hope, wanting to see what Qilin looked like that could make Xiao Li give such an evaluation. What if he really was just a pretty boy? Chapter 228, Worship from Zuner. During the few days Qilin stayed at the Xiao family, he naturally wasn't by Xiao Shuiner's side every single moment. Instead, after obtaining Xiao Zhan's consent, he headed to the Xiao family's Do Technique Pavilion. Of course, Qilin didn't have the audacity to simply ask Xiao Zhan for permission directly. Instead, he went on a shopping spree in the Xiao family's marketplace, buying up all the medicinal herbs currently in circulation that caught his eye. Afterward, he directly cast Looting Creation, releasing the Looting Divine Fire. Then, just like when he refined the Creation Heaven Mending Pill previously, he tossed all the medicinal pills he had bought into it. In the end, he refined a total of 18 medicinal pills. Qilin tasted one. While the taste was decent, his spirit power also experienced a certain degree of growth. Oh wait, not spirit power. After his transmigration here, the spirit power within his body had already been converted into the local doji under the influence of the Destiny Qilin art. Qilin directly gave Xiao Zhan 3 of these medicinal pills. One reason was his payment for his stay at the Xiao family over these past few days, and the second was his compensation for accessing the Xiao family's Do Technique Pavilion. Although Xiao Zhan was not an alchemist and didn't know many medicinal pills. But when Qilin took out the pills he had refined, Xiao Zhan instantly judged from the medicinal fragrance permeating from them that the grade of the pills Qilin was offering was definitely not low. As the Xiao clan chief, he had once consumed a tier 3 medicinal pill, but the fragrance of the tier 3 pill he had consumed back then still did not compare to the one before him. Therefore, upon learning that Qilin actually intended to give such pills to him, and 3 of them at that, even Xiao Zhan's heart began to beat uncontrollably and rapidly. For this reason, he even specifically confirmed it with Qilin again. The result he received remained unchanged. Precisely because of this, when Qilin proposed going to the Xiao family's Do Technique Pavilion, although Xiao Zhan felt puzzled, he still readily agreed. He was even willing to lend the Xiao family's strongest cultivation technique, the Berserker's Furious Qi, to Qilin for him to read, provided that Qilin would not spread the cultivation technique externally. Since Xiao Zhan was so accommodating, Qilin naturally wouldn't be coy. Afterward, he simply immersed himself in the Do Technique Pavilion. It must be said, the Xiao family's Do Technique Pavilion really had some substance, allowing Qilin to find many high-ranked Do techniques. Unfortunately, they were either severely incomplete or extremely severely incomplete. He could barely find any that were whole. Qilin guessed that these incomplete high-ranked Do technique scripts were likely left behind by the Xiao clan from 1,000 years ago, and were lost as the eras changed. Over the next few days, Qilin would browse through cultivation techniques and Do techniques in the Do Technique Pavilion during the day. He would return in the evening, either to spar with Xiao Shuaner or accompany her for tea and conversation. Of course, when sparring with Xiao Shuaner, Qilin would control his strength to be 1 or 2 minor realms lower than Xiao Shuaner's, and then use the Do techniques he had learned in the Xiao family's Do Technique Pavilion to spar with her. Xiao Shuaner was now 15, but thanks to the Qilin Jade pendant that Qilin had gifted her, she did not have to suffer the pain in her meridians caused by the Golden Emperor's sky-burning flame, allowing her to cultivate with peace of mind. This resulted in her strength far exceeding the original work, having already reached the level of a 9-star Great Do Master. In the original work, Xiao Shuaner's cultivation was low, which was likely due to her appearing too early. Xiao Yan's disciple, Yu Quan, was a 17-year-old Do Wang, so here, Xiao Shuaner is arranged to be a 15-year-old 9-star Great Do Master. The Xiao family's back mountain. Since Xiao Shuaner's strength had reached the 9-star Great Do Master level, they naturally couldn't spar in the courtyard. And the Xiao family's back mountain naturally became an excellent place for the two of them to spar. Qilin and Xiao Shuaner traded blows, their figures moving extremely fast. Sometimes they would touch and separate, other times they would parry and counter, easily exchanging dozens or hundreds of moves. Their continuous collisions caused the wind to howl around them, and the sound of muffled thunder echoed incessantly. After more than 10 minutes, Xiao Shuaner was drenched in fragrant sweat, her cherry lips slightly parted as she panted softly. She looked at Qilin with her fair, pretty face filled with admiration and said, "Brother Qilin, you are amazing. Even though you already controlled your strength to be lower than mine, I am still no match for you." Of course, this was only one of the reasons for Xiao Shuaner's admiration. What she admired even more was that Qilin had only used some yellow rank low level and yellow rank intermediate Do techniques, yet was still able to defeat her. One had to know that the cultivation technique she practiced was one of the top-tier cultivation techniques of the ancient clan, and in the sparring session just now with Qilin, the Do techniques she had used were at least profound rank, yet she had still lost. Qilin smiled slightly upon hearing this. The reason he could win so easily after suppressing his strength was mainly because after learning those Xiao family Do techniques, he had casually improved them a bit, making yellow rank low level become yellow rank intermediate, or even yellow rank high level. And those that were originally yellow rank high level Do techniques could even be improved by him into profound rank Do techniques. Besides that, Qilin's mastery of these Do techniques had also reached an inconceivable level. This is the charm of epiphany. An epiphany now and then feels great, continuous epiphany feels even better. Furthermore, Qilin had also browsed through all of the Xiao family's cultivation techniques. With a rich reserve of knowledge, whether he continued to improve his own Destiny Qilin art, or helped Xiao Wu and the others improve the Wind Spirit Moon Shadow technique he had prepared for them, he could do it all. After the sparring, Qilin directly acted as Xiao Shuaner's Do technique teacher. He first had Xiao Shuaner teach him the Do techniques she had mastered, and then, right in front of her, after just 40 or 50 minutes of epiphany, he had completely improved and mastered those few profound rank Do techniques she had taught him. When Xiao Shuaner watched Qilin perform those few Do techniques of hers exactly as they were, but with power more than 10 times greater than her own, Xiao Shuaner was completely stunned. "This are the Do techniques Brother Qilin and I used, really the same ones." "Brother Qilin, how did you do that?" After a brief shock, it was followed by Xiao Shuaner's gaze, which was filled with admiration. Not to mention Xiao Shuaner, even Ling Yang, who was secretly observing all of this, almost had his jaw drop in shock. If he hadn't seen Xiao Shuaner teaching Qilin these few Do techniques with his own eyes, Ling Yang might have even thought that Qilin had already practiced these Do techniques long ago. Looking at Xiao Shuaner's expression of shock and admiration, Qilin smiled and said, "A little bit of talent and a whole lot of luck." After all, the probability of triggering the epiphany effect for his 6th spirit ability was extremely low. Ever since he obtained this spirit ability, Qilin had cast it on Xiao Wu and the others so many times, yet not a single one of them had experienced an epiphany. Luck. Xiao Shuaner looked curious, but she didn't believe Qilin's explanation. Brother Qilin was clearly just being modest. This was obviously talent. What did it have to do with luck? Seeing that Xiao Shuaner didn't believe him, Qilin didn't continue to explain, but instead cast a purifying divine light on her as well. The result was obvious. Xiao Shuaner also failed to trigger the epiphany effect of the purifying divine light. However, she still felt the sensation of her soul being cleansed, leaving her feeling refreshed and invigorated. Moreover, Xiao Shuaner also felt that her current cultivation speed seemed to be faster than before. What kind of Do technique is this? How miraculous! Chapter 229, Xiao Zhan's Contingency, the final legacy of the Xiao clan. After Qilin applied the purifying divine light to Xiao Xuan'er, he immediately began to guide her in her Do techniques. Given Qilin's current understanding of the Do techniques they had just practiced, guiding Xiao Xuan'er was effortless. Under the influence of the purifying divine light, although Xiao Xuan'er did not experience an epiphany, her soul was cleansed, allowing her heart to enter a wondrous, ethereal state. In this state, Xiao Xuan'er found that not only was her cultivation twice as effective with half the effort, but her practice of Do techniques was equally efficient. Furthermore, she had the benefit of Qilin's guidance. Therefore, under Qilin's tutelage, it did not take long for her to gain a brand new understanding and mastery of those few Do techniques. Brother Qilin, you are so amazing. Under the moonlight, the young girl's face was filled with admiration. Seeing this, a sense of accomplishment welled up in Qilin's heart, and he waved his hand nonchalantly. Just a basic operation, you'll get used to it. Afterward, the two sat on the mountain peak, enjoying the moon and chatting, returning only late at night. On their way back, they happened to run into Xiao Yan, who was cultivating halfway up the mountain. The guy was shirtless and alone, yet his body was covered in bruises, looking as if he had been struck by heavy objects. Cousin Xiao Yan, is this some kind of Do technique practice? Such a self-mutilating method, it looks like a body-refining Do technique. Xiao Xuan'er and Qilin stood not far away, and after witnessing the injuries on Xiao Yan's body, she immediately analyzed the situation to Qilin beside her. Qilin nodded noncommittally. Xiao Yan was likely practicing the 8 extremities collapse, and these injuries on his body were clearly caused by Yao Lao, intended to train Xiao Yan's resistance to blows. Of course, such training must be accompanied by medicinal baths, otherwise, before the Do technique was mastered, his body would be ruined first. However, Yao Lao was, after all, a top-tier grade 8 alchemist, so it was naturally impossible for him not to know this. While Qilin and Xiao Xuan'er were talking, Xiao Yan naturally noticed them. He took a piece of clothing from his storage ring to put on, then walked over to greet them. Cousin Zuner, Brother Qi. Qilin smiled and teased, Brother Xiao, seeing you cultivate so diligently, I fear your future is boundless. Xiao Yan gave a bitter laugh, Brother Qi is joking. Right now, I only have one thought, and that is to defeat Nalan Yanren on the day of the 3-year appointment. As he spoke, his gaze became resolute. My current strength is already lagging behind Nalan Yanren's. If I do not cultivate diligently, how can I defeat Nalan Yanren at the 3-year appointment? I do not care about Nalan's breaking of the engagement, but she brought great shame to me, my father, and even the Xiao family. I must wash away this shame, so I cannot lose. Qilin smiled without speaking, giving Xiao Yan a thumbs up. Great ambition, keep it up. Whether I succeed or not, I will only know after I try. In Qilin's view, Nalan Yanren's act of breaking the engagement was not inherently wrong. After all, she had brought a grade 4 medicinal pill, the Qi gathering powder, as compensation. Where she truly went wrong was that she should not have made the engagement annulment so public. If it had been a private matter, given the Qi gathering powder, the Xiao family would have been more than happy to agree. After all, Xiao Yan, whose strength had regressed to the 3rd stage of Doji Qi, was indeed not a match for Nalan Yanren. Therefore, it was only natural for Xiao Yan to want revenge now. Seeing this, a look of being moved flashed through Xiao Yan's eyes. Ever since he made the 3-year appointment with Nalan Yanren, everyone felt that he was overestimating his own abilities in courting humiliation. Although his father always comforted him, Xiao Yan could still tell that he likely did not believe he could defeat Nalan Yanren either. Only Brother Qi, from Qilin's eyes, Xiao Yan could tell that he truly believed there was hope for him to defeat Nalan Yanren. Qilin, having seen the answer key, how could I not believe it? At first, Xiao Xuan'er did not think Xiao Yan could defeat Nalan Yanren in the 3-year appointment either, but since Brother Qilin believed in Xiao Yan, perhaps Xiao Yan really did have a chance of defeating Nalan Yanren. Thus, she mimicked Qilin and encouraged him with a light smile, Cousin Xiao Yan, keep it up. Xiao Yan laughed aloud, then I shall borrow the good wishes of you too. ... A few days later, Qilin approached Xiao Zhan again and told him about the information regarding the incomplete cultivation techniques and Do techniques in the Do Technique Pavilion. After listening, Xiao Zhan gave a bitter laugh, I won't hide it from you, young friend. My Xiao family also had some history in the past. When my father was still alive, we were a major family in the Jama Empire, but it is a pity that we have since declined. As for even further back, I am not clear. Perhaps our Xiao family did have some background in the past, and those incomplete cultivation techniques you mentioned were what was left behind. It's a pity they were too severely damaged, so no one could cultivate them, yet I never thought you would be able to see them. Qilin smiled faintly. Those incomplete cultivation techniques and Do techniques had basically all been deduced and restored by him. He wouldn't dare say they were exactly the same as the originals, but their rank should not be lower than the originals. He speculated that the cultivation techniques and Do techniques he had perfected would be at least profound rank high grade, and those of higher quality would definitely reach the earth rank. As for heaven rank cultivation techniques or Do techniques, even if they were passed down in the Xiao clan, they would definitely have been sealed using special means. Otherwise, they would likely have been lost just like the other cultivation techniques and Do techniques. Therefore, Qilin brought this matter up to Xiao Zhan, hoping to find the cultivation techniques and Do techniques sealed by the Xiao clan. Regarding this, although Xiao Zhan was skeptical, he still agreed to Qilin. Because even if Qilin really found high-grade cultivation techniques or Do techniques left behind by their ancestors, it would definitely be beneficial and harmless to the Xiao family. Thus, Xiao Zhan led Qilin directly to the Xiao family's treasury. After pushing open the door, he led Qilin directly to a row of shelves in the deepest part. On the shelves were either plain iron plates, strangely shaped jade pieces, or simple, unadorned yellow parchment scrolls. Young friend, these are the oldest items of the Xiao family. They have been passed down from generation to generation, but as for what is specific or special about them, even the successive clan chiefs of my Xiao family, after generations of research, have never been able to figure out their specific purpose. As he spoke, Xiao Zhan could not help but sigh with emotion. At first, after he became the clan chief, he had actually studied these old antiques for a period of time, but unfortunately, it all ended in failure, and he could only give up and let them gather dust in the Xiao family's treasury. After listening, Qilin, having informed Xiao Zhan, casually picked up an iron plate. Suddenly, a vertical pupil cracked open in the center of Qilin's brow. Qilin Heavenly Eye. In an instant, a brilliant golden radiance shot from the vertical pupil in the center of Qilin's brow into the iron plate. The Qilin Heavenly Eye could seek the dragon, observe Qi, ignore barriers, and see through all illusions. This move immediately made the Xiao Zhan beside him look shocked, feeling a tremor from his very soul. What kind of Do technique was this? Such a powerful sense of oppression. At the same time, Qilin also received a piece of soul information from the iron plate. After reading the soul information, Qilin chuckled. I didn't expect there to truly be a legacy. Hearing Qilin's words, Xiaozan was pleasantly surprised. Young friend, is this true? Qilin nodded. What was recorded in this iron plate was a Do technique legacy. Heaven rank low grade, Great Sun solar body. Chapter 230, The Xiao family's gratitude, preparing to become a god. After putting down the iron block, Qilin picked up the other old items one after another. Just as Qilin expected, 1/3 of these old items contained hidden cultivation techniques, Do techniques, secret arts, and even various miscellaneous legacies. After Qilin put down the last of the Xiao family's old items, Xiaozan, who was standing nearby, looked at Qilin with full anticipation. Seeing his expectant gaze, Qilin chuckled and said, Clan leader Xiao, congratulations. With these legacies, your Xiao family is truly about to rise. After speaking, Qilin pointed out the old items that contained legacies to Xiaozan one by one. Now that he had broken the seals on the old items, one only needed to inject Do Qi to obtain the legacies within. Upon hearing this, Xiaozan looked at the old items Qilin had pointed out and couldn't help but swallow hard. Especially when he picked up one of the old items and obtained the legacy within, he couldn't help but shiver all over, nearly dropping the item in his hands. A heaven rank low grade cultivation technique, the blazing fire burning heaven cannon. One must know that before Qilin arrived, the highest grade cultivation technique in the Xiao family was merely a profound rank cultivation technique. Just how powerful was the Xiao family in the past to actually possess even a heaven rank cultivation technique? Thinking of this, Xiaozan looked at Qilin with immense gratitude. If not for Qilin, I fear no one would have been able to discover these legacies until the Xiao family perished. Consequently, Xiaozan took a deep breath and actually knelt down on the spot to perform a grand bow to Qilin. Seeing this, Qilin was slightly stunned, then raised his hands in a gesture to help him up. After Xiaozan stood up, he still bowed towards Qilin. Young friend, without your help, I fear my Xiao family would never have discovered these legacies in a lifetime. Such great kindness cannot be repaid. From this day forward, the entire Xiao family is willing to go through fire and water for you, without hesitation. One must know that these legacies were supreme treasures. Judging from the abilities Qilin had displayed, he was fully capable of swallowing these legacies all for himself, not even leaving a scrap for the Xiao family, yet he did not do so. It was precisely because of this reason that while Xiaozan was grateful to Qilin, he was also filled with admiration for him. If it had been someone more ruthless, Xiaozan suspected that he might already be dead, and the Xiao family might even have met with disaster. Looking at Xiaozan's display, Qilin knew that if he were to refuse, Xiaozan would only feel anxious. Therefore, Qilin waved his hand casually and smiled, all right, with clan leader Xiao's word, if I ever need the Xiao family's help in the future, I certainly won't be polite. Hearing this, a look of joy immediately appeared on Xiaozan's face. Before leaving the treasury, Qilin offered a reminder. Clan leader Xiao, before the Xiao family has truly risen, you must be careful with these legacies. If even the slightest bit of information leaks out, it could bring a catastrophic disaster to the Xiao family. Xiaozan nodded with a solemn expression. Having been the clan leader of the Xiao family for so many years, it was impossible for him not to have considered this point. Thus, that very night, he secretly summoned the 3 elders. He told the 3 of them about this news. Upon learning this news, the 3 Xiao family elders were nearly shocked to death on the spot. After all, the 3 of them were already quite old. In the end, the 3 decided to first concentrate their resources and fully cultivate the younger generation. However, to avoid leaking information, those selected had to remain behind the scenes and cultivate in secret until they possessed the true strength to protect themselves. As for the candidates, after repeated deliberation by Xiaozan and the 3 elders, 3 people were finally selected. Xiao Ding, Xiao Li, and Xiao Yu. These 3 were already the most talented individuals in the Xiao family since Xiao Yan's talent had fallen. Although the second elder and third elder also wanted to include their own descendants, the Xiao family was only so big, resources were limited, and fully supporting 3 people was already the limit. Although the 3 elders usually had their own schemes, for the sake of the family's resurgence, they ultimately reached a consensus. As for the other young descendants of the Xiao family, while they could not be like the 3 of Xiao Ding, they could still be allowed to cultivate higher grade profound rank cultivation techniques and Do techniques. Once they had a certain level of strength, they could then switch to cultivating even higher grade cultivation techniques and Do techniques. Of course, direct descendants of the Xiao family like Xiao Ning and Xiao Mei could not cultivate high grade techniques even if they wanted to right now. After all, they were still far from becoming a Do practitioner. Besides the younger generation, among the older generation, only Xiaozan and the 3 elders secretly switched to cultivating heaven rank cultivation techniques suitable for themselves. As for heaven rank Do skills, they shouldn't even think about it. With their current strength and comprehension ability, even if they cultivated for decades, they wouldn't be able to achieve anything. Being greedy leads to poor results. It would be better to master 1D rank Do technique as a trump card. After everything was settled, the next day, Xiaozan dispatched 2 groups of people. One group went to Stone Desert City to send a message to Xiao Ding and Xiao Li, while the other was sent to Jianan Academy to find Xiao Yu. For the next few days, Qilin focused on comprehending the cultivation techniques and Do techniques he had seen in the Xiao family's treasury. One must know that the grades of those cultivation techniques and Do techniques were not low, they were all uniformly heaven rank. But after Qilin entered a state of epiphany, he could easily master these cultivation techniques and Do techniques. If one epiphany wasn't enough, he could just keep having epiphanies. A week later, Qilin had already begun to refine the Destiny Qilin art. In the second week, he began to refine the Wind Spirit Moon Shadow technique that Xiao Wu and the others cultivated. In the blink of an eye, Qilin had stayed at the Xiao family for over half a month and finally intended to leave. The Dupo world had rich heaven and earth energy, so Qilin wanted to bring Xiao Wu and the others over to cultivate here. Although the energy in Qilin's blessed land was equally rich, because his own strength was too weak, and the energy of the blessed land was linked to his own strength, it couldn't compare to the Dupo world. Qilin had only cultivated in the Dupo world for over half a month, and he already felt that his strength had reached a bottleneck. If he were in the Duluo continent, his current rank would be that of a limit Duluo. However, although Qilin wanted to bring Xiao Wu and the others over, this was the Xiao family after all, he couldn't just have them all alive in the Xiao family, right? Therefore, Qilin needed to first find a good place for cultivation here before bringing Xiao Wu and the others over. When leaving, Xiao Shuaner was naturally reluctant, so Qilin also crafted a communication token for her. Compared to a telephone, the communication token had a simpler function, only having the effect of transmitting messages, but the distance it could transmit could reach a radius of 100,000 li. Qilin left his soul imprint on Xiao Shuaner's communication token. The soul imprint was like a phone number, allowing Xiao Shuaner to communicate with him directly through the communication token. After Xiao Shuaner learned of the communication token's effect, she immediately cherished it, as if she had obtained a treasure. After leaving the Xiao family, Qilin was not in a hurry to find his future residence but instead returned to the Duluo continent first. He felt that his rank seemed to be just one step away from a breakthrough. Since that was the case, then he would just return to the Duluo continent and casually become a god first. Chapter 231, Creating the God Position, Auspicious Signs from Heaven. Qilin had been gone for half a month, so when he suddenly returned to the Duluo continent, the girls were not surprised. They had already learned about the other world from Qilin's own mouth. Although they were shocked, they never expected that there would be other worlds besides the Duluo continent and the God realm. However, once they thought about how this was happening to Qilin, they felt it was quite normal. With Qilin, any miraculous thing was possible. Nevertheless, when they learned that Qilin had already reached rank 99 and could make a breakthrough at any moment, they still couldn't help but be shocked. This was especially true for Huo Wu and Lu Erlong, who didn't know Qilin very well. One had met Qilin too late, while the other had not integrated into Xiao Wu and the other's core circle, so they only had a superficial understanding of him. They only knew he was incredibly awesome, but they had no idea just how awesome he truly was. How long had it even been, and Qilin was already about to become a god. Aside from those two, there was also Qian Runshui, who had infiltrated the enemy's inner circle. She was equally shocked. Wait, she hadn't even started her divine trials yet, so how was Qilin already about to become a god? Although she had learned from her grandfather during the Soul Master competition that Qilin was already capable of defeating him. But at that time, Qilin's spirit power rank shouldn't have been anywhere near rank 99, right? How could he be about to become a god after just a few short months? After informing everyone, Qilin did not rush to make his breakthrough immediately. Instead, he headed to the Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well, preparing to break through there. After all, once he made his breakthrough to godhood, there was no telling what kind of commotion it would cause. If the commotion was too grand, it would draw the attention of the entire world and cause a massive uproar, so it was better to stay away from crowds. The Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well. Upon learning that Qilin was preparing to become a god, Du Gubo's eyes also nearly popped out of his head. To think that he himself was only at rank 95 right now, yet Qilin was already about to become a god. Qilin greeted Du Gubo and immediately began to work on his breakthrough. Meanwhile, Xiao Wu and the others watched from not far away, all wanting to witness the process of Qilin becoming a god. Qilin instantly released his spirit, the four-leaf clover. In the next second, 9 spirit rings spiraled up from beneath his feet. Platinum, brilliant gold, crimson, emerald green, blue gold, snow white, azure, yellowish brown, and deep purple. 9 spirit rings hovered in the air. At this moment, the platinum spirit ring flashed. In an instant, Qilin applied the boost of his first spirit ability, Destiny's Gift, to himself. Crack. Following Qilin's application of Destiny's Gift, a sound suddenly echoed from within his body. In the next second, a powerful aura, like a sleeping dragon suddenly awakening, erupted from within his body. Above the 9 spirit rings, a magnificent 7-colored spirit ring quietly condensed. At this moment, the energy of heaven and earth surged toward Qilin's location like crazy, resembling 100 rivers returning to the sea, condensing into a massive energy vortex above Qilin. In addition, ancient and sacred chanting suddenly echoed between heaven and earth. Just by hearing this sound, Xiao Wu and the others watching from the side suddenly felt their souls being cleansed. They instantly became ethereal, and countless profound and mysterious insights arose in their hearts. Beyond that, an even more shocking phenomenon appeared in the sky. Flowers fell from the heavens, golden lotuses gushed from the earth, auspicious clouds gathered, and brilliant rays of light filled the sky. The golden lotuses and the phantom of a Qilin expanded above Qilin's head, and the chanting between heaven and earth became increasingly sacred. In the sky, a golden rain of light seemed to fall, bringing blessings to the area. Bathed in the rain of light, Xiao Wu and the others broke through rank after rank. Even Du Gubo broke through to rank 96, and the medicinal herbs within the Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well also began to grow wildly the moment they came into contact with the golden rain of light. Witnessing this scene, Qian Runshui murmured, "Is this the process of becoming a god?" The others also felt a sense of awe, as if they were beholding a divine being. At the same time, in the spirit hall, inside the Duluo hall, standing beneath the angel statue, Qian Daoliu, who was meditating with his eyes closed, suddenly snapped his eyes open, his expression filled with shock. This aura. Could it be that a god has descended? Or is it? Qilin's face surfaced in Qian Daoliu's mind, and an even more unbelievable thought welled up in his heart. That direction. It was Heaven Do City. Could it be that kid Qilin who became a god? But how long has it been? Has he already completed all of his divine trials? Qian Daoliu couldn't help but swallow hard to calm the shock in his heart. The God Realm. The energy fluctuations caused by Qilin's breakthrough also caused quite a stir in the God Realm. Especially for the other 3 God Kings in the God Realm, excluding the God Kings of benevolence and evil, as well as some of the first-class gods. They had all noticed the abnormal fluctuations on the Duluo continent. Especially the Life God King. When she discovered that the person becoming a god was actually Qilin, she was completely dumbfounded, thinking someone had intervened and snatched her successor. But upon investigation, Qilin had not inherited any god's god position. He was actually creating his own god position. This was simply too exaggerated. He didn't even seem to be 15 years old yet, right? One must know that the angel god and the sea god, who had also created their own god positions on the Duluo continent, had each spent 1,000 years gathering faith before they could do so. But what about Qilin? At his age, what kind of faith could he have gathered? He had no faith, and he hadn't accepted her god position legacy either. How on earth did he become a god? Aside from the goddess of life, destruction, and Asura had also noticed Qilin. Shock flashed in Asura's eyes as he recognized Qilin. One of his divine senses had even perished at Qilin's hands. But how long had it been? Qilin was already about to become a god, and he was even doing so by creating his own god position. To think that a single day in the god realm is a year in the lower realm, but how much time had actually passed? I lean more toward the idea that a day in the god realm is just very long, equivalent to a year in the lower realm. A look of solemnity flashed in the Asura god's eyes. This is a heretic just like the dragon god. His arrival might not be a good thing for the god realm. Thinking of this, the Asura god looked solemnly toward the god of destruction and the goddess of life. Destruction, life, what do you think of this kid from the Duluo planet? Destruction said with a face full of fanaticism, this kid can create his own god position at such a young age. If he can join the god realm's strength will definitely surge by a large margin. The goddess of life also smiled and said, I think so too. Speaking of which, this little fellow is still my successor. He has already reached the 7th trial of my life god trials. What? There is such a thing. Asura was startled, believing he had guessed the reason why Qilin was cultivating so rapidly. He couldn't help but bellow, "Life, did you personally step in and help him cheat? You should know the rules of the God realm. Gods are not allowed to interfere in the affairs of the lower realm, let alone help their successors cheat. Otherwise, wouldn't the God realm fall into chaos?" Hearing this, the goddess of life knit her beautiful brows. "Asura, what do you mean by this? You actually suspect that I helped this little fellow cheat?" Asura snorted coldly. "Is that not the case? Otherwise, as a mere mortal of the lower realm, no matter how high his talent is, how could he create his own god position at such a young age?" The goddess of life snorted coldly. Although she had a gentle personality, she was not entirely without a temper. For Asura to suspect her like this, even a clay figurine would have some temper, let alone a grand god king like herself. "I will say this only once, and it will be the last time. I did not help this little fellow cheat. Believe it or not." After saying that, the goddess of life paid no further attention to the Asura god. Seeing this, although the expression on the Asura god's face did not change, a trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. Chapter 232, Twin God Positions, God of Qilin. The God Realm, Council Hall. Some gathered first-class gods also looked through a huge screen of light, seeing the phenomenon in the sunset forest on the Duluo continent. A tall man with an ancient face, wearing a white robe with gold borders and a trident ring on his head, looked with envy at the phenomenon of Qilin becoming a god in the light screen. Holy crap, they're both self-created god positions, so how is this kid's ascension phenomenon so astonishing? Could it be that the god position he created is actually at the god king level? The identity of the speaker was indeed the sea god, who had spent 1,000 years unifying the seas and gathering faith to become a god. The sea god looked old-fashioned, but in essence, he was a fun seeker. Besides, he had long since lost the desire to stay in the god realm. He only wanted to find a successor quickly and pass on his god position so that he could explore the vast universe and starry sky. After the sea god spoke, the gods in the council hall showed strange expressions on their faces. One must know that deities capable of creating their own god positions were already as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns in the god realm, let alone directly creating a god king level god position. Once such a genius joined the god realm, perhaps in a short time, his strength would surpass these veteran deities. Among the crowd, a woman wearing a black long dress, with a voluptuous figure and an enchanting temperament, was also looking closely at the phenomenon in the light screen. At this moment, she also remembered that one day ago in the god realm, because the imprint she left on her inheritor had been erased, she had specially split off a wisp of divine thought to descend to the lower realm. As a result, not long after that wisp of divine thought descended to the lower realm, she completely lost contact with it. At that time, she had already sensed that something was wrong and wanted to send her divine sense down to the lower realm to investigate further. However, worried that too much movement would get her caught by the Asura god, she was in no hurry to act. But this did not mean she had forgotten about this divine thought of hers. Now, a fellow who had created his own god position had suddenly popped up silently on the Duluo planet, so the Rakshasa god highly suspected that her divine thought losing connection with her might have something to do with this newly ascended deity. The Rakshasa god's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. She wanted to see what kind of sacred being this person who created his own god position was, and whether her divine thought's loss of connection had anything to do with him. Just as the gods were discussing, on the Duluo planet, inside the sunset forest, the astonishing phenomenon could be clearly perceived within a radius of hundreds of miles. Countless powerful spirit masters wanted to discover the source of the phenomenon, only to realize with a shock that this scene felt familiar. However, before they could lock onto the location, the phenomenon had already disappeared. Qilin slowly opened his eyes. It seemed nothing had changed, yet a earth-shattering change seemed to have occurred, a shift in temperament and divine charm. Standing not far away, everyone rushed forward the moment they saw Qilin open his eyes. Especially Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, and the few others who were closest to Qilin, they did not feel any strangeness or distance at all just because Qilin had become a god. They came up and asked chatteringly, "Brother Shaolin, have you really become a god? Brother Qilin, what does it feel like to become a god? Little brother Qilin, you are really amazing. To become a god at such a young age, I'm afraid that throughout history, you can be called unprecedented and unrepeatable, right?" Compared to Xiao Wu and the other women looked at Qilin with a somewhat awestruck feeling. This awe was not toward Qilin himself, but an innate reverence toward a deity. Du Gubo muttered to himself, "My grandson-in-law actually became a god." Lu Erlong's expression was complex, and she thought to herself, "Alas, Xiaoging, oh Xiaoging, why did you insist on competing with Qilin? If you had honestly established a good relationship with Qilin from the very beginning, how could you have ended up in this state today?" Since Yu Xiaoging and the father-son duo of Tang Hao went to Spirit City a few months ago to ask Bibi Dong for a solution to their spirit conflict, he had never returned. Especially after it was revealed that Tang Hao had died in Spirit City, both Lu Erlong and Flender speculated that Yu Xiaoging was either imprisoned by Bibi Dong in the Spirit Hall, or he was already dead. Thinking of Yu Xiaoging's past relationship with Bibi Dong, Lu Erlong and Flender naturally leaned toward the former, so they weren't overly worried about him. With Bibi Dong's layer of relationship, no matter how miserable he could be, could it be worse than being in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan? It was just that the father and son Tang Hao and Tang San were unfortunate. If Tang Yuehua hadn't secretly come to Shrek Academy, the two of them would have still thought that Tang San had also died along with Tang Hao in Spirit City. In the crowd, Qilin was surrounded by a flock of beautiful women, a faint fragrance filling his nose, as if he had fallen into a kingdom of women. At this moment, Tian Runshui suddenly spoke. "Qilin, what god is the god position you inherited?" Before Qilin could answer, Xiao Wu scrambled to show off, saying, "I know this. Brother Shaolin inherited the god position of the god of life." The god of life. A look of curiosity flashed across Tian Runshui's face. Her Tian family had believed in the angel god for generations. Besides that, she had also heard from her grandfather that there seemed to be a legacy of the sea god overseas. As for the god of life, she had never heard of it. But Qilin shook his head and smiled. "Although what I inherited is the god position of life, my god position trials are actually not finished yet. The god position I have condensed now is also not the god position of life." Hearing this, someone immediately asked curiously, "Since the divine trials are not finished yet, how did teacher Qilin become a god? Can one become a god without divine trials?" Xiao Wu was also puzzled. "I thought the goddess of life saw how outstanding brother Shaolin is, so she directly exempted brother Shaolin from the divine trials." Qilin smiled and spread his hands, saying, "I couldn't help it either. The divine trials aren't over yet, but my spirit power rank has already reached the limit of rank 99. If I didn't make a breakthrough, I wouldn't be able to suppress it much longer, so I had to create my own god position first." "What? A self-created god position?" The women were greatly shocked, as if they had heard some fairy tale. Even Du Gubo, not far away, couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. What on earth? The reason Qilin didn't wait to inherit the god position of the god of life was actually because he couldn't suppress the spirit power in his body and had to make a breakthrough. This was simply too exaggerated. Qian Runshui felt it most deeply. She had heard her grandfather say that even the angel god, whom their Qian family had believed in for generations, took nearly 1,000 years to finally create a god position by gathering faith. Yet Qilin, also creating his own god position, actually made a breakthrough so easily. Then what about your god of life legacy? Qian Runshui suddenly asked curiously. Qilin smiled and said, I have 2 spirits, so possessing 2 god positions at the same time should be quite reasonable, right? Ah. You also have twin spirits? Qian Runshui exclaimed. Qilin seeing this, looking puzzled. How come you don't know? Didn't I tell you? Qian Runshui gave him a resentful look. What do you think? Qilin shrugged and smiled. It's fine, don't you know now? Then, Brother Shaolin, what god should your self-created god position be called? How about we help you think of one? Xiao Wu's eyes sparkled. Qilin smiled and said, no need, I have already thought of it beforehand. It's called, Platform. The god of Qilin. Chapter 233, in the middle of the night, asking for guidance on cultivation. God of Qilin. Hearing this title, Xiao Wu clapped her hands and smiled. Brother Lin's second spirit is also the Qilin, so, God of Qilin, is just perfect. Ning Rongrong, Du Guyan, and the other girls also chimed in agreement. At this moment, among the crowd, the girls of the Tianshui girl group looked at Qilin, who seemed to be glowing all over, and couldn't help but swallow hard, their minds racing furiously. Especially Shui Wu, a sharp glint flashed in her eyes, as if she had made up her mind about something. The phenomenon caused by Qilin becoming a god attracted countless spirit masters into the Sunset Forest. Unfortunately, despite their painstaking search, they still found nothing. It was only a few days later that 2 spirit saints discovered the poison barrier set up by Du Gubo. Guessing that the source of the phenomenon was inside, one of them immediately plunged right in. As a result, after taking only a few steps, he died instantly inside the poison barrier, leaving not even ashes behind. Once this news spread, people immediately speculated that behind the poison barrier was Du Gubo's territory, because around Heaven Do City, only Du Gubo could set up such a poison barrier. Therefore, many also speculated that if there was a great treasure at the source of the phenomenon, it had likely fallen into Du Gubo's hands. Deterred by Du Gubo's strength as a titled Duluo, naturally no one dared to court disaster. Of course, that all happened later, on the day Qilin became a god, at Heaven Do Academy. As night fell, several figures stealthily made their way toward Qilin's dormitory. On the way, they whispered among themselves. Shui Wu, do we really have to do that? What if Teacher Qilin doesn't think much of us? How will we face him in the future? Harrow, what time do you think it is? How can you back out now? Teacher Qilin has already become a god now, and who knows when he might leave for the god realm. Think about it, if we don't sleep with Teacher Qilin now, will we ever get another chance once he goes to the god realm? Shui Wu looked at Yu Harrow, who was backing out, with a look of exasperation, and said. As soon as she said this, the other 3 immediately expressed their agreement. However, Ji Yu Kingbo suddenly said, but shouldn't we call Big Sister and Yu along? Wouldn't it be too disloyal of us? Shui Wu said irritably, you're still thinking about Big Sister and Yu at a time like this. Are we even in the same boat as them? Big Sister was the first among us to know Teacher Qilin, and she's also the most beautiful and outstanding of us. If Teacher Qilin has a harem, Big Sister would at least be a consort, and Yu, as Big Sister's biological sister, would also rise in status because of her. But what about us? At best, we are just palace candidates. If we don't take the initiative, when will we ever get the Emperor's favor? So, do you get it now? We're the ones who need to take the initiative. Big Sister and Yu don't need to worry at all. The girls nodded, and a strange, thrilling sensation began to stir in their hearts. If they succeeded, they would be women who had slept with a god. Even if Qilin entered the god realm one day, they would have no regrets. Just as the 5 of them were cautiously approaching Qilin's dormitory, they saw 2 other figures sneaking over from the distance. Who's there? Both parties noticed each other, and their hearts tightened. Drawing closer, they saw, Rongrong, Yu, what are you 2 doing here? Shui Yu immediately covered her face and lowered her voice, saying, I'm not Shui Yu, I'm Shui Binger. I came to ask Brother Qilin for guidance on my cultivation. Hearing this, Shui Wu and the others twitched their lips, and even Ning Rongrong, who was standing beside Shui Yu, felt utterly speechless. What an idiot. Isn't this just a clumsy cover-up? Asking for guidance on cultivation. What, you couldn't ask during the day, so you had to wait until the middle of the night. However, Ning Rongrong reacted quickly and immediately noticed that something was off with Shui Wu and the others. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed slightly. Shui Wu, don't tell me you guys are also here too. Shui Wu gave an embarrassed smile, thought for a moment, and then looked at Ning Rongrong, testing the waters. Rongrong, since our goals are the same anyway, how about, we go together? Together, hearing Shui Wu's suggestion, Ning Rongrong swept her gaze over Shui Wu's group. A certain scene couldn't help but pop into her mind, and she immediately said, are you crazy? Counting you guys, there are 7 of us here. Aren't you worried about exhausting Brother Qilin? And besides, you guys are so muddled. Brother Qilin's bedroom bed can only hold 4 or 5 people at most at the same time. After saying that, Ning Rongrong didn't forget to glance at Shui Wu's group, her expression as if saying, it's fine if you want to come, but why did so many of you come at once? Seeing this, Shui Wu cleared her throat. This was indeed an oversight on our part. Actually, they had thought of this long ago, but it was precisely because they were all together that they had summoned the courage. At worst, they could just go in one by one while the others eavesdropped outside. They just hadn't expected to run into Ning Rongrong and Shui Yu here. These 2 weren't behaving themselves either. They just didn't know if this was their first time or if they had done this before. But looking at Yu's silly expression, it was likely her first time too. After thinking it over, Shui Wu pulled her sisters aside and whispered. Why don't we let Rongrong and Yu take the lead today, and we'll come back tomorrow? Yu Harrow, Ji Yu Kingbo, and the others all nodded in agreement. So Shui Wu cleared her throat and said softly, Rongrong, you have a point. In that case, Teacher Qilin is all yours for today. But we have to agree on one thing, you can't come back tomorrow. You have to give us a chance. Ning Rongrong's delicate brows furrowed slightly. In truth, she wanted to monopolize Brother Qilin for a bit longer. But Shui Wu suddenly said with a sly grin, I'm sure you wouldn't want me to tell Xiao Wu and the others about what happened today, right? This. Ning Rongrong hesitated. Although Shui Wu and her group had strength in numbers, they didn't pose much of a threat in Ning Rongrong's eyes. But if Xiao Wu found out about her actions today, Xiao Wu would definitely follow her example tomorrow. Ning Rongrong wanted to monopolize Brother Qilin for a while first. That way, even when Xiao Wu finally realized what was happening, wouldn't she still be utterly suppressed by her? Hey. Ning Rongrong let out a strange laugh, then patted her chest, which was just beginning to bud like a young lotus, and said, "All right, tomorrow is yours." Seeing this, Shui Wu finally turned back with Yu Haro, Ji Yu Kingbo, and the others. Once they had walked far away, Ning Rongrong looked at Shui Yuer beside her and said irritably, "All right, they're all gone." Hearing this, Shui Yuer finally lowered her hands from her face, letting out an embarrassed laugh. But she quickly muttered again, "Brother Qilin is just too popular. Even Sister Shui Wu and the others have fallen for him. Fortunately, we came in time today, otherwise they would have beaten us dead." Ning Rongrong also agreed and nodded solemnly, then smiled, "That doesn't matter. At least the first fight is still ours." Hearing this, Shui Yuer's eyes lit up. "You're right, let's go, let's go." With that, the two of them carefully slipped into Qilin's dormitory and crept up to his bedroom door. But as soon as they drew near, they heard the faint, suppressed sound of feminine panting coming from inside the bedroom. This. Ning Rongrong and Shui Yuer looked at each other, wanting to cry but having no tears. Chapter 234 Xiao Wu. "Oh no, my home has been completely stolen." This voice, it sounds like Sister Na. Shui Yuer pressed her face against the door, listening intently, and immediately reached a conclusion. Sister Na is actually stealing from her own post. If I had known, we would have shamelessly insisted on staying in Brother Qilin's dormitory back then. Ning Rongrong muttered in a low voice, a look of envy flashing in her eyes. Sigh, what a pity, we didn't get to be the first. However, as long as the first one isn't Xiao Wu, she can accept it. Rongrong, are we still going in today? Shui Yuer whispered while leaning against the door. Just as she was speaking, she didn't notice that the sounds inside the bedroom had suddenly stopped. Click. Just then, the bedroom door suddenly opened. Shui Yuer lost her footing and tumbled into the bedroom. But she was immediately caught by a slender hand. Thank you, Shui Yuer said subconsciously. Ning Rongrong, however, stared at Ji Yu Yuina standing at the bedroom doorway, completely unclothed, like a beauty made of white jade. She was stunned, her face filled with embarrassment. Why did Sister Na suddenly open the door, and without any clothes on? However, before the two of them could recover, Ji Yu Yuina suddenly spoke. "Since you're here, just come in. What are you doing standing at the door?" Hearing this, Ning Rongrong immediately reacted, then tentatively asked, "Sister Na, are you sure? We can come back tomorrow." Ji Yu Yuina's skin still bore a strange flush, but the expression on her face was quite calm. "No need to go through the trouble, just come in." After saying that, Ji Yu Yuina pulled the two of them into the bedroom. Looking at Brother Qilin lying passively on the bed, Ning Rongrong and Shui Yuer, the two little perverts, were so shocked that their mouths fell open. Their heads were buzzing, and they started imagining all sorts of dynamic scenes. The two then exchanged a glance, their bodies trembling slightly. "It shouldn't break, right? Rongrong, it's you two. I thought it was Du Guyan and Ling Ling." Brother Qilin looked at Ning Rongrong and Shui Yuer as they walked in, slightly stunned. Ning Rongrong and Shui Yuer suddenly realized what was happening, and forgetting to sneak peeks at Brother Qilin, they exclaimed in shock. "What, Brother Qilin, are you saying that even Du Guyan and Ling Ling have already been with you?" Brother Qilin nodded. Ning Rongrong immediately went crazy, shouting. "Ah, I was clearly the first one here. I can excuse Sister Na, but Du Guyan and the others are just too unfair." Suddenly, Ning Rongrong hurriedly asked again, "Brother Qilin, Xiao Wu hasn't done this with you yet, right?" "Not yet." Brother Qilin shook his head. Hearing this, Ning Rongrong let out a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness, in the end, I was still one step ahead of Xiao Wu." Brother Qilin looked strange. A moment later, Ning Rongrong had quickly stripped down to become a little white lamb, then muttered, "Tonight, I'm going to make up for all the lost time." Shui Yuer also reacted, looking left and right, not knowing what to do for a moment, and looked at Ji Yu Yuina for help. Seeing this, a thoughtful expression flashed across Ji Yu Yuina's face. The next day, Ning Rongrong was swaying in front of Xiao Wu, looking refreshed and smiling. "Xiao Wu, can you see any changes in me?" Xiao Wu rolled her eyes at her and said casually, "Whether there are changes on you or not, don't you know yourself? Do you need to ask me? Just take a look closely." Ning Rongrong continued to ask persistently. Seeing this, Xiao Wu frowned slightly, but a touch of curiosity flashed in her heart, so she carefully looked Ning Rongrong over. A moment later, she muttered, "It really seems like there is something different, but where exactly is it different?" Xiao Wu looked left and right, unable to figure it out no matter how hard she thought. So she asked curiously, "I also feel like you are different from yesterday, but I can't say where." "Hee, if you can't say it, that's right. Have any changes happened to you?" Ning Rongrong chuckled, looking smug. Xiao Wu nodded honestly. But Ning Rongrong changed the subject. "Haha, I'm not going to tell you." "Ah, Rongrong, I think you're asking for a beating again." Watching Ning Rongrong's smug face, Xiao Wu screamed in anger. Seeing Xiao Wu losing her temper, Ning Rongrong immediately turned around and ran away. Not far away, Shui Wu and her group naturally knew why Ning Rongrong had changed, and couldn't help but feel a bit of anticipation for tonight. They even pulled Shui Yuer aside to ask in hushed tones. "Little Yuer, what does it feel like to do that kind of thing?" Upon hearing this, scenes from last night immediately flooded into Shui Yuer's mind. Her fair cheeks instantly turned bright red, and she stammered, "You'll know when you go today." While they were whispering, Shui Binger walked over with a curious look on her face. "What are you all chatting about?" They looked at each other, and in the end, they told Shui Binger their little secret. After hearing their plan, Shui Binger's cheeks turned bright red, and she didn't forget to look at them with a resentful expression. "Very well, usually you all call me big sister, but for such an important matter, not a single one of you notified me. And you are my own sister, yet you'd rather go with Ning Rongrong than with me, your sister." Shui Yuer felt her scalp tingle under her sister's gaze and couldn't help but shrink her neck. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. Xiao Wu sensed the change in temperament of everyone in the Tianshui girl group and felt more and more that something was wrong. She immediately pulled Huo Wu aside and voiced her doubts. Huo Wu touched her snow-white chin, and suddenly her expression changed as she thought of a possibility. After all, Huo Wu was already 19. At this age, even if she hadn't eaten pork, she had at least seen pigs run, right? She still understood some common sense. It's just that she wasn't quite sure. If it were one or two, it would be understandable, but damn it, this is a whole group. And it all happened just in the last few days. Even if Brother Qilin did one a day, it wouldn't be enough. She told Xiao Wu her guess. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Sister Na is still living in Brother Qilin's dormitory. With her there, would that stinky Rongrong and the others dare to sneak into Brother Qilin's dormitory? Aren't they afraid of Sister Na finding out? Huo Wu looked at her and whispered, Xiao Wu, do you think there's a possibility that Sister Na is the same as them? Given Sister Na's personality, even if she encountered such a thing, she might not necessarily say anything, right? Upon hearing this, Xiao Wu was immediately unsure. It seems we can no longer sit and wait for death. Let's take action tonight and capture Brother Qilin in one go. In the end, Xiao Wu made up her mind. Delay breeds trouble. I hope I don't get my home stolen by then. Huo Wu nodded, her pretty face also flushed red, feeling an indescribable excitement. However, when night fell, and the two of them snuck to the door of Brother Qilin's bedroom. Listening to the sounds coming from inside, Xiao Wu was stunned in place. My home has really been stolen. Chapter 235, Xiao Wu gets her wish. Bang, enraged, Xiao Wu kicked open the bedroom door. Seeing the steamy scene on the bed, she wailed in anger. Ah, Stinky Rongrong, you actually snuck in behind my back. And you too, Shui Yuer, you actually followed Stinky Rongrong and snuck in behind my back too. Strangely enough, Ning Rongrong didn't feel much when Shui Yuer, who was huddled under the covers nearby, saw her in this state, but being seen by Xiao Wu and Huo Wu made her feel incredibly ashamed. However, Ning Rongrong quickly composed herself. Putting aside her shame, she said triumphantly, who told you not to seize the opportunity yourself? Xiao Wu, I forgot to tell you, it isn't just me and Shui Yuer who snuck into your home territory. I reckon you're probably among the last of us. After all, besides Xiao Wu and Huo Wu, there was also that little kitten, Zhu Zuqing. Ah, I'm so mad. Xiao Wu was furious. It was clearly her who had met Brother Qilin first. You are all so hateful. Alright, stop provoking Xiao Wu. Watch out, or she'll beat you up tomorrow. Ning Rongrong shivered and prudently obeyed Qilin's words. Anyway, she had already gotten a head start on Brother Qilin compared to Xiao Wu, so there was no need to keep provoking her. Of course, Ning Rongrong knew full well that she definitely wouldn't escape a sound beating tomorrow. But let her beat me. At least I've already enjoyed myself. Seeing the little pearls of tears beginning to well up in Xiao Wu's bright, watery eyes, Qilin immediately walked over to comfort her. Alright, starting tomorrow, for the next month, I will only be with you. Really? Xiao Wu sniffled and continued. Really? Xiao Wu immediately smiled again. However, upon seeing Huo Wu nearby, she loyally added, no, besides me, Huo Wu has to be with me too. In Xiao Wu's view, Huo Wu hadn't snuck into her home territory like Ning Rongrong and the others, and had even offered advice to her, so she had to return the favor. Huo Wu stood to the side, her pretty face feeling too embarrassed to look at Qilin. However, Xiao Wu's loyalty still made her very happy. Brother Qilin was really too partial to Xiao Wu. However, she also knew that among all of them, Xiao Wu likely had the closest relationship with Qilin. After all, Xiao Wu had already accompanied Qilin for 6 years before them. But it didn't matter. In 100 or 1,000 years, the few years Xiao Wu had over them would be insignificant. With Brother Qilin's help, if she still couldn't become a god, that would be far too much of a trash. The sun was high in the sky. Xiao Wu marched proudly, arm in arm with Qilin, walking a huge circle around Heavendo Academy. Her little expression was like that of a victorious general returning home. Of course, showing off was one thing, but Xiao Wu hadn't forgotten about the others sneaking behind her back. Therefore, within a single day, she challenged 10 people, including Ning Rongrong, Du Guyan, and Yi Lingling. Taking on 10 at once, she beat them one by one. A complete victory. After the beatings, Xiao Wu finally felt refreshed. That felt good. As for Sister Na, that was a different matter. Xiao Wu stated that she respected Sister Na the most and was willing to share Brother Qilin equally with her. Of course, there was another very important reason. She really couldn't beat her. In the crowd, Zhu Zuyun nudged her younger sister's arm and then pulled her aside, saying urgently, Sister, among these people, you are the only one left who has no relationship with Teacher Qilin, even though you were the second to meet Teacher Qilin. As she spoke, she earnestly advised, Sister, you must learn to take the initiative, otherwise your relationship with Teacher Qilin will gradually be overtaken by others. Upon hearing this, a nervous look flashed in Zhu Zuqing's eyes. I understand. Zhu Zuyun continued to analyze it for her. I heard Xiao Wu say just now that Qilin will only be with her for this month. Why don't you go find Xiao Wu? Hearing this, Zhu Zuqing hesitated. Maybe I should wait until a month later to find Teacher Qilin. Zhu Zuyun said, frustrated by her sister's lack of ambition. A month. Who knows what will happen by then? Forget it, I'll go talk to Xiao Wu for you. Not long after, Xiao Wu waved her hand and readily agreed. From now on, she, Xiao Wu, would also have a right-hand woman. Thus, that very night, Xiao Wu brought Zhu Zuqing to Qilin's bedroom. Anyway, she was no match for Brother Qilin on her own, so having an extra helper was better. Sunset Forest. One tall and one short figure in black robes stood before the corpse of a massive spirit beast. The tall figure laughed, Master, after absorbing this 30,000-year spirit beast, I'm afraid your spirit power rank will be able to reach rank 60. The slightly shorter black-robed man spoke with some excitement in his voice and bowed to the tall figure. This past period, I have really troubled you, Senior Titan. If it weren't for your help, I wouldn't have been able to reach my current rank in such a short time. Clearly, these two black-robed men were Tang San and Titan. Under Tang San's manipulation, Titan was completely obedient to Tang San. Tang San's initial goal was to hunt down the evil spirit masters of Spirit Hall to rid the people of a scourge, while also taking revenge and absorbing their spirit power to strengthen himself. But now that Spirit Hall was powerful, Tang San decided to play it safe first, lest he provoke Spirit Hall into sending out truly strong experts to surround and annihilate him. Therefore, he set his sights on spirit beasts. As everyone knew, there were many evil spirit beasts among them, so it was time for him to rid the people of a scourge again. Under Tang San's direction, Titan killed many spirit beasts for him, and after absorbing the spirit power of these spirit beasts, his spirit power rank advanced by leaps and bounds. At this rate, Tang San was confident that he would become a titled Duluo within 5 years. By then, he would attach 9-10,000 year, or even 100,000 year, spirit rings to his clear sky hammer. At that time, who in the entire continent would be his match? However, Tang San still harbored a trace of concern. Because he did not know how to solve the problem of his twin spirits conflicting with each other. This problem was like a great mountain pressing down on Tang San's body. He was very afraid that one day, he would suddenly explode and die, just like another holder of twin spirits from the past. Tang San would not accept such a way to die. But he had no other choice now, he could only take it one step at a time. Chapter 236, Goddess of Life reappears. Heavendo City, Spirit Hall. A middle-aged spirit master wearing a uniform walked into the palace hurriedly and bowed respectfully to Platinum Bishop Solace of the Heavendo City Spirit Hall. Lord Bishop, this subordinate has an important matter to report. Platinum Bishop Solace was sitting on the bishop's throne, originally dozing off, but as the middle-aged spirit master's voice rang out, he lazily opened his eyes. What is it? Platinum Bishop Solace said calmly. Reporting to you, my lord, there appears to be traces of a fallen spirit master in the Sunset Forest. Hearing the words, fallen spirit master, the originally lazy expression on Platinum Bishop Solace vanished, and a look of gravity appeared on his face. Do you have proof? If there is no proof, I cannot believe you. The middle-aged spirit master hurriedly said, reporting to you, my lord, the reason this subordinate suspects this is that in recent times, many dried corpses of high-level spirit beasts have appeared in the Sunset Forest, and looking at the wounds, it does not look like it was done by spirit beasts. Besides that, recently, 7 spirit masters above the Spirit King level have gone missing within the Heavendo City area, and according to information provided by their relatives, all 7 of them went missing in the Sunset Forest. The Sunset Forest is not like the Stardew Great Forest. The strength of the spirit beasts within is much weaker compared to the Stardew Great Forest. Therefore, although there have been cases of spirit masters at the Spirit King level going missing there in the past, it would definitely not be as frequent as it has been recently. Therefore, this subordinate has reason to believe that a fallen spirit master has appeared in the Sunset Forest. Hearing the middle-aged spirit master's analysis, Platinum Bishop Solace immediately took this matter seriously. Although the Spirit Hall had indeed decayed a lot over the years, its attitude towards fallen spirit masters had always remained the same. A sharp light flashed in Platinum Bishop Solace's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, Tumo, take a team of spirit emperors into the Sunset Forest. You must investigate clearly whether those missing spirit masters and the dried spirit beast corpses were indeed the work of a fallen spirit master. If it truly is the work of a fallen spirit master, bring them in dead or alive. The middle-aged spirit master called Tumo respectfully replied, understood. After saying this, Tumo exited the palace. On the other side, in the Sunset Forest, Tang San and Titan did not know that they had already attracted the attention of the Spirit Hall. After all, even if someone had discovered him absorbing the spirit power of spirit beasts to cultivate along the way, they had already been silenced by Titan, and their spirit power had been drained dry. Therefore, both Tang San and Titan felt that what they were doing was flawless. But they had not considered that among the spirit masters they had silenced, several were spirit masters above the Spirit King level. The Spirit King level, although not considered top tier in Heavendo City, was still considered elite and had a certain reputation. Even if placed in the Heavendo Academy, they could become heaven-grade teachers. In the past, it was not that spirit masters above the Spirit King level had never died while hunting for spirits, but it might only happen once every 3 to 5 months. But now, in just a short month or two, a full 7 spirit masters above the Spirit King level had gone missing one after another. Is this normal? With a little bit of care, one could see the clues, which led to the scene in the Heavendo City Spirit Hall. However, Tang San and Titan did not know this point, unaware that the crisis was approaching. Heavendo Academy. Half a month after Qilin became a god, the goddess of life met with Qilin through the life imprint left in Qilin's body. The goddess of life floated in midair, looking at the aura emanating from Qilin below, and a look of shock flashed in her eyes. She had originally thought that Qilin creating his own god position at this age could already be called a heaven-defying talent, but when she saw Qilin with her own eyes, the goddess of life realized that she and the gods of the god realm seemed to have underestimated him. Originally, the gods of the god realm had all guessed that the god position Qilin created was only a second-level god, or at best, perhaps a first-level god. After all, the phenomenon when he became a god did indeed give people a feeling of being high and mighty, and even a first-level god like the sea god did not have such a phenomenon when he created his own god position back then. In fact, the presence Qilin displayed when becoming a god could be argued to be a god king level god position. However, hindered by his age, the gods of the god realm were still unwilling to believe that he could create a god king level god position. After all, who among them had not gone through hardships to inherit a god position? And they were all just some first-level gods or second-level gods. The goddess of life also felt that it was unlikely for Qilin to create a god position comparable to a god king, so she leaned towards his created god position being a first-level god. But now that she saw Qilin up close, she knew. The gods of the god realm were all wrong. The god position Qilin created was absolutely not a first-level god. It had reached the god king level, and even she felt a faint palpitation. This little guy. The goddess of life looked deeply at Qilin, then sighed, little guy, do you know what kind of sensation you caused in the god realm a while ago? So, my name must have spread throughout the god realm, right? Qilin said with a smile, the expression on his face looking completely calm and unchanged. The goddess of life smiled lightly, what do you think? Throughout history, it is unprecedented for someone to create their own god position at your age, not to mention that the god position you created is not an ordinary god position. By the way, have you named the god position you created? Don't let it conflict with other gods in the god realm. Hearing this, Qilin smiled and said, it's called the god of Qilin. God of Qilin? Yes, it's called the god of Qilin. After all, my second spirit is the Qilin, so it's normal to call it the god of Qilin. It's just that my second spirit hasn't filled up its spirit rings yet. As he spoke, Qilin looked at the goddess of life. Sister goddess, my remaining spirit rings will have to rely on you. When the goddess of life heard this, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at Qilin. Little guy, you're using me as cheap labor. Don't you know that after becoming a god, you are no longer affected by the rules of the Duluo planet and can condense your own spirit rings? Hearing this, Qilin scratched the back of his head and chuckled. Sister goddess, spirit rings condensed by oneself are not as good as spirit rings obtained for free, right? Of course, there was another reason. Qilin condensing his own spirit rings would be a waste of time, wouldn't it? The goddess of life was different. She had been born for who knows how many ages, and she had more power of faith than she could ever spend, which could completely satisfy his spirit ring needs. The goddess of life naturally saw through Qilin's little scheme and said ungraciously, I really give up on you, little guy. I thought that since you created your own god position, you wouldn't need my god position anymore, but I didn't expect you, little guy, to be so greedy. Hearing this, Qilin said righteously, I have 2 spirits, isn't it normal to possess dual god positions? The corners of the goddess of life's mouth twitched slightly. Normal, my foot. Chapter 237, Tiny Asura God, you have already courted death. Very well, since I was going to pass the god position to you anyway, why should I care if you have 1 god position or 2? The goddess of life said, shaking her head. Qilin smiled slightly. At this moment, the goddess of life continued, of course, don't be too happy just yet. Now that you have become a god, you naturally cannot stay in the mortal realm for too long. At most, you must enter the god realm within 10 years. During this period, you cannot interfere too much in the affairs of this place. Speaking of this, the goddess of life continued to explain, there are many subsidiary worlds like Duluo planet under the god realm, so a set of unique rules has been formed. Gods cannot interfere in any affairs of the mortal realm. Once violated, the enforcers of the god realm will likely take action. Speaking of this, you must be careful. You have now attracted the attention of the Asura god, and he seems to have some opinions about you. Furthermore, he is one of the 3 great enforcers of the god realm. If he catches you violating the rules of the god realm, I fear he might take action against you. After hearing this, Qilin frowned slightly. He was not afraid of the Asura god, rather, he felt that this Asura god was somewhat ungrateful. It was one thing to invade his sea of consciousness with his divine sense back then, but after all these years, he still dared to plot against him. Initially, Qilin did not know that the mass of spiritual origin in his sea of consciousness from several years ago actually came from the Asura god. But ever since the Rakshasa god's divine thought stumbled in Qilin's sea of consciousness, she, who was already at odds with the Asura god, immediately spilled everything about the Asura god. Only then did Qilin realize that the kind person, who had left a large mass of spiritual origin in his sea of consciousness was actually the Asura god. This old fellow actually dared to use his divine sense to invade his sea of consciousness. It was just that his own luck was a little bit better, otherwise who knows what the outcome would have been. HMPH, sooner or later, I will deal with him. Qilin was not the type to get hit and not hit back. In the words of Tang San, the tiny Asura god has already courted death. Qilin agreed with the goddess of life on the surface, while internally he was thinking about when to get rid of the Asura god. He didn't like this guy much in the original work. Saying that gods cannot interfere in mortal affairs while madly interfering himself, it's a shame he is an enforcer of the god realm. After the goddess of life finished explaining the rules of the god realm to Qilin, she returned to the god realm. And on the same day that the goddess of life returned to the god realm, Qian Runshui met with Qilin alone. After thinking it over, she decided to come clean with Qilin. In the elegant pavilion, Qilin and Qian Runshui sat opposite each other. From Qian Runshui's face, one could see that her expression was very serious, though her eyes still held a hint of trepidation. Qilin, there's something I must tell you. As soon as she spoke, Qilin had already guessed her thoughts, but he still said with a smile, go ahead, what is it? Qian Runshui took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, actually, besides being called Qian Runshui, I have another identity. Oh, what identity? Seeing that the expression on Qilin's face remained relaxed and calm, Qian Runshui continued in a deep voice, besides being called Qian Runshui, I am also the Holy Maiden of Spirit Hall. My mother is the current Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, and my grandfather is the High Priest of Spirit Hall. Qilin gave a flat, oh. Seeing this, Qian Runshui was slightly stunned. You, aren't you surprised? Qilin shook his head and then said, I knew it the first time I saw you. Qian Runshui frowned at first, then suddenly realized. You even knew I was disguised as Shui Qing. Qilin said with a grin, big brother Shui. You, Qian Runshui's eyes widened. At this moment, her heart was incredibly complex, and she couldn't describe how she felt. On one hand, she was somewhat annoyed that Qilin had clearly seen through her identity but pretended to know nothing. On the other hand, she was somewhat relieved. Fortunately, Qilin had not exposed her after learning her identity, otherwise she would have had to abandon her plan to usurp Heaven Do. But at that time, Qilin was clearly a teacher at Heaven Do Academy and didn't know her identity, so why did he cover for her? Thinking of Qilin's personality, a flash of inspiration suddenly struck Qian Runshui. This guy, could it be that he chose to cover for her because he saw through her appearance? Qian Runshui was quite confident in her appearance. Although she couldn't compare to Ji Yuina and the Snow Empress, she was definitely superior to everyone else. Thinking of this, a trace of secret joy flashed in Qian Runshui's eyes. It seemed she was still quite charming. A moment later, Qian Runshui calmed her emotions and asked curiously, when you first met me, you were only a spirit king. How did you see through my disguise? You should know that apart from my grandfather, no one could see through it. Qilin made a shrugging gesture and said, it's hard to explain. You can just consider it an innate talent. If not for the spiritual origin sent by the kind person, Asura god, Qilin might not have really been able to see through Qian Runshui's disguise at that time. Of course, even if he couldn't see through Qian Runshui's disguise, Qilin, who was familiar with the plot, still knew that Shui Qing was a disguise of Qian Runshui. And Qian Runshui also saw his attitude from Qilin's performance. The trepidation in her eyes dissipated, and she immediately proposed to Qilin her plan to usurp the nest and seize Heaven Do, as well as Spirit Hall's ambition to unify the continent. What do you think? Qian Runshui asked. Qilin shrugged and said indifferently, unifying the continent is the trend of the times. Now, whether it is Heaven Do or Star Luo, the interior has long been rotten. The continent needs a brand new order. Hearing this sentence from Qilin, Qian Runshui couldn't help but smile knowingly, and then looked at him with slight anticipation. Are you willing to help me? If I have your help, perhaps many people could be saved. If Spirit Hall wanted to unify the continent, many people would definitely die. Qilin smiled and said, perhaps I don't need to take action. As long as you become a god, unifying the continent will be a trivial matter. Doing it yourself will give you more sense of accomplishment, won't it? After listening, a look of being moved flashed across Qian Runshui's face, but then she shook her head again. By the time I become a god, who knows how much time will have passed? I don't want to wait that long. Qilin smiled and said, did you forget the effect of my spirit ability? With me here, it won't take long. Qian Runshui listened. That's right. As long as she stayed by Qilin's side, was there any need to fear that her spirit power rank wouldn't soar? Immediately, Qian Runshui looked at Qilin with an excited expression. Qilin, it seems I will have to stay by your side for a long time to come. Qilin smiled slightly. You are most welcome. It's just, should I call you Big Brother Shui in the future, or what should I call you? Qian Runshui said with a smile, you could call me Big Brother Shui before, is it that difficult to call me sister now? Alright, Sister Shui. Qilin shrugged and satisfied her. Chapter 238, when one person attains the Tao, their chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. After Qian Runshui had a showdown with Qilin, she completely restored her original appearance and settled down at Heaven Do Academy. As for the Crown Prince's residence, it was disguised by a body double she had personally trained. She asked Qilin for 1,000 illusion mask. No one below the divine rank could see through the disguise of the 1,000 illusion mask. Qian Runshui had no more worries and began to devote herself entirely to cultivate. She also felt a sense of urgency in her heart, especially after her battle with Xiao Wu. Since returning from the far north, Xiao Wu's spirit power rank had increased by another 2 levels, reaching rank 68. After moving into Heaven Do Academy, Qian Runshui had sparred with Xiao Wu several times. She had originally thought that since she possessed the divine rank spirit, Seraphim, and her spirit power rank was a full 10 levels higher than Xiao Wu's, she would surely be able to defeat her easily. However, things did not go as planned. The two fought several times, with each winning and losing. In terms of strength, speed, and defense, Xiao Wu might still be slightly inferior to Tian Runshui, but she was already far superior to the average spirit saint. Furthermore, Xiao Wu's control over her spirit power had reached a level of perfection. She could manipulate her spirit power in countless ways, giving Tian Runshui the feeling that every one of her moves and strikes was like a spirit ability. Especially when she unleashed a set of hammer techniques that Qilin had developed for her, it was extremely terrifying. Even Tian Runshui had to dodge, otherwise, getting hit would inevitably result in a serious injury. The few times Tian Runshui lost to Xiao Wu, it was because she failed to dodge Xiao Wu's hammer techniques, leading to her defeat. Perhaps their Tian family just liked taking big hammers head-on by nature. It was precisely because she felt pressure from Xiao Wu that Tian Runshui dared not slack off in the slightest, working hard to cultivate for fear of being overtaken by others. Perhaps because she was devoting herself entirely to cultivate, she actually found herself getting along quite well with Zhu Zujing. As for another person, after learning that Tian Runshui's spirit was actually the Seraphim, she began to feel restless. This person was none other than Zhu Zuyun. Zhu Zuyun was not a fool. It was one thing that Tian Runshui's surname was Tian, but her spirit was the Seraphim spirit. Wasn't this obviously a direct descendant of the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff's lineage? These things were nothing. What truly made Zhu Zuyun's scalp tingle was Tian Runshui's other identity. One had to know, she was the adopted sister of the current crown prince of the Heaven Do Empire, Shui Qing. Could it be that the Heaven Do Empire and Spirit Hall had reached some secret deal? Could the Heaven Do Empire and Spirit Hall have already formed a secret alliance? This was not good news for the Star Luo Empire. Zhu Zuyun had never imagined that the Heaven Do Crown Prince had already been replaced, because it was too inconceivable. And she never expected that Spirit Hall actually had the ambition to unify the continent. After learning of Tian Runshui's identity, Zhu Zuyun still did not return to the Star Luo Empire, nor did she even send back any information regarding Tian Runshui. Who told Tian Runshui and Qilin to have such an ambiguous relationship? If her actions were to anger Qilin, then the Star Luo Empire would truly be finished. Of course, even if the Star Luo Empire were truly finished, it wouldn't matter. In any case, with the connection to her younger sister, the Zhu family would be fine. Furthermore, Zhu Zuyun found that staying at Heaven Do Academy was quite good. Whenever Qilin applied buffs to others every day, he would also include her. Now, her spirit power had broken through several levels compared to the time of the Soul Master competition, reaching the Spirit King level. And in the midst of this mundane daily life, Qilin began to set his hand to another matter. That was to resurrect Tianmeng and Bingdi. Although the two had sacrificed themselves to Qilin, their soul origin had always been stored within Qilin's sea of consciousness. Apart from Tianmeng, who was sleeping all day long, Bingdi had been using the cultivate method taught by Qilin to cultivate her mental force. Now, her mental force was more than a notch stronger than before the sacrifice. And resurrecting Tianmeng and Bingdi was just a small matter for Qilin. Since he became a god, he had been able to master the power of rules in the Duluo world. As long as they were not completely turned to ashes, he could resurrect them. However, in Qilin's view, this was more like a form of authority. The power of rules he utilized was essentially provided to him by the god position. As long as one mastered the god position, it was equivalent to mastering this authority. Therefore, for any god, resurrecting a mortal was not difficult. Of course, if it were resurrecting a god, that would be another matter entirely. It would require support-type gods like the food god and the nine-colored goddess to do so. And such power of rules, if transferred to other worlds, would be ineffective and could only be applied to the world where Duluo was located. Just like Xiao Wu's Paragon Golden Body, this was also a rule-based spirit ability that allowed her to withstand any attack below the divine rank when she was a spirit ancestor. However, if this spirit ability were placed in other worlds, it might still have a defensive effect, but it would definitely not be able to achieve the absolute defense it had in Duluo. Of course, as long as it was in the Duluo world, Qilin, who mastered the world's power of rules, directly created two physical bodies for Tianmeng and Bingdi using divine force. Logically speaking, even if Tianmeng and Bingdi were resurrected, they could at most only restore their strength from before they sacrificed themselves, just like Xiao Wu in the original story. But the current situation was slightly different from the original story. That was because after Qilin created his own god position and became a god, his entire spirit power had been transformed into divine force. Besides that, every one of his spirit rings had also evolved and transformed. And Tianmeng and Bingdi represented the first spirit ring of Qilin's two spirits respectively. Therefore, when Qilin resurrected the two, he injected the spirit ring origin from the first spirit rings of his two spirits into the newborn bodies of Tianmeng and Bingdi, allowing them to successfully break through their final life shackles. Amidst the icy blue glowing radiance, Bingdi transformed into a cold and elegant beauty with green long hair, wearing an icy blue long dress, her whole body exuding an extremely cold aura. And in the other radiance, Tianmeng transformed into a young man with pale golden long hair. His appearance looked very neutral, giving one a sense of being unable to distinguish between male and female. Tianmeng's appearance was handsome, but his face revealed a cheeky smile, giving people a lecherous feeling. As soon as he was resurrected, he immediately burst into wild laughter. Ha 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 ha, brother is alive again. If one were to ask what Tianmeng Iceworm was feeling right now, it was that he had just taken a nap, and when he woke up, he was being carried to success by Qilin. In one word, awesome. Tianmeng Iceworm clenched his fists, his face full of intoxication. Is this the feeling of becoming a god? It's really too cool. Bingdi spoke much less than Tianmeng, but she still couldn't hide the look of excitement on her face. At the very beginning, she had thought that even if Qilin wanted to become a god, it would still take several decades. To her surprise, from the time she sacrificed herself to Qilin becoming a god, it was less than 2 years in total. But Bingdi had not forgotten about Qilin, her face carrying a hint of worry. You have only just become a god, and you directly resurrected Tianmeng and me, and even let us become gods along with you. Will it have any negative effects on you? Upon hearing this, Tianmeng also cast a worried look at Qilin. He was just lecherous, not heartless. That Qilin could bring him to become a god, he was also incredibly grateful in his heart. Qilin laughed and said, just a small issue, it's nothing. In order to resurrect the two, Qilin injected the origin divine force from the two god rings into their newborn bodies, which allowed the two to possess divine rank standards as soon as they were resurrected. For ordinary gods, it might take a long time to recover the origin divine force in the god rings, but for Qilin, it was just a small matter, he could recover in at most 10 days or half a month. If he were to go to the Dupo world, he could recover even faster. Chapter 239, Asura God, move aside, I am about to start courting death. The news of the resurrection of Ice Empress and Tian Meng was quickly known by all the women. Upon learning that Ice Empress and Tian Meng had become gods immediately upon resurrection, they were all incredibly envious. The two of them had truly ascended to the heavens in a single step. Unlike the others, Xiao Wu was equally incredibly excited after learning that Ice Empress and Tian Meng had resurrected and become gods. Because Qilin had told her that her mother could also be resurrected just like Ice Empress and Tian Meng. Besides Xiao Wu, Snow Empress was also excited. Her good sister, Ice Empress, had been resurrected and had even become a god. She was naturally happy for her good sister. In comparison, Ice Empress was a bit depressed. Because she discovered that when she resurrected and wanted to cuddle with Snow Empress and sleep in the same bed, Snow Empress actually developed a sense of resistance. Damn it, what exactly happened during this time? Could it be that Snow Empress doesn't love me anymore? ... After resurrecting Ice Empress and Tian Meng, Qilin immediately went on to take care of another matter. That was to resurrect both Blue-Silver Emperors together as well. However, there were differences between the two Blue-Silver Emperors. Yin had sacrificed herself to Tang Hao, while Lan Yu had sacrificed herself to Qilin. Therefore, Qilin was able to inject the God Ring origin, representing the God Ring of Lan Yu, into her body, just as he had done with Tian Meng and Ice Empress. And Lan Yu, under the influence of Qilin's God Ring origin, not only successfully took human form but also managed to become a god in one go. One must know that before she sacrificed herself, she was only an 180,000-year-old spirit beast. Now, she could be considered to have soared into the sky. After Lan Yu took human form and became a god, Qilin did not restrict her personal freedom, but Lan Yu was still willing to stay by Qilin's side. After all, a backer like Qilin was not common to find. And for Yin, Lan Yu taking human form and becoming a god was also a good thing. In this way, Qilin could apply the effects of life photosynthesis entirely to her. Since Qilin became a god, the function of life photosynthesis had also evolved. Now, he could use it 10 times a day, and each time it could help a plant grow by 1,000 years. However, since Qilin had injected the God Ring origin of the 5th God Ring into Lan Yu's body, he would be unable to use life photosynthesis for the time being until the God Ring origin was replenished. ... Just after Ice Empress, Tian Meng, and Lan Yu had successively become gods, the God Realm shook once again. In the God Realm, within the Council Hall, the 3 God Kings, Asura God, God of Destruction, and Goddess of Life, as well as a group of first-class gods, gathered together. Asura God said with a serious expression, God of Destruction, Goddess of Life, you have also seen it. That human named Qilin can help 3 spirit beasts become gods today, and tomorrow, he will be able to help even more spirit beasts become gods. Do you want to see the war from back then repeat itself? Asura God's tone was heavy, and when the war from back then was mentioned, the atmosphere in the Council Hall instantly froze, and countless first-class gods who had experienced that war changed color abruptly. Even the expressions on the faces of God of Destruction and Goddess of Life changed slightly. But Goddess of Life still spoke up, Asura God, aren't you being a bit extreme? The reason Qilin resurrected these 3 spirit beasts is because they had once sacrificed themselves to Qilin. Furthermore, how can these 3 spirit beasts be compared to the dragon god? Hearing this, Asura God snorted coldly and continued, say no more. Spirit beasts must not become gods, this precedent must never be broken. Goddess of Life frowned tightly upon hearing this. Then what do you want to do? Asura God said indifferently, naturally, it is to strangle those 3 spirit beasts who were lucky enough to become gods in the cradle. This will naturally prevent any mishaps. Once these words were spoken, they actually received approval from quite a few gods. Goddess of Life frowned even deeper and said, you should know that Qilin cannot possibly agree to this. Asura God asked in return, he has only just ascended to godhood. Even if the status of his self-created god position has reached the God King level, at the end of the day, he is just a newly ascended god. Does he dare to defy our will? Seeing this, Goddess of Life had no choice but to look at God of Destruction, hoping he could speak up for Qilin. However, after God of Destruction noticed Goddess of Life's gaze, the expression on his face became unpredictable. From a personal emotional standpoint, he was inclined towards Qilin. Furthermore, he had learned from Goddess of Life that the status of Qilin's self-created god position had indeed reached the God King level. With Qilin's talent, his future achievements would certainly not be below his own, and he could become a pillar of the God realm. But for now, he had not yet grown up. And what about Asura God? As one of the first-generation God Kings like himself and Goddess of Life, its influence on the God realm went without saying. Therefore, God of Destruction did not want to be at odds with Asura God because of 3 spirit beasts. God of Destruction wanted to expand the God realm with all his heart, and the premise for expanding the God realm was, naturally, the stability of the God realm. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, God of Destruction finally shook his head at Goddess of Life. Seeing this, Goddess of Life looked at God of Destruction in disbelief. Although she understood her husband's concerns, a trace of disappointment still flashed imperceptibly in her eyes. Goddess of Life had no choice but to argue based on reason. Those 3 spirit beasts were all very helpful to Qilin in his ascension to godhood. If we kill them just because they are spirit beasts, I fear it will alienate Qilin. Asura God said with a cold expression, if Qilin alienates himself from the gods of my God realm because of such a trivial matter, then he is not worthy of being a god. You. Goddess of Life could clearly feel that beneath Asura God's seemingly righteous exterior, there was a serious prejudice against Qilin hidden. Although she did not know why Asura God was targeting Qilin, looking at the expressions of the gods in the council hall, she could only sigh slightly. Little guy, it seems that I cannot help you anymore. Although there were many first-class gods who thought that Asura God was making a mountain out of a molehill, as long as the heavenly punishment was still there, what did it matter if 3 mere spirit beasts became gods? Could they really affect the God realm? But if Asura God wanted those 3 spirit beasts to die, who would dare not give its face? God of Destruction could choose not to give Asura God face, but he did not want to fall out with Asura God over such a trivial matter. And in such a situation, even if Goddess of Life strongly opposed it, it was to no avail, and she could only snort coldly. I will not interfere in this matter anymore. But Qilin is the one who holds my legacy. If anyone touches a single hair on his head, do not blame me for being impolite. Asura God narrowed its eyes slightly and reminded her, Goddess of Life, Qilin has already created a god position. Goddess of Life glanced at it sideways and said indifferently, does the God realm have a rule stating that a person cannot inherit 2 god positions at the same time? Asura God was speechless and coldly dropped one sentence. I hope you won't regret this. Trying to inherit 2 god positions in one person's body, and they are even God King level god positions, I hope you won't be stuffed to death. There is no need for you to worry about my successor. In the end, this God realm council ended on a sour note. Chapter 240, The Asura God's Objective, Inciting the Sea God. God Realm. After the meeting in the meeting hall concluded, the Asura God took the initiative to seek out the Sea God. Asura, what do you want with me? As soon as the Sea God returned to his palace, the Asura God sought him out. Looking at him, a flash of doubt crossed the Sea God's eyes. The Asura God said, Sea God, I know you have always wanted to leave the God Realm to explore the universe, but you have never found a suitable successor. Now, an opportunity is placed before you. The Sea God raised an eyebrow, then said, Oh, what opportunity? Could it be that you can help me find a suitable successor? Regarding the God positions of the God Realm, some relish them, while others find them unbearable. The Sea God was one of those who found it unbearable. Back then, he had also longed to become a god, hoping that after doing so, he would be immortal and free to roam the world. Therefore, he went through all kinds of hardships, and just as his deadline approached, he gathered the faith of the sea, created his own god position in one go, and became the Sea God. However, although he ascended to the God Realm and obtained the ability to be immortal, except for that initial period, the Sea God had always wanted to leave the God Realm to explore and roam the universe. However, the God position was like a shackle, binding him tightly to the God Realm. Originally, with his ability, he could easily find a successor in the lower realm by secretly meddling. However, because the God Realm did not allow gods to interfere in the affairs of the lower realm, and with the Asura God as the law enforcement god, he had never been able to get his wish. But now, the Sea God did not expect the Asura God to say such things to him. However, the Sea God was no fool. For the Asura God to suddenly say such things to him at this time, he must be asking something of him, and what he sought most likely had to do with Qilin and those 3 spirit beasts that had become gods. The Asura God's expression was calm as he continued, I naturally don't have a successor for you, but I can allow you to go to the lower realm yourself to select a qualified successor. Of course, the premise is that you need to do one thing for me after you go to the lower realm. Upon hearing this, the Sea God's mouth curled up slightly, and he asked, Is it to help you kill those 3 spirit beasts? The Asura God nodded indifferently. Seeing this, the Sea God smiled slyly, Asura, I find that you have a bit of personal bias when it comes to those 3 spirit beasts. Why don't you tell me about it? The Asura God looked deeply at the Sea God, then said expressionlessly, That's right, I am indeed targeting Qilin. He did not quibble, because anyone could see that he was targeting Qilin. Otherwise, what kind of waves could a mere 3 spirit beasts becoming gods stir up in the God Realm? Upon hearing this, the Sea God asked suspiciously, Before Qilin became a god, you shouldn't have had any contact with him, right? He was just a mortal before. Even if his talent was good, he couldn't reach you. Could it be that you were jealous of his talent? The Asura God shook his head and said indifferently, A mortal. I don't believe a mortal could destroy my divine sense. He has secrets on him that none of us know. What? The Sea God's pupils shrank suddenly, and a look of shock flashed across his face. Asura, this joke of yours is not funny at all. A mortal, no matter how strong, couldn't possibly destroy the divine sense of a god king. After a brief moment of shock, the Sea God frowned, full of disbelief. The Asura God glanced at the Sea God faintly. Do I need to make such a joke with you? Seeing this, the Sea God realized that what the Asura God said was very likely true, but he immediately realized something was wrong and looked at the Asura God strangely. That's not right. Isn't it said that gods cannot interfere in the affairs of the lower realm? Then how did your divine sense appear in the lower realm and get destroyed by Qilin? The expression on the Asura God's face did not fluctuate in the slightest, and he said calmly, As the law enforcement god of the God Realm, I detected abnormal fluctuations on him and sent my divine sense to investigate the cause. Is there a problem with that? Fine, anyway, you are the law enforcement god, so whatever you say is right. The Sea God spread his hands, looking completely unbothered. The Asura God narrowed his eyes. Speaking of the grudge between himself and Qilin, it actually boiled down to Tang San. The Asura God was different from the God of Destruction. The God of Destruction only wanted to guard his own territory in the God Realm, while he was different, he wanted to explore the universe and pursue even greater strength. Because he discovered that if he kept staying in the God Realm, even if he had supreme authority, his strength could no longer advance. On the other hand, the Asura God was not willing to give up his authority in the God Realm, so he decided to cultivate a successor to act as his representative. In this way, even if he explored the universe, he could ensure that he would maintain his position in the God Realm after his breakthrough and return. And Tang San was the candidate he had selected. Back then, the real son of Tang Hao and Ayan had already been killed by the energy aftermath of that battle. The Asura God took advantage of this gap to introduce the soul of Tang San from another world into the body of the Duluo Tang San. It was precisely because the Asura God had designated Tang San as his successor that he was able to notice an outlier like Qilin while observing Tang San from the God Realm. At first, the Asura God did not take it to heart, but as Qilin showed a cultivation speed that surpassed ordinary people, the Asura God became interested and wanted to use his divine sense to investigate the secrets on Qilin. The Asura God just did not expect that Qilin would use some unknown method to destroy his divine sense. To this day, he still does not know what the golden lotus and the flames in Qilin's body actually are. The Duluo continent could never have such divine objects. These 2 divine objects could only come from the universe. The Asura God guessed that the reason Qilin was able to create his own god position at such a young age was very likely because of these 2 divine objects. The Asura God pursued supreme strength, so he naturally set his sights on the divine objects on Qilin. However, Qilin was the successor of the Goddess of Life, and the Goddess of Life could not watch him take action against Qilin. Therefore, the Asura God chose to start with the 3 spirit beasts beside Qilin. In the Asura God's view, Qilin had created his own god position at a young age and was successful in his youth. It was impossible for him to watch the spirit beasts he had resurrected be killed. And as long as he dared to resist, he would have a reason to take action against him. However, at the thought of the golden lotus and the divine fire in Qilin's sea of consciousness, the Asura God still suppressed his desire for these 2 divine objects and chose to let the Sea God test Qilin's bottom line. If Qilin could bear to watch those 3 spirit beasts be killed, then he would accept it. But as long as Qilin dared to resist, then it would be a dead end. At that time, even the Goddess of Life would not be able to save him. Chapter 241, Tang San exposed, Sea God descends to the lower realm. Subsequently, Asura God looked towards Sea God. You were also once a member of Duluo planet, that place can be considered your hometown. You can completely kill those 3 spirit beasts while simultaneously looking for a qualified legacy. How about it, do you want to accept this mission? Hearing Asura God's words, a wicked smile appeared on Sea God's face. Since you've put it that way, then I will accept this mission. Although I don't know why you won't take action yourself, remember this, once this matter is finished, you will owe me a favor. Asura God said indifferently, very well. It was just a favor, as long as he could obtain those 2 divine objects, everything would be worth it. And Sea God also felt that he had profited. Although he didn't know Asura God's plans, for him to personally go and kill 3 spirit beasts that had just become gods, wasn't that an easy task. Calculating by the time of the lower realm, he had been a god for 20,000 years, and he was a first-class god. Dealing with 3 small fries who had just become gods wasn't that something he could easily handle. The original work mentioned the conversation between Sea God and Deep Sea Demon Whale King, where Sea God had blinded one of Deep Sea Demon Whale King's eyes 20,000 years ago. As for whether he would offend Qilin, the future rising star of the god realm, that was not within Sea God's considerations. Because by that time, he would likely have already passed on his god position and gone off to roam the universe. Therefore, Sea God was not afraid of offending Qilin at all. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Asura God's face, and he said calmly, then I shall await your good news. Sea God said casually, a trivial matter, leave it to me. ... Meanwhile, on Duluo planet. In the Sunset Forest. Tumo, following Platinum Bishop Solus's instructions, led a team of 13 spirit emperors into the Sunset Forest, and based on the several locations of the dried spirit beast corpses, he gradually locked onto the general area. Finally, it only took 2 or 3 days to detect the tracks of Tang San and Titan. The 2 of them had not expected Spirit Hall to react so quickly, and that they would gradually lock onto their location relying merely on a few clues. And the main reason for this was Titan. As a power-type spirit master, every time Titan made a move or fought with spirit beasts, it would cause a huge commotion. Furthermore, such a large commotion would even trigger small-scale stampedes of spirit beasts. This also provided Tumo with extremely important information. Tumo even deduced Titan's approximate strength range from the destruction caused by Titan's fights with spirit beasts, and quickly fed the information back to the Heaven Dose City Spirit Hall. After learning the information, Platinum Bishop Solus immediately realized the severity of the problem. One must know, once a suspected Spirit Duluo level fallen spirit master goes berserk, the damage caused would inevitably be unimaginable. If he couldn't resolve this matter perfectly, he feared his position as Platinum Bishop would not be secure. Therefore, Platinum Bishop Solus decided to lead the team himself. If the opponent really was a fallen spirit master, he would directly take action and kill them. As a Platinum Bishop of Spirit Hall, his spirit power rank was as high as 89, and he was bringing a team of spirit masters who were all spirit saints, so he was incomparably confident. As long as the opponent was not a titled Duluo, he would be able to keep them there. Soon, the team of spirit saints led by Platinum Bishop Solus successfully rendezvoused with the team of spirit emperors led by Tumo, following the markers Tumo had left behind. By this time, Tumo had already roughly locked onto the locations of Tang San and Titan and had been tracking them from a distance. Among the team he led, one person's spirit was a 1,000-feather hawk. After activating their spirit, they could not only fly but also had extremely sharp eyesight, able to see things clearly from several kilometers away. And after joining up with Platinum Bishop Solus, they immediately decided to take action. However, to avoid alerting the enemy, they decided to wait until nighttime when Tang San and Titan were resting to launch a sneak attack. Listening to Tumo's report, Platinum Bishop Solus couldn't help but exclaim, I didn't expect that old orangutan from the Strength Clan would actually get involved with a fallen spirit master. By the way, who is that fallen spirit master following by the old orangutan side? Tumo replied, reporting to the bishop, that person appears to be a member of Shrek Academy who once stood out in the Soul Master competition preliminaries, Tang San. As the most prestigious competition on the continent, they were naturally no strangers to the Soul Master competition. And as a contestant in the first match of the preliminaries, although Tang San was beaten quite badly by Xiao Wu, he still left an impression on quite a few people by relying on his Tang Sec techniques. Tang San. Hearing this name, Platinum Bishop Solus frowned, then shook his head and said with a cold expression, forget it, no matter what his identity is, as long as he is a fallen spirit master, he must die. Yes. Just as Platinum Bishop Solus was preparing to lead his men to carry out the final encirclement of Tang San, on an island deep in the ocean, a beam of light shot up into the sky from an altar. And above the altar, Bo Saishi, having sensed this commotion, suddenly raised her head to look at this blue beam of light that shot straight into the clouds. Bo Saishi was wearing a bright red robe, with long sea blue hair draped behind her head. Her gentle and beautiful face looked to be only in her 30s, and her temperament was noble and elegant, yet carried a touch of gentleness. And on her stunningly beautiful face at this moment, it was filled with a look of shock. See God, he has actually manifested. In the beam of light, a tall and imposing figure stood. He wore a white robe with gold trim and a trident-shaped crown on his head. Unlike the sleazy appearance he had in the god realm, at this moment, in front of his believers, he appeared full of majesty and divinity. Meanwhile, all the residents on Sea God Island noticed the scene, kneeling and kowtowing with excited expressions, shouting. Sea God has manifested. Sea God has manifested. Bo Saishi also knelt on one knee, her demeanor pious. Bo Saishi greets Sea God. The beam of light disappeared, leaving only Sea God standing in midair. He cast his gaze downwards, surveying the entire Sea God Island, and finally his eyes rested on Bo Saishi. As the high priestess of Sea God Island of this generation, Sea God naturally had some impression of her. In fact, the reason Bo Saishi was able to quickly reach the rank of Limit Duluo was because she had been bestowed with power of faith by him. Alright, everyone get up. Sea God waved his hand casually, and his voice enveloped the entire Sea God Island. All the residents on Sea God Island heard this voice, and only then did they get up excitedly, the expressions on their faces still pious. Bo Saishi also stood up from the ground and said respectfully, Sea God, you have returned to the mortal world, is it possible you have some important divine oracle to convey? Sea God, maintaining a high level of pretentiousness, said in an indifferent tone, this deity has descended to the mortal world this time because I have important matters to attend to. Bo Saishi was slightly stunned. What kind of matter required Sea God himself to take action? But she still said respectfully, Sea God, I wonder if I can be of any help to you. Sea God said indifferently, this matter is not something you can intervene in, even though your strength is nearly invincible among mortals. Bo Saishi immediately said respectfully, it is a pity I could not be of help to you. Sea God waved his hand casually. Alright, this deity has other important matters to attend to, so I will not continue to tarry here. After speaking, Sea God's figure vanished from Bo Saixi's sight like a ghost. Watching Sea God's disappearing figure, Bo Saishi frowned, and a feeling of unease inexplicably arose in her heart. Sea God, he shouldn't encounter any danger, right? After all, he is a divinity. Chapter 242, Accident, Emperor Shui Yi passes away. See God's divine thought spread out, relying on the divine thought he had honed for 10,000 years since becoming a god, he could almost cover the entire Duluo planet. Therefore, upon sensing Qilin's location, he immediately flew toward it at top speed. Although Qilin and those 3 spirit beasts had all become gods, he had been a god for 10,000 years, how could ordinary divinities who had just become gods compare to him? See God's figure flashed rapidly across the sky, looking as if he were crossing space, similar to teleportation. Meanwhile, at Heaven Do Academy, Qilin, who was surrounded by a group of beauties, suddenly raised an eyebrow, clearly having sensed this divine thought from See God. It was not just Qilin. Ice Empress, Lan Yu, and even the soundly sleeping Tianmeng were alerted. See God had no intention of restraining his divine thought at all, as if he were blatantly telling Qilin and the 3 from Ice Empress's group. I am here specifically to take you down. Upon detecting See God's divine thought, Ice Empress's face immediately revealed a hint of solemnity. The owner of this divine thought seems to be coming for us. Lan Yu and Tianmeng, who ran over from afar with a panicked expression, exclaimed, why did a god from the god realm come to find us? Could it be because we didn't go to the god realm immediately, so they are life cheat? Did they have to be so petty? Their conversation immediately caused the group of beauties present to panic as well. How could this happen? Isn't it just that we didn't go to the god realm right away? Could it be a mistake? What if that divinity isn't coming for us? Exactly. Brother Qilin hasn't even eaten a single grain of rice from the god realm. How could the god realm possibly cause trouble for Brother Qilin? If you ask me, maybe the god realm sent someone down just to respectfully invite Brother Qilin to the god realm. At this moment, the usually silent Ji Yuina suddenly spoke. I'm afraid things aren't that simple. This divinity who came down from the god realm is likely coming for me, or perhaps for the 3 of you, Ice Empress. Everyone was stunned. Sister Na, what do you mean by that? A look of resentment appeared on Ji Yuina's flawless face as she spoke slowly. The god realm does not allow spirit beasts to become gods. What? Everyone's hearts trembled upon hearing this. Why is that? A look of recollection flashed in Ji Yuina's eyes, and then she slowly revealed the secret of the god realm. While shocked, the women also had a sudden realization. They hadn't expected the god realm to have such a secret. Only then did Ice Empress, Snow Empress, and Xiao Wu understand why the heavenly tribulations for spirit beasts became harder with each one. This was clearly not intending to give spirit beasts any hope of becoming gods at all. Even someone as strong as Snow Empress, the naturally born Ice Heaven Snow Girl, in the end, didn't even have the confidence to safely pass the 700,000-year heavenly tribulation. Not to mention other spirit beasts, Ice Empress, with her ultimate ice, couldn't even pass the 400,000-year heavenly tribulation. Upon hearing this, the women even looked at Xiao Wu and the others with a touch of pity. Seeing this, Xiao Wu raised an eyebrow. Why are you looking at me? I've already transformed. The women then remembered that Xiao Wu was a transformed spirit beast and didn't need to suffer through the heavenly tribulation. But soon, looks of worry flashed in everyone's eyes again. Xiao Wu was fine, but what about Sister Na and Ice Empress and the others? Yes, given the grudges between the god realm and spirit beasts, sending someone to the lower realm this time is likely with ill intent. Everyone expressed agreement and then looked at Qilin. Looking at the gazes cast by everyone, Qilin chuckled and said, don't worry, this is just a small problem. Then, Qilin grabbed Ji Yuina's wrist, which was like suet jade, and comforted her, if this god is really here to kill you, then I will kill him before he can make a move. Ji Yuina felt warm in her heart, and the gaze she cast at Qilin was so gentle it seemed as if it could drip water. Of course, there wasn't much worry in her eyes. Although once she was exposed, the god sent by the god realm would certainly not be an ordinary divinity. However, her own injuries had already healed, and even if it were a first-class god, she could ensure he never returned. Moreover, even if it really reached a life or death moment, Qilin could take them to another world together. Seeing Qilin so confident, the women soon relaxed. Qilin was omnipotent. As time passed second by second, a blue shadow flashed over Heaven Do City, and a powerful and sacred aura enveloped the entire Heaven Do City. At this moment, whether it was spirit masters or civilians, upon feeling this powerful, sacred, and majestic aura, without exception, they felt their souls trembling from the bottom of their hearts and couldn't help but piously worship. In Heaven Do City, Qilin frowned slightly and gave a soft huff. The next second, the powerful and sacred aura that had enveloped Heaven Do City instantly dissipated like melting snow. This immediately caused See God, who had already arrived above Heaven Do Academy, to raise an eyebrow, a look of surprise flashing in his eyes. This Qilin actually has some tricks up his sleeve. On the other side, Heaven Do Imperial Palace. Emperor Shui Yi, who was already aged, felt the powerful pressure just now, and his 2 cloudy eyes suddenly widened, covered in bloodshot veins. He couldn't catch his breath, his head tilted to the side, and he lost his breath. In an instant, the attendant caring for Emperor Shui Yi witnessed this scene, and after a second of shock, screamed uncontrollably. Your Majesty has passed away. Your Majesty has passed away. The shrill voice echoed throughout the Heaven Do Imperial Palace, and in the blink of an eye, the entire palace fell into complete chaos. At Heaven Do Academy, Qilin stood up and looked at See God, who was standing tall and imposing above the academy. He's here. After Qilin finished speaking, the women also noticed See God and all looked toward him. Ji Yuina's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. The moment she saw See God, she had already seen through his background. He was merely a first-class god. As long as it wasn't those few god kings, no one could do anything to her. Ice Empress, Lan Yu, and Tianmeng looked slightly nervous at the moment, although they knew that with Qilin as their trump card, there was no danger to their lives. But when See God truly arrived, they couldn't help but feel nervous in their hearts. The rest of the women were both curious and nervous. Besides them, other students of Heaven Do Academy and the 3 deans also noticed See God in the sky, their expressions dazed and their faces full of shock. Who is this sacred being? The 3 deans had seen quite a few titled Duluo, but this tall and imposing man before them, just in terms of aura, instantly killed all the titled Duluo they had ever seen. Moreover, looking at his appearance, it seemed he had come with ill intent. Just as the 3 deans were deep in thought, See God looked down from above and instantly locked onto Qilin and the women. Seeing the beauties following Qilin, See God muttered inwardly, damn, this kid has great luck with women, even I am envious looking at him. After muttering that, See God resumed his sacred and majestic image and said indifferently. The god realm does not allow spirit beasts to become gods. I have come to the lower realm today only to execute the beast god. Chapter 243, Walking only uses Qilin step, hitting only uses Qilin fist.